Sang-O said that it was dangerous here and asked to go to the shelter. Sang-O thought that in the Ardal Guild only Kong Wu-jin deserves attention, so he doesn't expect anything special. He began to look around and saw a huge purple wolf. Sang-O didn't understand where he even came from. The wolf called his minions and approached the headquarters. Sang-O prepared for battle. But when the wolf began to attack, Sun Gu suddenly appeared and hit the wolf with great force. Everyone around was in shock. Sun Gu also used a firewall against a pack of wolves. He said that there may be many of them, but they can deal with them one at a time, and said not to lose hope. This encouraged the rest of the awakened ones. Sang-O was surprised and wondered who this young man was. Was there a fire magician of such power and soul? Suddenly the wolves began to be fired upon from helicopters. It appears that the Capital Defense Command has arrived. The wolves began to make terrible sounds. They said among themselves that the earth was indeed an interesting place, with explosive metals along with warrior magicians. People began to wonder if this wolf was talking. This is actually not true. He doesn't make any sounds. The voice comes from within. The wolf wants to use these earthlings as an offering and ascend to the third stage. He is one of the 72 commanders of Tranet, Level 2 Uriel. Suddenly, Uriel began attacking people with his powerful magic. This stunned most of them. Sun Gu decided that he needed to be stopped and they couldn't lose so easily. Uriel was impressed and annoyed by Sun Gu's tenacity, so he attacked him. Sun Gu fell to the ground. The wolf said that there were so many tasty people gathered here. Suddenly, Sun Gu saw a rocket in the sky. This is incredible. Has the government really abandoned Seoul? The missile defense system was activated. Another one flew into the rocket, and first there was an explosion in the sky, and then a flash of light. Wu Jin arrived home. He thought that this place really was like a fucking shithole. He asked Uriel if he had caused this mess. Sun Gu asked the hero what was happening. Did Wu Jin really fly here riding a rocket? Wu Jin replied that yes, but what else? Damn bastard Rushmod. He didn't even tell who he lost to. But who would have thought that an immortal would appear on Earth? Wu Jin asked Uriel how they broke through the dungeon. The wolf replied that the hero was talking nonsense. Wu Jin thought that suddenly it wasn't him. Then there's nothing more to see here. Ugin summoned his army of skeletons. He ordered them to get rid of the wolves. Kiba also said to carry out the royal order. The skeletons deftly killed the wolves. Ugin went to attack the main one, Uriel, but suddenly his attack was repelled. Uriel told Wu Jin to just wait and said he better be on guard when he returns. Does he really want to just take it and run away? Wu Jin can't just let him go. The hero entered Uriel's area. He can choose duel or battle for dominance. Also, Wu Jin needs to choose a mode: visit, infiltration, or conquest. Wu Jin didn't understand what this all meant, since the last time with Rushmod everything was a little different. But, in any case, only conquest is suitable for him in this situation. Wu Jin is told that if he completes the task, he will receive achievement points. Uriel was simply sleeping next to the dimension fragment stone. Wu Jin asked him if he really ran away and is now giving up. Uriel replied that creating a gate on Earth was definitely a mistake, because who knew that Ugin would be there? The hero said that this place is perfect for hunting and he will come here often in the future. Uriel said that Wu Jin is talking nonsense and doesn't know anything. If this place is conquered, the gate will disappear. This means he will never encounter the hero again. However, he can also kill him here. Uriel activated the unique dominance effect, Field Protection, and became gigantic. All of Uriel's physical stats are increased by 300% for 30 seconds, while the effect is active. Wu Jin realized that the reason Uriel ran away was because of an ace up his sleeve. But anyway, he's just a crazy dog. Uriel replied that, as he thought, the best way to kill a hero was to tear him to pieces. Wu Jin proudly replied that he couldn't. Uriel said that it was true. They would still be resurrected, but Ugin would not be able to do this, and began to attack the hero. Wu Jin called first Bibi and then Kiba. Uriel insulted Ujin and said that if he didn't try, his life would end today. The protection effect ends after 10 seconds. Uriel decided not to waste time on Ugin's minions, but to immediately get to him himself. And suddenly Uriel attacks the hero with his sharp claws. He was glad that he could kill him, the immortal himself. He was glad that he had done what the high-ranking lords could not do. But suddenly Wu Jin started laughing. As expected, no matter how smart Uriel is, he is just a dog. Wu Jin said that their little devil has some bad hobbies. Bibi said it was interesting to watch Uriel dance alone. The cat that was earlier turned out to be a witch of hallucinations. Wu Jin asked how long he would stand like this. And then Uriel began to be cut into small pieces. Wu Jin won. Wu Jin has finally collected all 3 fragments of the third dimension. All three pieces merged together and a fragment of the third dimension was obtained. The fragments resonated and a spatial proof was created. Spatial proof allows you to become the owner of a dimension or a dungeon. A dungeon that has lost its owner will look for and respond to a new owner. So this is what the heroes have been missing all this time. When Wu Jin was leaving the dungeon, he was met by Sun Gu. He told the boss that they had problems. Besides Sedan Station, other dungeon breaches continue to appear. Sun Gu said that they always break down after the 4th subway line. He heard on the radio that dungeons were already being broken at Sukmyung Women's University. Wu Jin said that he would go check this area and let the others take care of the surrounding area. The awakened continued to kill monsters, of which a lot appeared. They were waiting for reinforcements. Suddenly, a bone wall and a huge transformer appeared around the entrance to the dungeon and began killing monsters. It was the work of Wu Jin, who was flying over the station on his horse. Wu Jin said that we need to buy some more time. From Sedan to Sukmyung Women's University, Wu Jin has installed his minions everywhere. If he participates, then everything will be resolved soon. But if the dungeons continue to be broken, then there will be no end to it. The cause itself must be eliminated to prevent the spread. Ugin noticed the oddity that dungeons are not broken out anywhere, namely on the 4th line. He is sure that someone is deliberately breaking through them. Then the next goal is Seoul Station. Wu Jin had just arrived there, but it was strange that 30 minutes had already passed and the dungeon had still not been broken through. He couldn't understand why, because the only difference was that he arrived at Seoul Station in advance. If Ugin is right, then the dungeon is broken by the one who knows him. A group of other awakened ones approached the hero. They introduced themselves and said that they had heard about Wu Jin, and it was a great honor for them to meet a person they had only seen on TV. They were happy about Wu Jinu's arrival, as they believed that now it would not be a problem even if the station was breached. Suddenly, Wu Jin walked around everyone and approached a girl. She was in a panic. And then Wu Jin hits her in the face with all his might in front of everyone. People were shocked and began to ask the hero what he was doing. And under the mask was Lee Sang-ho, who was only slightly dressed up. He was surprised that Wu Jin hit him out of the blue and said that people should know about Wu Jin's disgusting character. Wu Jin was funny and hit Lee Sang-ho again. The hero said that for such a crime he should be punished accordingly. These words shocked Sang-ho. It cannot be that Wu Jin understood about his crime. Great Lord of the 25th Stage, Yellow. At Jukjeong Station in Daegu, Lee Sang-ho became one of his vassals and gained enormous power. And he received enlightenment, along with power. This being was a god, and the earth must kneel before his power. Sang-ho caused dungeon breaches by following his orders, but Sang-ho started making a fool of himself, and saying that it was Wu Jin who was trying to kill him. Sang-ho began to attack using telekinesis. Wu Jin noted that Sang-ho has good control. He didn't think this guy was that strong, but Wu Jin repelled all the attacks, saying that these were just minor dirty tricks. And the hero hits Lee Sang-ho with his staff at great speed. Lee Sang-ho said that the world is truly unfair, since he cannot cope with this guy, although he has become stronger. But Sang-ho said that if not him, then someone else will break through the dungeons and the hero cannot change this. Wu Jin was surprised to learn that it was Sang-ho who was digging the dungeons. Sang-ho let it slip. He thought that Wu Jin was aware of his affairs. Wu Jin asked the guy if he was the one who ordered his murder when he was in the Middle East. Wu Jin said that now everything has turned upside down, and the two of them should have a friendly chat sometime. Wu Jin and Lee Sang-ho went to explore one of the dungeons. The hero began to ask Sang-ho about how he broke through the dungeons. If he wants a painless death, he better start talking. Lee Sang-ho began to be sarcastic, saying that he would not tell anything, and Wu Jin decided to hide and seek for him. Lee Sang-ho found himself in complete darkness and could not understand where he was, because he was sure that he was in the dungeon with that guy. He saw Wu Jin behind him and decided to run faster. But Wu Jin beat him to it and ended up right in front. Sang-ho is terrified because Wu Jin was just behind him. It turned out that Wu Jin had cloned himself many times and he surrounded Lee Sang-ho. Bibi was glad that she had found her ghost cloak on Earth, and Lee Sang-ho lay motionless, covered in blood. Bibi said the guy must be having fun. When Wu Jin asked what she showed him, Bibi replied that she showed Sang-ho a hide-and-seek game where if you are caught, you will be beaten to death. Suddenly, Lee Sang-ho woke up. He begged Ugin on his knees to spare him and promised to tell everything. Ugin replied that he already knew everything and cut off his head. Ugin said that people from Earth are gradually becoming involved in this process. When this guy came under the influence of Bibi's magic, he began to reveal everything. He told how he became Lord Yellow's vassal. Because of this, he was able to avoid the monster's aggression. But since Lee Sang-ho was a human, He could only cause the dungeon to break through by using the return stone to destroy the barrier. Bibi said it was a relief nonetheless. Ugin agreed, but this guy became a vassal of the Dimension Lord, so he will still be resurrected. And he will become a full-fledged vassal, in which there will not be a drop of humanity left, so he will not be able to repeat the same trick. Wu Jin suggested getting it over with and moving on. Bibi and Wu Jin went to the dungeons. This time, the Dungeon of Flying Dragons. They wandered around the area and it was very creepy. Bibi asked if this place was scary because it felt like a ghost was about to appear. The heroes entered a palace and saw the Stone of Return. Wu Jin went to take it and a notice popped up saying that spatial proof was coming with the Dungeon Return Stone. Synchronization level 72%. Ugin was asked to claim Wyvern's Nest as his territory. The hero remembered Murdy's words that the owner of the dungeon is chosen by the dungeon itself. If you collect fragments of 3 dimensions, the dungeon can react to this. Wu Jin decided there was nothing to worry about and clicked agree. Wu Jin was asked to change the name of his territory before registration and chose the name Ardal. Guidelines for measurement area management have been created. A lot of notifications started popping up and for some reason Wu Jin felt worse. Wu Jin said that even if he tried to plan everything, they were one step ahead. Now he understood. It's all a game from the Lord of Spatial Territories and 72 commanders to gain more power. And the fact that Alphen and Earth are just hunting grounds for acquiring energy? Ugin decided that he would turn everything upside down. His rank changed to Lord. Residents of Seoul have been informed that all the monsters that appeared during yesterday's dungeon breaks have now been destroyed. Unexpectedly, when Wu Jin, Sun Gu, and Min Chang entered the office, everything was destroyed. Even the warehouse had been completely cleaned out. Wu Jin told them to look around Seoul Station and look for a building that could be used as a fortress, like the one the Hammer Guild uses. Suddenly, Wu Jin received a call from Ji-won. She cried and begged Wu Jin to help. She was in the hospital and didn't know what to do, so she decided to call Wu Jin. Something terrible was happening to Jae-min. He was breaking free from the doctor's hands, and fangs appeared instead of teeth. Wu Jin immediately rushed to the hospital. Ji-won hugged him tightly. She was very scared for Jae-min. She was worried that he would die. Wu Jin began to calm her down and said that everything would be fine and her brother would not die and asked her to just trust him. Wu Jin entered Jae-min's room. The guy became very thin and was tied to a bed. Jae-min said that he was bitten on the shoulder. The guy asked the hero what would happen to him. Wu Jin asked Jae-min if he knew about vampires. Wu Jin said that, to put it simply, Jae-min will turn into one of them. The guy asked if he would then have to live the rest of his life without the opportunity to look at the sun. Wu Jin said that he can still look at the sun, but he will die tomorrow, leaving only his body, which will turn into a vampire. What Jae-min thought of as a real vampire, but he will turn into an ordinary bloodsucker. As the title suggests, Jae-min will become a regular monster. Unfortunately, once he's bitten, there's no turning back. Jae-min was panicked and crying. Wu Jin said that there is a way to avoid death. The guy said that he wants to live. In one of the courtyards, the vampire Vymort, Ryder's vassal, drank the blood of a defenseless girl. He said that this world, crowded with people, is simply paradise. It would soon be dawn, and Vymort decided that was enough for today. But thank God, Wu Jin and Jae-min found him. Vymort remembered this child who was bitten during the night, but could not understand who the guy on the right was. Vymort decided that there was no need to put himself in danger, and decided to run, but Ugin caught him and threw him to the ground. Wu Jin tied it for convenience and gave Jae-min the blade. Wu Jin told the guy to pierce the vampire's heart if he wants to live. Jae-min was confused and asked if Wu Jin could do it. Wu Jin said that this vampire will die as soon as the sun rises anyway, and as soon as this vampire dies, then Jae-min will die, because he is now his henchman. Wu Jin said that Jae-min could breathe with this guy or absorb him and live, although he would still turn into a vampire. It's his decision. Jae-min thought and realized that he must live, because his sister is still sitting and crying while they are talking. And even without this, Jae-min wants to live, so without hesitation he plunged the dagger into the vampire's heart. The blood flowed like a river, joining together and hitting Jae-min straight. Everything was going as it should. Now the bloody ritual is complete. Jae-min's ears became sharper, claws appeared, and he is now a level 15 vampire. At the same time, in the territory of the Ardal dimension, Kiba wandered the vastness. He thought about what existed outside this vast territory. Suddenly, he met some half-animals, half-monsters. Kiba asked about their business in Ardal. One of them said that they needed to meet with the lord of this territory. The rule that states that breakthroughs only occur with dungeons that have not been completely cleared within 30 days was broken. News of a series of breakthroughs that began in Daegu and reached Seoul plunged the world into horror, and all the townspeople were busy evacuating themselves. To prevent chaos among the population, the government issued statements day after day, assuring that they were able to control the dungeons, but almost no one believed them. They also insisted on a national defense contract with Ardal, continuing to put pressure on the guild. People at the Seoul airport saw Murdy and whispered about what she was doing there. They talked about her aura and that she was much more beautiful in real life than in the YouTube video. Murdy walked up to Min Chan. He offered to take her things, but she refused. She said that there are documents that Woo Jin asked for. She said that she would hand them over herself from hand to hand. Meanwhile, Woojin saw some kind of fortress in the dungeons. He didn't know that there was such a thing here. Suddenly, a joyful BB ran up to him. She said that there was a lot of stuff in this dimension's trading post and it was very difficult to choose it all. BB is the butler of the Ardal spatial dimension. Woojin told her to take care of the palace, and here she inspired a flower field. Spatial energy is directly related to the level of troops protecting this dimension, and BB has already spent 10,000 points that the hero gave her just yesterday. Woojin heard a sound. BB replied that she had built something here for Ramson at his request. He said he needed to get a hobby or something like that. Woojin asked about another building. BB said that this is a tavern, and it turns out that you can buy alcohol with dimensional energy. Woojin will have to waste energy for a while during the hike. Woojin asked how Jaemin was doing. BB said she thought he was pretty upset, so she gave him a house and took him a few packs of blood, but he didn't drink them yet. And he didn't drink them because he hoped that he was still human. Kita approached Woojin and said that someone was asking for an audience with him. These were the same monsters. Ugin received them in his palace. Ugin asked the reason for their visit to Ardal. The monster began to beg Woojin to let his family stay here for a while. This is a visit from a family of humanoid tigers. They are exhausted by refugee life. Ugin can order the soldiers to drive them away or accept the family as inhabitants of the dimension. Woojin said that he doesn't mind, but wants to ask a few questions in return. He asked about how the tigers got here. Before coming here, they were in the Orth dimension, which was dominated by the head of the orcs. But due to overwhelming tribute, they had to leave that place. And that's why they ended up here. Woojin asked if they came from another dimension. The tiger said yes, because the boundaries of dimensions can be moved anywhere. Woojin asked about the tribute and how they paid it. The tiger replied that the feudal lord imposes tribute on the settled inhabitants of his dimension. Usually it is paid in bloodstones, received as a reward for the hunt. Ugin thought about it and asked if there was anyone to hunt in this wasteland. The tiger replied that Ugin had nothing to worry about since the hunt took place outside the gate. The hero was at a loss. He understood what was going on. For the spatial dimension, there are 4 ways to obtain energy. The first is to kill and absorb the energy of the wanderer who came to hunt in the dungeon. The second is to release troops and the population of the dimension into the outside world, that is, to make a dungeon breakthrough. The third is to grow plants or animals that contain bloodstones. Simply put, it is an energy farm, but it is too inefficient. Well, the last way is wars between dimensions. It has the highest reward, but it also has serious consequences. Of course, the easiest thing would be to allow the residents to hunt and oblige them to pay tribute. Woojin stood up and said that the gate would not open. The tiger was shocked and said that then there would be less energy, and they risk being conquered by other dimensions. The hero replied that this must be avoided because the world beyond the gates is his home. The tiger asked Woojin for forgiveness. The hero told the tiger that they should decide for themselves whether to stay or go, but after they have rested. Once someone obtains a measurement, it is protected for 30 days. At the same time, as he said, they will only become prey for those who are hunting for fresh territories. Before this happens, however, it is necessary to find a way to increase not only military power, but also dimensional energy. 20 days have passed in the spatial dimension, 5 in the real world. In preparation for the seizure of other lands, the Ardal spatial dimension quickly built its base system. At the same time, the Ardal Guild was busy moving its headquarters closer to Seoul Station. Min Chang asked the boss if he forgot that he had to attend the parliament meeting at 2 o'clock today. Woojin replied that he remembered and asked Murdy if she had brought from the States what he asked for. Murdy said that everything was here and handed the documents to Woojin. When Min Chan asked what kind of documents these were, the hero replied that this was a list of individuals to be eliminated. Min Chan at first didn't understand what Woojin was talking about, but when he realized, he was simply shocked and panicked. Min Chang asked to look at the documents. He asked if it was because of this that Min Chang agreed to go to the parliament meeting. Woojin replied that naturally it would be more convenient to get rid of them at once, when they are all in one place. Who knew that there would be so many people behind the assassination attempt on Wu Jin? He decided that he would cut off everyone's heads. Wu Jin asked to contact the parliament and say that he was coming. Events continue in the South Korean parliament building. The deputies greeted each other and took their seats. MP Park Seo-guk told another Choi Tae-oh that Wu Jin finally decided to show up because he had no choice. They said that he was a youth, and if the state demands, he must comply without further ado. In their opinion, Wu Jin is simply mocking the sacred duty of protecting the country. They also did not understand why the hero did not like their conditions and why they turned their nose up. Seo-guk said that if Wu Jin wants to continue living in Korea, he will agree and won't go anywhere, and this whole pathetic show is just to increase his worth. Tae-oh said that in this case, he will certainly bring Wu Jin to light in the morning. Wu Jin was in the car with Seung-hoon. The guy asked if Wu Jin would definitely not kill anyone. The hero replied that if Seung-hoon asks again, he will destroy everything there. The vice president tried to reason with Wu Jin as best he could, so maybe the worst scenario could be avoided. Wu Jin suddenly told Seung-hoon to go somewhere else. The demonstrations are still going on and people are furious. President Kim Byung-man was in a panic because an incompetent government could not protect its citizens. The only joy is that Kang Woo-jin is positively considering the possibility of concluding an agreement. The hearing should also proceed without incident. A man abruptly entered the president's office. The president said that it was already time and we must hurry to the parliament meeting. But suddenly that man said in a panic that this was not the case, and Kang Woo-jin arrived at the Blue House. The president was at a loss as to why he was here and not at the meeting. An hour passed after Kang Woo-jin's meeting with the president. The deputies were angry because the hero himself said that he would come, but in the end he was late. Everything must have its own measure. This is incredible audacity. The two deputies began discussing whether Wu Jin might have escaped. Another replied that he was not sure, because for the hero, government requests have always been an empty phrase. Seo-guk was angry with Wu Jin in his thoughts, saying that since he received worldwide recognition, now he acts as if he is above the parliament. He thought that he should have been killed back then, in the Middle East, before things took such a turn. And suddenly the long-awaited guest, Wu Jin, comes in. He was glad that everyone was here. The deputies began to shout at him, saying that Parliament was just a joke for him and asked him to answer questions and not ignore him. Wu Jin sat down and asked the prosecutor to give him verified materials. He looked at the photographs and decided who he would kill. There are a lot of rabble here, but Ugin cannot kill them all. However, the number is decent, almost half. Wu Jin stood up abruptly and prepared to leave. Seung-hoon was shocked. Wu Jin said that he had already gone through the faces and that was enough for him. One of the deputies began shouting to ask the hero where he was going and how he dared to disregard Parliament. He demanded to immediately return and sit down. A meeting. Wu Jin said that the deputies seemed to be planning here to convince him to found a protective guild for their stupid government. Wu Jin took the microphone and said that he was not going to do this, so he didn't care about their meeting. But before leaving, he wanted to warn deputies about one thing. He said that those who tried to arrange his murder by organizing a terrorist attack, those who deliberately caused a dungeon to break out, just so as not to lose their profit, and those who will be useless in the coming war, very soon they will all pay for what they have done. He added that he had already sent out information related to this to the press, so that the reason why they should die would be known by watching the news. The deputies began to ask what kind of bullshit this was, and said that this was already crossing all boundaries. Wu Jin started to leave, but one of the deputies ran up to him in a frenzy, asking where he was going and demanding to sit down. Suddenly, Wu Jin uses his shadow grab in front of everyone. A man from the audience began to talk about what Wu Jin allows himself in the sacred building of Parliament. Ugin replied that it would be better if they spent this time praying, asking, "God, if only it wasn't me." Wu Jin turned around and left, and after him they shouted that, how dare he? All his information was fake. Wu Jin should be driven out of the country immediately, and so on. Wu Jin told the prosecutor and Seung-hoon that they held back well. The prosecutor thought what a pity. He thought that Wu Jin would do something bigger. By order of a superior, they conveyed information to Kang Woo-jin about the dungeon breaks organized with the sympathy of the Diet members. The prosecutor could not believe that the hero just retreated. I managed to declare war on them, so now they will immediately get rid of the evidence, and in the end everything will repeat itself, as if in a reprise. Wu Jin decided to start. He called his henchmen and told them to kill all those whose faces he had just remembered as they came out. Seung-hoon asked the boss if he didn't promise that he wouldn't shed blood in the parliament building. Wu Jin replied that he came out from there. The hero thought that it would be boring to wait for everyone to leave, and that he could speed up the process a little. He called for fire, and alarm began in Parliament. Everyone started running towards the exit. Teo was running ahead of everyone, but suddenly he saw a standing crowd. He didn't understand why everyone stood up. He pushed them all aside and was glad that they had time and he was saved. But then a certain monster had already dealt with some of the deputies, and he discovered his next target. Teo didn't understand what it was and started pushing everyone away to escape, but the monster caught him and lifted him into the air. Teo started to struggle. Wu Jin entered the room and said to get rid of Choi Tai-o. The man did not understand why, to which Wu Jin replied that he would find out on the news. Teo asked about how the hero offers him to watch if he already dies. Wu Jin replied with a grin that it was unfortunate. Teo began to say that since Wu Jin has power, he imagines himself to be a god, and he should at least know the reason. The man insulted Wu Jin. And the reason is his connection with Lee Sang-ho. Teo deliberately caused a dungeon breach and profited handsomely from it, illegally acquiring billions, and he also had a hand in the assassination attempt on Wu Jin. Teo began to say that he had nothing to do with this person, and that he was not guilty. He asked Wu Jin if it was possible to kill an innocent person without any evidence. The man remembered the law and began to demand a trial, but Wu Jin replied that now he is the law. Teo started saying that the hero is a crazy bastard and that they are in a republic country where Wu Jin won't get away with anything so easily. Suddenly the henchman squeezed Teo's neck for disrespecting the king. Wu Jin said to take on the next one. He told everyone that if they didn't want to be warmed alive there, then they better hurry up and get out. The prosecutor thought that this was complete madness, and did Wu Jin imagine himself to be a revolutionary, that he would get rid of the rotten regime. At this rate, Wu Jin will soon be remembered as the most brutal killer in history. The president was thinking about a warning and a proposal. When Wu Jin came to Golkoi at home, he was asked why he was here and not in parliament. Wu Jin threw a folder with documents and said that before he takes revenge on them, he decided to warn them and at the same time offer something. The president asked the aide about his opinion. The news said that Wu Jin attacked the parliament. The president asked the aide about Wu Jin's proposal. He replied that this is not something that someone like him judges. The Minister of Defense called the president. He said that Kang Wu Jin said that he would attack if he did not end the siege within 5 minutes. He asked the president to allow them to engage in battle, because they must strike ahead of the curve. The president thought that even so, they were unlikely to be able to get Kang Wu Jin, the one who suppressed the firepower of the Middle East terrorists. The president was informed that 57 people were injured, including MP Park Seo-guk. Wu Jin kept his word. The president said to stop the siege. The minister resisted, saying that his actions were a rebellion against the rules. The president once again clearly said to stop the siege. He told his secretary to immediately prepare an official press conference. Ha Min said that he couldn't believe that the boss actually decided to do this. Min Chan was in despair. They needed to think about their next steps. Now this isn't just another one of Wu Jin's pranks. An uprising against the government and the mass murder of members of parliament. But this has never happened in the entire history of the country. Sun Gu said that they were bad people anyway, and besides, they were supported by a large part of the citizens. Wouldn't they be fine? Min Chan said no, they won't. Murdy said that the immortal was already a king, and he was not one of those who would obey the greedy rulers of such a small country. Min Chang hoped that the saint would understand the situation. Ming Wang began to drink a sedative when he suddenly heard that, at an organized press conference, the president announced the approval of the sovereignty of the Ardal Guild, the recognition of the organization as a separate country. And also, at the same time, the president expressed his gratitude to the guild leader Kang Wu Jin. After the reorganization of parliament, a popular vote will be held, the main agenda of which will be the recognition of Farad as an independent state. Suddenly, Wu Jin came into the office and asked what was wrong with everyone's faces. Min Chang said that he asked him to do so and asked how he could organize a massacre of such a scale. Wu Jin said that he did not kill anyone in the parliament building. Wu Jin said that the government kept bothering him lately, so he's going to create a separate country. Then they won't interfere with him, and they will be more comfortable working. But Min Chang asked what Wu Jin said to the president. The hero replied that he simply made him one offer. He told him that he was going to get rid of all the rotten types and found his own country, and asked the president for assistance. He told him that if they do not interfere, then for their part, they will, so be it, enter into an alliance with the government. And apparently the president was satisfied with this. Min Chang said that although everything was resolved well, this time the situation was really dangerous. He understands Wu Jin's desire for revenge, but Wu Jin said that it's not just about the attempt on his life. For the benefit of just a few people at the top, countless people suffered. They got off lightly. The murder of 57 politicians is hardly a worthy price to pay for the repose of the souls of the victims. Min Chan was speechless. Who would have thought that there was such a deep meaning behind the boss's impulsive action? Wu Jin said that, in any case, from today Min Chan is the prime minister. Since they need to establish their own state, Min Chan will have to take over the responsibility and lead everything instead of Wu Jin. Min Chan thought that he was certainly ambitious, but not that much. Sun Gu was made the supreme general and Xiang Hun the minister of foreign affairs. Their whole country is doomed to failure. We find ourselves in the spatial dimension of the swamp of Kormod. A certain monster is exploring the dimension of Ardal and Ugin. The monster says that it seems that Ujin is the first owner of the dimension to arrive from Earth. One might say that a newcomer could not be greener. And after 5 hours, Ardal's protective period will expire. The monster will not allow others to deprive him of such a chance. He sarcastically said that he would have plenty of fun. Meanwhile, Wu Jin showed Murdy his dimension. He asked her how she liked his third Ardal. As expected from an immortal, he arranged everything here so quickly. However, Murdy asked to be forgiven for her insolence, but she said that Wu Jin needed to strengthen the dimension's defenses. Ugin replied that he had knights and an army of skeletons, which would be enough. Murdy replied that, of course, no one compares to the Death Army in combat power, but still, the problem is that the battle for territory is completely different. As soon as the protective period expires, they will fall on them one after another, but Ugin will not be able to use the army of death for defense. Wu Jin didn't understand what this meant. Murdy said it was like playing chess. The owner of the dimension cannot independently participate in the battle, but only competes with the enemy, using exclusively the resources of the dimension. Wu Jin said that he wouldn't understand why they couldn't fight on their own. Murdy suggested holding a training battle. They came to Ugin's palace. They started doing everything. A notification came that the instructions for the battle for territory had been launched, and Wu Jin was told to choose the energy to bet. The selection of the enemy has begun. The enemy was Count Written. Wu Jin didn't understand what was happening. Humanoid tigers appeared on the battlefield. They told the ruler to give the order. The base, consisting of structures and workers located in them, as well as indicators of resources and population, is similar to a tactical simulation. In this case, Wu Jin decided to collect blood plants first. He started looking at what he could build now, but it seemed like there was only what was already on the property. To prepare for the battle, you will need to better arrange everything in reality. The first thing Ugin decided to do was establish a training camp for orcs and additionally create more workers and orc warriors. Wu Jin received a notification that he had reached the maximum population and needed to build a hut. Wu Jin had already forgotten how annoying this all is. Suddenly, enemy forces appeared on the battlefield, the knightly detachment of Count Written. Wu Jin couldn't understand when they managed to break through here. Wu Jin received a notification that he had lost the battle for territory. He was angry and said that he should have entrusted this to others. Murdy asked Wu Jin's opinion. He replied that he couldn't fight on his own, which made him feel like he was tied hand and foot. He asked if all the rulers suffer from this crap, and who would have thought that invading other dimensions and collecting bloodstones would turn out to be some kind of stupid game of toy soldiers. Murdy replied that dimensional battles are important to them. The stakes are low, but in return you can gradually increase your rank without putting yourself in danger. Wu Jin asked what kind of fight it was, because they say you can get revenge for it. Battles for territory are battles that take place between dimensions. However, the duel is a competition between the rulers of dimensions in the struggle for primacy. Wu Jin decided that then they would start with him right away. Merid said that the fight is possible only if the opponent gives his consent. With the exception of situations where the duel is demanded by the losing side in the battle for territory, then it can be carried out forcibly. Wu Jin said that he liked it, and even if they lose the battle for the territory, it will be enough to win it back. Business as usual. Bibi saw Wu Jin and ran up to him. She asked if the saint had already left. The two of them showed up with Wu Jin so suddenly, Bibi was already scared. Wu Jin gave Bibi some book and said that she would probably have to use it right away, so she should familiarize herself quickly. By the way, Bibi said that Jae-min is already better. He hunted and ate monsters today. Wu Jin decided to visit him. He asked how the guy was feeling and whether he was getting used to it little by little. Jae-min replied that everything was going slowly. Wu Jin asked Jae-min how about meeting his sister. The guy said that she wouldn't be able to come here and that crowded places were still a problem for him. Wu Jin replied that yes, it will be difficult for Ji-won to get here, since she is not awakened, so she is not even able to go through the portal. Jae-min said that sooner or later, he would have to go out, but for now he asked him to tell her to wait a little longer. Wu Jin told the guy to take his time. Out of the blue, Jae-min asked if Wu Jin was God. The hero did not understand this question at all. Ugin thought that in his eyes he could really seem like that, because the Lord of Dimension creates everything from spatial energy. Ugin replied that he was not God at all, but just a man. Jae-min also said that people have been quite worried lately. Wu Jin asked what he was talking about. Jae-min talks about the inhabitants of the dimension. Many are worried that since the ruler is a weak, unable to collect taxes from the people, will their territory be taken away from him at this rate? Wu Jin replied that soon everyone will know who is really a weakling and who is not, and told Jae-min not to worry about such trifles. He just needs to focus on getting used to his form. Ugin received a request to fight for the territory from Kormod. The hero can refuse a maximum of 3 times, after which battles will be forced. In case of victory, his protective period will be extended by 4 days, and in case of loss, by 12. Wu Jin was waiting for this. He told Bibi that it didn't matter whether she won or not. The main thing was to give them a hard time. Bibi was confident of victory and asked if she won to dispose of half the energy, as Ujin promised. Ujin thought that if they win, it's good. If they lose, it's not a big deal, because they will immediately take revenge through a duel. Kormod couldn't believe that Ugin immediately agreed and called him a fool. He is ready to take away everything that the hero has. Wu Jin started watching the game and thought that Bibi was doing well for his first time. The enemies are there. These are troll warriors. They decided to attack first. Bibi ordered the orc warriors to attack. And yet, in terms of control, Bibi lags behind her opponent. As a result, Bibi lost the battle for territory. 10,000 units of energy were lost. Kormod was awarded the privileges of the winner. The dimension storage was looted, and Ugin lost some items. Wu Jin was angry because it turns out that he not only gets their stake, but can also rob the storage facility. But fortunately, judging by the fact that they collected all sorts of rubbish, apparently things fall out randomly. Bibi began to cry and apologize to the owner. Wu Jin said that it's okay, and they will take revenge anyway, and return everything back. Ugin decided to answer them twice as much and challenged Kormod to a duel. Kormod saw that Ugin was using another strategist in his place. Apparently, he managed to spy on this somewhere. However, this is pointless, because Kormod won anyway. He saw a request for a duel from Wu Jin and it made him laugh. That's why he likes teapots. Since he lost, it would be better to start equipping the army while the protective period is in effect, and Ugin, look, he can't stand it. The arena is icy expanses. If he wins, Ugin will be given the appropriate privileges and will be able to take revenge. If he loses, he will die for a while and will be reborn after 12 days. Wu Jin understood why everyone avoided participating in fights as best they could. Having lost in the battle for dimensions, they receive a 12-day protective period, however, if they think about another fight. All the time that was spent on arranging the dimension will go to waste. And there is no guarantee that immediately after their revival, they will be able to cope with another attack. Kormod was called into the duel. He wanted to offer something to the newly declared ruler. He said that it was unpleasant when valuables were lost in battle and asked, how about each of them do the manly thing and bet on a dungeon? Kormod noticed Ugin's distress and said that with such an attitude he would never achieve a high rank. In fact, Ugin sees right through Kormod. Wu Jin agrees, but suggests not to waste time on trifles since they are raising the stakes. Then Kormod suggested adding 100k units of energy to the reward. Wu Jin replied that he agreed, but there were still doubts inside. They placed bets and decided to start their duel. Kormod fell for Ugin's bait. If the other dimension lords are also something similar, then he will rise to the top in no time. But this is unlikely because we still need to look for such suckers. Ugin and Kormod began to walk and attack each other. The hero repelled Kormod's attack. The monster noted that, for an earthling, Ugin has a fair amount of strength. But Kormod was once the leader of an entire race, so there is no way that any human can compare with him. He began to attack Ugin, but the hero hit him in the leg, causing Kormod to miss with his attack. Ugin summoned a wall of bone which destroyed Kormod's weapon. The monster tried to somehow stop Ugin, but the hero uses air split and finishes off the enemy. As a reward, he received the Nijin column dungeon. That's where we're moving. There, Ugin's skeletons met some kind of army. Residents said that the restarted dungeon had now turned into a lair of skeletons. They thought that getting rid of the skeletons would not be difficult, and they just had to break through the skull. The leader of the Rati race, Retik, thought that they only had to succeed in this campaign, and then their race would be able to survive. They must win at any cost to save their planet and species. Retik told the others that they did not know who could attack and from where, so they needed to remain vigilant. Suddenly, the army saw wyverns flying in the sky. They started attacking them with lightning. Surprisingly for them, Raksha's magic was reflected. Retik thought that their rider was also a magician. And it was Ugin, and he told them that welcome to Ardal. Ratik began to ask the hero who he was and where he came from. Wujin stood up and proudly declared that he was the boss here. Ugin told the army that they looked quite strong, and he was becoming more and more interested in what planet Jakku was like. Ratik replied that they wouldn't tell so easily. But Ugin wasn't going to start a conversation. He began to use his necromancer magic. The rats began to retreat, but Ugin ordered all his knights to bring him at least one of them. Ugin's monsters began to catch up with the army. Ratik was horrified and thought that this was madness, because in such numbers they had no chance to resist dozens of death knights. Ratik realized that he had to try to save at least his remaining comrades. He said that he would delay them, and ordered the others to use the Stone of Return to escape. Ratik used the imprisonment skill, thereby knocking down the death knights. He was pleased with the result, but he put all his magic into this blow. With this, he will be able to delay them at least for a while. Wujin said that Ratik exceeded his expectations, and said that he takes it. Rati did not understand what the hero was talking about. Assad approached Ratik. He was shocked that they could move even after his attack under captivity. Ugin congratulated Ratik, because now he will become his 54th Death Knight. He imprisoned his soul in a sealing stone, and the rest seemed to have escaped through the portal. Ugin said that they had a pretty good guard here, so that for a while no one would think of coming here. A notification came that the ruler of the dimension Dread had come to the hero. Wujin completely forgot about him. 2 days ago, after Ugin acquired the Nazian Pillar dimension, Ardal was visited for some time by guests, the rulers of other lands on the planet Jakku. Since the process of restarting the local dungeons was almost completed, the lords of the dimensions, who owned the nearby dungeons, had the opportunity to visit Ardal in order to establish friendly relations. Wujin asked, "What again?" This is Dread's 3rd visit to Ardal. He asked Wujin why he thought neighbors often visited each other. Dread replied that, of course, to get closer. Wujin told him that if he sneaks around again, he will go to his dungeon and blow him to hell. Dread asked not to be angry, and said that he even prepared a gift. It turns out that there are such things. If you install a petition on the territory of the dimension, the artifact will accelerate the growth of bloodstones. Dread said that every time he gives something, it was time to give back somehow. Wujin reluctantly offered to eat together. Dread was very happy. He started eating at the table. It was disgusting to watch. Wujin told Dread that since he was full, he could move on to the real reason for his visit. Dread wanted to ask a question first. He asked Ugin if he knew what forces existed on the planet Jakku. The hero replied that he was aware. The indigenous inhabitants are the Rati race, as well as associations consisting of the Lords of Dimensions, the Black Hat Alliance, the Red Hammer Alliance, and the Yellow Lizard Alliance. Dread was surprised how Ugin knew everything. The hero simply found himself a useful informant, that ration whom he turned into a Death Knight. Dread said that it seems that some other alliance managed to pay a visit to Wujin before him. Then he decided to speak directly. He serves the Rajakai, the strongest of all associations. Dread asked if Wujin would like to join them. Ugin replied that he did not need this, and that he was able to defend his dungeon alone. Dread said that Ugin was still an inexperienced ruler. Of course, as long as there is only one dungeon, you can cope on your own. But what if there are several of them? How will Ugin protect his dimension during a simultaneous attack from 2 fronts? The hero didn't think about it. Wujin asked Dread what happens in such a case. Dread replied that if someone suddenly entered both of his dungeons, the territory would be divided into 2 separate dimensions. The same thing will happen with the military forces, but the ruler himself will be able to choose only one side for protection. The second side will have to be entrusted to another ruler. As the number of dungeons owned by the hero increases, it will become increasingly difficult to defend the dimension. Dread told Wujin to think about it carefully. Wujin told Bibi to refuse all visitors to the dimension in the future. There are approximately 30 days left before the Nazian Pillar dungeon on the planet Jakku restarts. If the intruders decide to advance along an individual route, then the column will obviously immediately become their target as soon as the barrier opens. Wujin needs to hurry up and level up. Immediately after meeting Dread, Ugin returned to Earth. The primary goal is to raise the level, and also for gaining the ability to summon more powerful spirits. To do this, the guild decided to start helping other countries in clearing dungeons of the highest difficulty. Wujin and Baek Jongdo met at the airport. They were happy to see each other, and Wujin said that he owed Baek for his help. Baek Jongdo asked if the fiery Sun Gu was next to Wujin. The hero asked what this childish nickname was. It turns out that Sun Gu is now a very popular blogger. Beck took Sun Gu to take a selfie, and Wu Jin asked Seung-hoon where their next stop would be. They will start from the nearest dungeon out of the 12 for which they requested help. It's in Japan. The heroes flew to Osaka, Japan. Wu Jin told Seung-hoon that they were supposed to be met and that he should contact them. Seung-hoon replied that everything was correct, but he had problems with Japanese. Wu Jin said irritably that Seung-hoon also decided to become the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Wu Jin poured something into Seung-hoon's mouth. People around began to discuss what Wu Jin was doing here, and it seemed to be because of the Nanba dungeon. The Japanese surrendered after failing to clear the area for the 3rd time. Wu Jin told Seung-hoon that if the effect of the potion appeared, then he should contact them. Takuchi, vice president of the Japanese Sensei Guild, thanked the heroes for such a long journey. He said that before they entered the dungeon, he would like to briefly introduce them to the situation. Wu Jin said that they had a lot to do and asked them to skip the briefing. They will go together with Sun Gu and clear the dungeon as quickly as possible to move on to the next one. Takuchi thought that Wu Jin had a lot of confidence, but no matter how high his skills were, they alone would not be enough to carry out the capture. For this, they usually assemble a diverse team. What is Ugin up to? Wu Jin told Takuchi that he shouldn't worry and just wait for them to return. As promised, they will do everything in the best possible way. Then Takuchi asked to be allowed to accompany the hero, because he needed to document the clearing strategy for further extraction of bloodstones. He wanted to see everything with his own eyes. Ugin thought that if they took him, he would only get in the way. However, the more bloodstones the Sensei Guild gets, the better, since they share the spoils 7-3. Wu Jin said that it's a deal, but Takuchi will defend himself. Since this was the case, Wu Jin invited Beck to join. Beck Jongdo was happy because Kong Wu Jin never cooperates with other guilds. Did he really have a chance to clear the dungeon with him? Beck can't wait to see Wu Jin in action. The heroes arrived at Nanba Station. There are 4 of them. They are ready to begin. Takuchi can't believe that they were going to take over the dungeon with such a lineup, although even the best team in Japan couldn't cope with it. In addition, it is no longer possible to use the Stone of Return. If they fail this time, they will definitely be finished. Takuchi said to be careful, because they will be the first to attack. He did not have time to finish, as he saw that all the monsters were already dead. Beck gave him a dagger. They were assigned to collect stones. Beck didn't even have time to blink an eye. As soon as they entered the dungeon, Sun Gu and Wu Jin together completely dealt with the humanoid wolves that attacked them. He expected nothing less from Wu Jin. But who knew that Hong Sun Gu also had abilities that clearly surpassed A rank? Takuchi couldn't understand what was happening. He didn't even think that he would be accused of collecting stones. Suddenly Wu Jin said that they could already go. It can't be that they've already finished. They dealt with the main monsters in just 5 minutes. Wu Jin said they were moving on to the next stage and entered the portal. This time they came across a volcano. To get to the homecoming stone, you will have to cross a magma flow. Sun Gu asked if they would travel by air. Takuchi replied that it was impossible, since as soon as they left the island, explosions would immediately follow. He said there was another way. They must first deal with the magma fish that live here. Then the island will move, connecting with the next one. That way they can get out of here. Wu Jin thought and called Rocky. The heroes sat on the magic wolves, and Ugin said that Rocky would clear the path, and they would be right behind him. Takuchi started shouting that they didn't hear him. If they leave the island, an explosion will immediately begin. Wu Jin said that these are disruptive mosquitoes. They're hard to spot with the naked eye, but they fly over there, barely noticeable. Wu Jin said that these mosquitoes live near volcanoes, and it is due to contact with them that explosions occur. At least they're lucky they don't fly close to the magma. Therefore, Ugin said that if they stay close to the golem, they will not be in danger. The heroes crossed to the other side with Rocky's help. Takuchi asked Ujin where he got this knowledge. The hero replied that he studied with a master. No matter how capable he is, it is impossible to know all the monsters. Sun Gu asked if Wu Jin was talking about his time on Alphen and whether he learned from that man there. Ugin replied that he mastered magic on his own and learned much more important things from that man: madness and mercilessness, submission through suppression by fear. That's what Wu Jin is about. Sun Gu asked if the mentor was still on Alphen, to which Wu Jin replied that he had died. Sun Gu began to express his condolences, but Wu Jin replied that his mentor was originally dead. Sun Gu is shocked. Wu Jin said that they will meet him soon. He is also a fire mage, so Sun Gu can learn a lot from him. The guy was happy that he would learn from the master teaching Wu Jin. The hero replied that the main thing is that Sun Gu does not die. The guy didn't understand what Wu Jin was talking about. Harris's Memories is an artifact that allows you to record video and audio inside dungeons. The Death Knights deftly dealt with the local monsters, and Ujin delivers the decisive blow, a cut in two. This completes the clearing of the Osaka dungeon. Gato, the head of the Sensei Guild, said that this was absurd. How did Ujin so easily conquer a dungeon that their best team had failed 3 times? The entire guild watched the recording. Even after seeing it with his own eyes, the head still can't believe it. The head asked where Kang Woo-jin is now. He was told that he had dealt with the Tokyo dungeon, which was close to a breakthrough, and was now moving towards China. Gato was simply shocked. He could only laugh nervously. Having someone as awakened as Woo-jin is incredible. He even envies Korea for something for the first time. Takuchi asked if Woo-jin had stopped being a Korean citizen. Gato said the government has not yet acknowledged Ardal's existence. Takuchi asked about who should recognize whom. Weak strong? After Ujin cleared the dungeons of Osaka and Tokyo, he successfully dealt with 3 more in China. It took him only 24 hours to conquer a total of 5 dungeons. Woo-jin's group immediately headed to the next point. Beck asked Woo-jin what he was going to do with that proposal. He didn't understand what he was talking about. And Beck spoke about the change of citizenship proposed by Japan and China. After Japan and China independently became convinced of Ujin's brilliant abilities, each of the countries wanted, ahead of the other, to be the first to contact the Ardal Guild in order to lure Khan Ujin to themselves. They pledged to provide him with land and also to recognize Ardal as an independent state, which was an exceptional proposal that would have previously been unimaginable. Woo-jin replied that he was not going to agree. Bi said that he expected this from Oni-chan Kang. He said that there is still patriotism in Woo-jin. The hero replied that it had nothing to do with it. The Seoul station is located in Korea, so there is no need for him to migrate. Beck asked what was wrong with Exit 1. Woo-jin said it's all about the spatial dimension. Everyone was at a loss. Woo-jin told everything during the flight. Beck could not even imagine that such a secret was hidden in the dungeons. Ugin said that there was a possibility, that there was a Dimension Lord in one of the high-class dungeons close to the breach, and they needed to get rid of him before a connection was established between his dungeon and Earth. Sungu asked that, in that case, is there a way to make all the dungeons disappear at once? Because then you won't have to worry about connecting. The dungeons are under a strong protective barrier, so this is not an option. Well, maybe if they ever find out the whole truth about the dungeons, they'll find a way to pull this off. The heroes flew to New Delhi, the capital of India. They were met by local awakened ones. They entered the coast of Dread. It seems that this time the dungeon is connected to the spatial dimension. However, if it's Dread... Blanca, a rank A awakened buffer from the Vishnu Guild, said that he specializes in support and will now bless Ugin. Ugin said that they don't need any blessing, it will only weaken their strength. He told Blanc to wait here. He started shouting that he was also awakened and could be useful. Beck replied that since they told him to wait, then we just have to wait. Blanca said that they entered the dungeon as teams and they couldn't refuse help like that. He understands that they probably don't want to reveal the secrets of combat to him, an outsider. But he asked why they were doing this to Black. He replied that they didn't need to go, which means why if they didn't help much. Suddenly a portal appeared. Blanca was shocked by the speed. Beck said that even after the story with Japan and China, the reaction is still the same. Beck said to go, and as soon as they pass through the portal, start taking notes. They entered the dungeon and it turned out to be the ocean shore. Sungu was very excited. Blanca tried to stop the guy because it was very dangerous. The crab wanted to jump at him sharply, but Sungu managed to intercept it. The guy offered to cook it, since they had not eaten for a long time. Blanca said to quickly leave here as they move in packs. A lot of crabs gathered around Sungu, but he knocked them all down. Woo-jin said that the fried crabs were also good and offered to eat. The heroes decided to have a glass of beer and invited Blanca to the table too. But Blanca was wary, because this was a dungeon, and the meat could be poisonous. However, everyone had already tried the crabs, and everyone liked it. Blanca was shocked that they could be so careless while in the dungeon. He told them that it was, in fact, a 6-star rating. Blanca shouted that now was not the time for this, and that a plan must be made. Even though they have dealt with the crabs, to achieve the final goal, they will have to dive underwater, and there, obviously, fire magic does not work. It will be very difficult to capture the Stone of Return. For this, you need to fight your way through hundreds, no, thousands of jellyfish. In addition, there is no antidote for their paralyzing poison. Ujin said that if there are hundreds, thousands of them, then this will be just right. He suggested we start fishing. Ugin entered the water, but huge sea monsters suddenly began to attack him. Ugin summoned skeleton mages and used the Ring of Poison skill. He kept repeating it again. Ugin killed all the monsters in the water. That's what he meant by fishing. Bake said that for Ujin, Hunting is easier than steamed turnips. The hero replied that this is only if we are talking about small fry. To begin with, he ordered the skeletons to continue spreading the poison so that he would soon become unbearable and have to go to land. Bake didn't understand who Wu Jin was talking about. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the water. It was Dread who appeared, who was furious at what Ujin was allowing himself to do. He said he could regard this as a declaration of war. Ugin replied that he was the first to start, and no one asked him to join his dungeon to Earth. What an impudent fellow. Dread said that Ugin behaves as if all the dungeons of the Earth are his property. He can't believe that Ujin came to conquer the dungeon as a traveler. Is he really not afraid of anything? It would be nice if this was a battle for a dimension or a duel where he could use the power of his possessions, but here the situation turned out to be in Dread's favor. He said that Ugin will pay for invading his dungeon, and he will show the hero his true strength. But Ugin was confident as always and blew up the corpses, thereby killing Dread. The level has been increased and Ugin is now level 76. Wujin said that it's a pity that there wasn't really anything left of it, because octopus fried in creamy sauce is so delicious. Suddenly, Blanca began to cough up blood sharply. He asked the hero why they didn't tell him about the plan in advance, if there was one. Due to the fact that I had to suddenly draw a large amount of mana, the recoil was serious. Ugin said that Blanca could have kept his head down, because in any case they were under the protection of the ghostly armor. Blanca is fine now, he healed himself. Wu Jin saw that he not only had A-rank enhancement skills but also self-healing. This might come in handy. Suddenly, Wu Jin asked Blanca how much he was getting. He didn't understand what the question was about. Ugin invited him to move to Ardal. He promises him conditions many times better than those of the Vishna Guild. Blanca did not understand why Wu Jin decided to recruit him so abruptly. He replied to the hero that he was grateful for the offer, but he had a close connection with their head, and the Vishna Guild was the place to which he should devote himself. Look how faithful he is, but Wu Jin has a lot of aces up his sleeve. Kasim, the head of the Vishna Guild, thanked Ujin because he easily coped with the dungeon, about which the others had already given up. Wu Jin suggested finishing the formalities, as he had something to offer him. Ugin asked to give Blanca to their guild. Blanca and Kasim were dumbfounded. Kasim said that Blanca is, in fact, his adopted brother. Wu Jin asked what amount would suit him. Kasim replied that he could not sell his brother for money. Ugin said that he would completely transfer the rights to manage this dungeon to them, and if another similar one appeared in the future, he would clear it and donate it to their guild. Kasim thought about this. He told Blanca that he had been thinking about it for a long time, but it was still quite selfish to hold him back. As a loving brother, it is his responsibility to let his little brother go so that he can grow and take on new heights. Blanca was left speechless, and Ugin welcomed him to Ardal. He was sold like a pig for slaughter. Sungu encouraged him by saying that he also came here for money and nothing. Blanca was shocked and asked someone to wake him up. All the news wrote about the continuous clearing of dungeons close to a breakthrough, about Ugin's trip around the world to save the Earth. It took Kang Wu Jin only 3 days to conquer dungeons scattered throughout the world, which no one could cope with before him. Following Japan and France, the United States also entered into diplomatic relations with Ardal. Ardal formed an alliance with America. President Kim Byung-man said that signing a contract with them no longer makes any sense. Now they cannot influence the situation in any way. The president asked about the people's opinion. The prime minister replied that this was something they took for granted. The president thought that they could not prevent it any longer. In this case, it is necessary to at least become Ardal's strongest allies. Wu Jin's group returned as heroes. Everyone met them and they were under the gun of cameras. Sun Gu said that he is now a celebrity. Seong Hoon said that with the exception of the head, he can be said to be the most popular among all the awakened ones. Sun Gu said that these clothes suit Secretary Wu. Seong Hoon replied that he was no longer the chief secretary, but the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He thinks that this is their reward for devoting all of themselves to the faithful service of Wu Jin. After 8 years as a phone salesman, Wu Sung-hoon has finally achieved success. Reporter Lee Si-yeon asked Seong-hoon to answer the question about where Mr. Wu Jin is, because he is not among the arrivals. Seong-hong said that Wu Jin is not a lord at all, but the king of the Ardal state. What kind of familiarity is this? The girl repeated her question and Seong-hoon replied that Wu Jin was in the dungeon. She thought he was in the USA, but no. Seong-hoon acted mysteriously, hinting that Wu Jin might already have returned to Seoul Station. Ugin was in his own dimension. The protective period had just ended, and they all went wild. He saw a human girl among them. She seems to be someone who relies more on her own strength than winning battles across dimensions. Wu Jin decided to choose her today. He told Bibi to try harder. She promised not to let me down this time. The battle with Leah had barely begun before it was already won. Bibi began to demand her 10,000 units of energy. Wu Jin asked how she pulled it off. Wu Jin asked Bibi if she had learned from someone. She didn't want to say, but the hero guessed that she learned from Ye Min. Not surprising, since the battle for dimensions is similar to a tactical game. Even though Jae Min was a diligent student, it's not just that Korean high school students are famous for their skills. Wu Jin said that now that he thinks about it, he can now trust Jae Min to do this. Mistress Leah requested a duel. It will be launched forcibly. Ujin found himself in some kind of savannah. Leah said she couldn't believe she lost to a new lord and a human one at that. Wu Jin asked if she was from Earth. Leah replied that this place was quite popular in their day. She also said that Wu Jin could introduce himself. Wu Jin asked what this chatter was all about. Leah replied that this meant that they would see each other almost every day, and it would be nice to become friends. Wu Jin replied that there was no point in that, because they were fighting to the death here, actually. Leah said that Wu Jin is still quite green. She wanted to start the fight. Leah said that Wu Jin was not only handsome but also naive, and kindly gave her time to reload the gun. She said that the game was over and Wu Jin was surrounded by some black smoke. So it was not an ordinary gun, but an artifact with a special skill embedded in it. Apparently, that's why she was stalling for time before the battle. Leah said that while the hero is still quite good in battles, in fights everything is quite sad, and advised him to give up quickly. Wu Jin said that giving up is crazy. The cloud of death is not ordinary smoke, but a special field from which it is impossible to escape. Not even a ray of light penetrates here. Complete darkness reigns, and the poison contained in the cloud immobilizes the enemy. She started shooting at him, but Wu Jin quickly fought off all the bullets. Leah said he wasn't bad for fending off the shots despite his body being paralyzed. But will Ujin be able to withstand if she starts pouring in attacks from all four sides? Wu Jin was, of course, surprised by her audacity. But that was not the case. He summoned several thousand of his minions, including Death Knights and Skeletons. Ujin ordered Liu to be seized and brought to him. Death Knights and Skeletons were ready to bless their master with the death of the enemy. However, Leah dodged the blow and shot the skeleton in the head. She saw that the cloud of death had no effect at all. She cannot fight with each of them. There were too many summoned souls. She needs to direct all her power at the necromancer and get rid of him. But the Death Knight Ugin was already waiting for her. He made quick work of Leah. She was smitten and was brought to Ujina. The cloud of death passed and became lighter. Wu Jin said with a grin that this would not work on an army of immortals. Leah began to insult the hero and wanted to attack, but Ugin took and cut off her head. He told her to come back and get even. Wu Jin received a notification that he had won the duel. He was offered to plunder a storage facility or territory. He decided to see what was in the storage this time. Items drop out in random order. Wu Jin came across Skia's sandals. They belonged to one of the gods of the planet Alphen, the patron saint of travelers. Ugin said that he was lucky, and he might even have time to create a procession of trash even before going to Alphen. Thresh 5-piece set. Glory, protection, majesty, retribution, and marching. This is also the most fashionable uniform in existence. It was what Ugin used on Alphen. If he again takes possession of Thresh's set, which increases the magical power and overall power of the wearer to the maximum, then, we can say, he will actually return to the power that he possessed during his life on Alphen. One of the materials needed to make the procession is Skia sandals. It was impossible to get them while on Earth, so the hero had already given up on this matter. But who knew that they would come into his hands, just thanks to winning the battle for the dimension? It turns out that everything will go like clockwork. You just have to continue winning battles. You can use Bibi and Jae Min for this. Leah lost the fight. Resurrection will occur in 12 days. She has experienced death hundreds of times, but it still gives her goosebumps. She didn't understand how that bastard could be from Earth. She wanted to take revenge on him. Ugin walked through the center of the lands of the Ardal dimension. Everything here has grown considerably. Now there is something to see. Wu Jin noticed Jae Min. This is great because he was just looking for it. It turned out that a cafe appeared in the dimension. Wu Jin asked the saleswoman for the same thing he asked Jae Min. Jae Min tried to dissuade Wu Jin, but he didn't have time, and when Wu Jin took a sip, he began to spit it all out. It turns out it was blood. Wu Jin wanted to ask how Jae Min coped with the battle for the dimension. Apparently he had experience in games before this. Jae Min replied that not much, but since the last grade there was no time for games. Then, Wu Jin invited the guy to become responsible for the battles. Jae Min asked if Wu Jin could just hire a professional player to do this, since he is not so confident in his abilities. Wu Jin said that he couldn't trust someone else. Wu Jin replied that losing is not a big deal. Winning is not the main thing. What matters to him is that he can count on him enough to entrust such a thing. Wu Jin told the guy that the next battle was only in 4 days, so they could spend the whole day on Earth and meet Ji-Wan. Jae-min was happy. At the same time, one pitiful soul located beyond the border of death tried to wake up again. And this was Lee Sang-ho, who wanted another chance. His lord said he was pathetic. But he will. So be it. Give Sang-ho another chance, as he wished. Sang-ho began to say that the Lord could rely on him, and this time he would definitely achieve a breakthrough in the dungeon. But the Lord said that after Sun-ho went through death and resurrection, his attachment to Earth was lost. Now he's just his minion, so he can't grab the recall stone and cause a dungeon break. Sang-ho asked why he did it then. The Lord replied that there was other work to do, so he resurrected him. He gave something to Sang-ho and told him to take it to the planet Jakku. There, Sang-ho will need to find the dragon Rajakya and give him a message that if he destroys the Earth, he will grant him access to the planet Ephraim. After this, Sang-ho will go to Earth, divide the Earthlings among themselves, sow confusion among them, and also prepare everything for the Lord's visit. And the power contained in Yellow's ring should help him. Sang-ho listens and obeys. We move to the territory of Ardala, the place of residence of employees and their families. Ji-Wan arranged a meeting with her classmates this evening and said that Wu Jin will not come because he is so busy these days. She went to the shower, and there she began to think that 5 years had already passed since the last high school reunion, and it would be cool if Wu Jin went too. But nothing can be done. He's probably busier than anyone right now. And then, as a surprise, Jae-min came to his sister. Ji-Wan ran into his arms. She said that everything was fine and she would accept him as anyone, even if he was a vampire. And Wu Jin also came. He was delighted to witness the beautiful reunion between brother and sister. Ji-Wan was embarrassed by her appearance and quickly ran into the room. Wu Jin said that Jae-min and Ji-Wan have something to discuss, so he won't bother them and will go. He said that he didn't have time to idle and needed to return to the dungeon and continue leveling up. Jae-min didn't understand why he needed to level up, because he's already strong. You might not be able to tell by looking at him, but Wu Jin is quite conscientious when it comes to this sort of thing. Wu Jin arrived at Mokdong Station, Exit 4. He told his charges that he would spend the whole day inside, so they could go eat for now, and there was no need to hang around here all the time. Seung-hoon said that they will guard the entrance. The hero received a notification and selected one of the modes: duel, battle for a dimension, visit, penetration, or conquest. As Ugin thought, the Lord of the Dimension is located here. Judging by his experience, dungeons with a rank of up to 6 stars were usually run by ordinary masters, however. Those that had a higher level of energy almost all belonged to the Lords of Dimensions. And this time too, connections between dungeons and dimensional dimensions are happening everywhere, so it's only a matter of time before one of the overlords makes their way to Earth. Of course, the connection itself can be broken later by conquering the dungeon, but if the ruler of the dimension manages to reincarnate before this, then enormous damage will be caused to the Earth. Ugin will not be able to protect the entire planet at the same time. Yeah, somehow Wu Jin likes this less and less. He wondered where all the monsters were and whether the local ruler had decided not to pour energy here at all. Suddenly, a portal appeared in front of Ugin. Apparently, the bishop suggests not to bother with the little things but to immediately get down to business. 6 hours passed after Wu Jin entered the dungeon. His team was frozen. One of the guards asked Seung-hoon if there was a problem with them walking around here. He also asked if Ardal didn't become an independent state, because it was, after all, Korean territory. Seung-hoon replied that the agreement had not even been concluded yet, and besides, they were not some kind of North Korea. That's right. They are a separate country. But in the end, it turns out that by joining Ardal, a person not only acquires local citizenship, he also retains Korean citizenship. They also discussed why the boss was taking so long to come in. The man replied that, given the time it usually takes him to clean up, he was obviously late today. Since 6 hours have passed, then a whole day must have already passed inside the dungeon. Suddenly the man saw urgent news regarding the dungeons. They shocked the man. It said that multiple dungeon resets occurred simultaneously, and according to calculations, only 20 new points appeared. 11 in Seoul, 2 in Daegu, 7 in Busan. Based on the energy measurement results, it is estimated that 8 of these dungeons are rated 6 stars or higher. Seung-hoon could not understand why there were sudden dungeon resets and what was the reason. It turned out that this is not only the case in Korea. Seoul just added 3 more. Something serious might have happened. Could it be Wu Jin? There was the usual city bustle, and some guy was acting strange. That illusion, was it real? It doesn't matter whether it was God's grace or the devil's temptation. The man hoped that his daughter Hyoyeon Yi would be able to recover. He has no choice, and he must do it. He started to walk towards Hongdae Station, but the military stopped him and said it was dangerous. The man suddenly rushed, and the military could not restrain him. They didn't understand who he was. Sang-ho went to the appointed place. The setter is really already there. The local ruler, in the form of a spider, spoke to his minions. She said that they would have a lot of fun today. The ruler of the dimension is called Charlotte. She is from the planet Jakku, belongs to the Yellow Lizard Alliance. Left hand, faithful servant of the Golden Dragon Rajakuya. The 13th reunion of Mito High School was held. Everyone was happy to see each other because a lot of time had passed. The girls asked Ji-won if Wu Jin would be there. She replied that it seemed not. Classmates said that it was a pity. They had invited more people on purpose. They thought maybe Wu Jin would come after all. If Wu Jin met old friends and they reminisced about the past together, it would probably make him happy. The guests did not understand why it was so noisy outside. And suddenly a guy ran in complete horror, who told everyone to leave quickly, as there were monsters outside. The watching spiders killed the poor guy in front of everyone. Charlotte herself entered the room. Seeing the number of people, she was glad that she would have a great meal. Meanwhile, Jae-min was walking around the city. He thought that he had already gotten used to life in the spatial dimension, but apparently he still really liked being around people. It's a pity that he can only go out at night. He saw tanks heading somewhere on the road. Has something really happened? Jae-min saw the terrible news. In Seoul alone, 14 dungeons broke through, and this happens in all cities. Wait, Hongdae Station is among them. It seems that Ji-won mentioned that the alumni meeting will be held somewhere nearby. Bats were chasing people on the street. The city was plunged into panic. The military fired back and told everyone to quickly run away from here. Seeing so many bats, the military did not understand what was going on. The evacuation of civilians is not yet complete, and it will be difficult to attack indiscriminately. In addition, they do not have enough awakened ones due to the number of dungeons they have broken through. The situation is not pleasant. Another soldier told the colonel to look up, and there sat a huge yellow dragon with glowing eyes. At the same time, Wu Jin was in Mibichi's spatial domain. He saw someone wearing a robe and a hood and asked if he was Mibichi. The guy took off his hood and said that he didn't think that he and Wu Jin would meet again. This guy is the strongest knight on planet Alphen, Mibichi. Ugin knew him, but the hero did not understand what the Alphen warrior was doing here. Wu Jin asked if Mibichi had followed the saint. Mibichi asked if Murdy was still alive. Wu Jin didn't understand the phrase, still. Wu Jin replied that she was alive and helping him. Mibichi said that she had an unfortunate fate. He can't believe that she left the Alliance and joined the Immortal, all to save Alphen. Rumor has it that Mibichi betrayed the Alliance and joined Tranit. It seems that he wanted to become a hermit since he is not at one with the saint. This is then the only reason. Mibichi replied that Ugin does not understand a little, because Tranit is the one who makes no sense to resist. He is the new world order, the absolute law, which even God cannot interfere with. So, Mibichi said that betrayal is not the right word. Wu Jin replied that the guy moved his head. He will raise them to the ground, and that will be the end of it. Mibichi said that Wu Jin doesn't seem to be aware of the situation. According to Mibichi, Ugin already exists, subject to the laws of Tranit, and by his actions he will bring upon himself death and eternal oblivion. And Ujin, in turn, said that if he had been afraid of such a trifle, he would not have stepped onto the battlefield in the first place, and would have attacked Mibichi. Mibichi asked about when Ujin managed to master the sword, but the guy was calm and easily repelled Ugin's attack, throwing him back. Mibichi was about to attack Ugin further, but the Death Knight stood in the way. Mibichi said that Ujin is not shy about cheap tricks, because he alone is attacked by 30 people. Wu Jin asked if they agreed to fight with swords. Sun Gu learned about another breakthrough. He asked a colleague about what was happening around Ardal. The man replied that the manager, Choi Hai-seo, is busy with protection, but there is a critical lack of strength. Sun Gu was surprised by these words, because under her leadership there were so many A-rank monsters. Is it really that bad? The man said that because of the appearance of the dragon, the city plunged into chaos. They say that all the monsters that have appeared in Seoul are heading in that direction. Sun Gu was worried because Namsan could be considered right behind Ardal. Also, Ugin has not yet returned from the dungeon when he is needed so much. They said on the radio that the monsters seem to be acting under a certain force, a powerful boss. Due to the organization of their movement, the implementation of countermeasures is difficult. The firearm also had no effect. Seung-hoon was in a panic because the monsters were gathering in organized groups. Namsan, Mokdong, Hongdae, Gangnam, Seoul National University Station, Hwaseong Fortress. This is no longer a one-time attack, but a real war. Seung-hoon's assistant said that if they continued to stay here, they would be putting themselves in danger. Seung-hoon asked for some piece of paper. When Woojin came out of the dungeon, he was surprised because he did not meet anyone. He wanted to quickly return home and take a bath, but the hero noticed some kind of note. In it, Seung-hoon spoke about an emergency situation that broke through 14 dungeons. Yeah, what kind of vacation is there when there's work for 10 people? Seung-hoon is of course great. How will Woojin contact him if he didn't even leave him a phone number? Jae-min was just wandering around the city at night, jumping on the rooftops. Suddenly he heard Woojin turn to him and ask where he was. Jae-min didn't understand how this was possible. Woojin replied that he could communicate with him telepathically because he had appointed him as one of the servants of their spatial dimension. The hero asked how things were going. Jae-min said that there are riots all over Seoul. The worst is near Namsan in their base. He heard that Sun-gu and Hae-seo went there and are now fighting. Woojin asked about Jae-min himself and whether Ji-won went to the high school reunion. Jae-min replied that he was heading there because he couldn't contact her. Woojin immediately began to worry. He also headed to a hotel near the station. And at the hotel, Charlotte made cocoons out of all the people, floating them in the web. Ji-won was there too and couldn't breathe. Charlotte said that if all Earthlings are so weak, then it would not be difficult for her and Mr. Rajakui to capture the entire planet. She feels sorry that Mr. Iello was the first to set his sights on the land. Charlotte decided to start colonization. She opened one of the cocoons where the guy was. Ji-won was very scared because anyone could be next. Entering the hotel, Woojin and Jae-min saw that the entire building had turned into a spider's nest. The spiders didn't waste any time. They managed to settle down comfortably. Monsters of this type multiply quickly, and due to their large numbers, fighting them will be very tedious. Ugin told Retik to start frying spiders with the guys. The hero also told the goblin to find Ji-won. All his minions listened and obeyed. Looking at Ji-won, Charlotte said that she had not met such a pure soul for a long time. She decided that thanks to her, someone special could be born. She wanted Ji-won to be a vessel for her children. But Charlotte didn't have time to do anything when a huge explosion occurred at the entrance. It's Woojin who has arrived. He apologized for coming late. Jae-min began to unwind Ji-won. It seemed like everything was fine with her, but with her friends, their classmates gathered, rejoicing and anticipating that maybe Woojin would come too. But if he were here, they would most likely survive and return home. Charlotte could not believe that there were such warriors on Earth. She understood why the Lords of Dimensions still could not make a connection to the local dungeons. Ugin asked the spider's name. She said her name was Charlotte and belonged to the Yellow Lizard Alliance. It turns out that the title is the same as where the octopus came from. Charlotte said that Dredd was talking about Woojin. He also mentioned that the hero is an Earthling. Woojin said that he would remember her name, but today he shouldn't even expect an easy death. Charlotte was furious at his insolence and told her children to devour Woojin so that not even the bones remained. The hero told Jae-min to protect Ji-won, and the hero himself launched his attack with a hammer. Woojin deftly interrupted Charlotte's kids and her time had come. Woojin threw it straight into the wall. She looked just like a stuffed spider. Charlotte was close to death, but Woojin told her to hold on, because he said that if she just died, it would hardly help him let off steam. Meanwhile, Sun-gu was dealing with the monsters in the city, but there were a lot of them, and the monsters continued to rush at him. He was wondering what to do, because his reserves of magic were almost running out. He needs time to recover, but if he retreats, then all the families living in Ardal will suffer. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a monster attacked Sun-gu. The guy had practically no strength anymore, and Hae-seo could only hope. But suddenly there was a strong explosion. Sun-gu was shocked and panicked, and it turns out that Rocky and Bibi helped him. Murdy treated Sun-gu a little, but he hasn't fully recovered yet, so he can't overexert himself too much. Sun-gu thanked the saint and said that now, at least he can live. Bibi said that Woojin will be here soon too. Song Yeonwoo hoped that Woojin would sort things out. Murdy heard that it wouldn't be long before Lee's call. King of the Plague. It looks like I finally declared it. Murdy said that he held a high position even among the Immortals' soldiers. The Plague King is the name given to a lich named Janus. Over the past 200 years, he managed to kill 30 million people. Its very appearance can be said to foreshadow the plague, hence the nickname. But Woojin told Sun-gu to learn magic from the lich. He hoped he would be okay. Sun-gu said that he is still Woojin's teacher, and it seems that the lich surpasses even their boss in the number of kills. Murdy replied that there was no way and that the number of those killed by immortals was close to 100 million. Sun Gu was scared by what he heard. Suddenly, Wu Jin appeared, who heard the guys discussing him. He praised them for holding the harrow while he was gone. Now they need to go after the head of this huge lizard. As expected of Ugin, he quickly dealt with all the monsters. It seems to him that even from just the vicinity of Namsan, he will be able to gain a lot of experience points and will soon reach level 80. And that same huge yellow dragon flew over Ugin. His fiery breath was already straining Ugin. Spiritual armor will protect him, but the awakened ones and Ardal are behind him. The dragon threw out a huge blinding ball of fire that disturbed Ugin. Heiso and Sun Gu also did not understand where this explosion came from and covered themselves from the rays. It seems to have passed, and Wu Jin called Janice for help. Ugin said that the dragon was just Thranet's 6 and was of no use to them, so he ordered Janice to just get rid of it. The golden dragon Rajakui is the ruler of the dimension on the planet Jakku and the head of the Yellow Lizard Alliance. His fiery breath is so ancient that it has existed for an eternity. Rajakui can't believe Ugin was able to repel him. The dragon asked the hero to say his name, but there's no point in exchanging pleasantries now. It's time to act. Janice told the dragon that he would incinerate him so that there would not be a bone left. Rajakui is mired in Janice's blue cloud. Rajakui said that he was a fool, because his body has unlimited resistance to magic, and it is pointless to attack it with it. But this was not an ordinary flame, as Rajakui thought. Hell's flame is the same one that will never go out as long as its caster lives. But the dragon said that this was not enough to pierce his scales. Since Janice's fiery power was not enough, he will add a little more. He summoned the Hydra, a 9-headed dragon burning in hellfire. The hero orders to show Janice what real hell is. Janice continued to call hundreds of individuals. The Hydras began attacking Rajakuya with their hellfire, and so Rajakui simply turned into dust, easily flying in the sky. Wu Jin sees that Janice is not giving up her position. He asked him about what it would be like to be released from print. Janice replied that he was not interested in talking about days gone by, and what was more important was that Wu Jin had to find the fulfillment of Thresh. Wu Jin sighed and said that he searched but found nothing. Thresh's execution is an item from Thresh's set that functions as a weapon. Janice insisted that fulfillment must be sought, but it is not available in any of the stores, and even the recipe for making it cannot be found. Wu Jin begins to doubt whether it really exists. Wu Jin said that they would talk about the rest later, but for now, let Janice join the Death Knights. We must first clear the battlefield. Since Ugin left the elimination of the monsters to the guys, then he himself will clean up the mess that the lizard left behind. It will be hard if the bastard expands his holdings at the expense of Soul. Suddenly he felt some strange energy. Wu Jin used heightened senses. He realized that the meteor was flying towards the very center of Soul. Only Janice could arrange this. Yeah, it's not Namsan you need to worry about when the whole city here could disappear from the face of the earth. Some people were filming what was happening in the city. The producer said he was pleased that the army had already largely suppressed the attack. The cameraman suggested coming closer, but the producer replied that there was no need to get hit by a bullet. They would wait and move when the shooting ended. But they won't have time to do this, as Ugin caught them. He asked if they were filming the broadcast live. The news started showing breaking news, led by Wu Jin. There they said that the hero Kang Wu Jin discovered a meteorite summoned to Earth by a dragon. According to the statement, the meteorite is aimed at Namsan and is rapidly moving in its direction. The collision will occur in about 15 minutes. By order of Kang Wu Jin, the soldiers who fought the monsters urgently evacuated from the battle site. He completely took control of all the monsters near Namsan, and he himself remained on the battlefield to stop the meteorite. Citizens were asked to prepare for the shockwave that would follow the collision and told to pray that their heroes would return alive. Wu Jin wondered if this was too arrogant on his part, but he couldn't say that his conscript did it. The hero asked Janice why he was creating problems on his own head. He replied that since he found himself on Earth for the first time in a long time, he should knock. Besides, he thinks that this way they can get rid of all the monsters at once. Wu Jin said that at this rate there will be nothing left of the planet, but Janice objected, saying that it was just a small pebble. However, even a shockwave from such a pebble can kill Earthlings. Wu Jin asked Janice to stop talking and get ready. Janice never thought that he would use magic to save people. He needs to hurry, as the meteorite will soon collide with the Earth. Janice began using a large barrier and expansion so the meteorite did not collide with the Earth. According to the news, 2 days after the dungeon was broken, restoration work was still underway on the destroyed infrastructure, ranging from Seoul and the Gyeonggi area to Busan, Daejeon, and Daegu. In other countries, monsters are destroyed using nuclear weapons, and their country has become an example of how to overcome a crisis with minimal damage. All this in no other way is the merit of Mr. Kang Woo Jin's outstanding abilities. Nobody doubts this. Day after day, dungeons explode and monsters pour out of them in heaps. The people of their country are faced with the most important decision in their lives. Recognize Ardal's independence and stand under their protection, or watch them leave the country. Min Chung told the guild members that the situation seemed to have taken a positive turn, but they should still prepare for the fact that there would be a majority of no votes in tomorrow's election. Lee Kang-jin, a former Korean prosecutor who joined the Ardal Guild, said he agreed, and if the constitutional amendment was not passed, they would immediately leave Korea. Min Chang replied that Ardal would not go anywhere, and private estates would become state property. Kang Jin asked if he wouldn't leave Korea if their independence was encroached upon. The other guy replied that it would be better if it were so, but the chairman will not go anywhere because Ardal has become an anti-state organization. If they rebel against the country, then an armed conflict will occur. Min Chang said that this is why they don't plan to let this happen. The prosecutor asked if they could simply convince the chairman. Sun Gu said that it is easier to carry out a coup in the country than to convince Wu Jin. We'll have to pray to heaven that he can accept the outcome of the vote. At a time when the members of the Ardal Guild were racking their brains to come up with something, Wu Jin, who had dealt with all the dungeons in the country, received an invitation from abroad and headed to the base. Lord of Dimensions, now everything is for real. Wu Jin asked Murdy if it looked like Alphen. She said she had a terrible dream. There must have been monsters constantly appearing at the base. Presumably the base is where the Overlord uses his power. The Dimension Lord buys monsters from the Dimension Store, and through the base, he can sell these monsters. On the planet Alphen, they only destroyed the monsters that invaded the territory. Now the situation is completely different. To protect the Earth, Ugin must quickly destroy all the bases where the bastards have taken root. Events take place in Rome. Monsters continue to attack the military. The soldier ordered all the wounded to be loaded into the car and to retreat immediately. 4 minutes left. There are bombs all over the city. They will not help destroy all monsters but will delay their attack. The soldiers did not understand why they stopped. It turns out that a flock of monster birds was flying towards them. They tried to shoot back, but suddenly all the birds fell on the ground dead. The soldiers did not understand what was happening. And this is Wu Jin arriving with Murdy. The hero told Murdy to stay and heal the victims, and he would immediately go to the base. The soldier tried to stop Wu Jin because there were bombs all around this alley. The soldier said that the bombs would explode in 59 seconds, and after that Wu Jin would be free to go. But Wu Jin, without listening to anyone, went where he needed to go. He can't lose his experience points like that. Wu Jin called Janice and told him to destroy everything in 30 seconds, and Janice will happily destroy some city. Janice uses a large-scale explosion, thereby blowing up the monsters. The Colosseum in Rome base has grown more and more. Looks like he is almost done. Suddenly there was an explosion, and someone appeared. He said that it was a man who behaved like a dead man and destroyed Mr. Rajakuya. He, Niktor, wants to take revenge on Ugin for Mr. Rajakuya with his own hands. Lord of the Dimension. Niktor, a giant warrior from the Yellow Lizards Alliance on the planet Jakku. Ugin asked how Niktor was going to do this, since he was not stronger than Rajakuya. Nobody furiously replied that Lord Rajakuya is a great lord who cannot be compared with him. He is only his servant. Niktor was angry that the hero was insulting the warrior and could not tolerate it. He was ready to crush Wu Jin. But when Niktor struck, Ugin was behind him. Wu Jin mocked him, saying that if this giant had a brain, it would be much more interesting. Ugin ordered his Death Knights to deal with him. Niktor was angry at these small midges. He tried to attack them, but the knights, of course, overpowered him. Just as Wu Jin thought, he is simply huge. It was too boring. The hero told Janice to burn what was left in the base. This time, a piece of dimension associated with Tranit also appeared. This is the key with which you can break into the Tranit game. In Korea, among 9 dimensions, only 3 had a piece. With the ones he got in Dread's dungeon, Ugin now has 5 of them. But it was somehow strange. Why are all the bases either crowded places or historical monuments? Janice replied that he couldn't know that either. Wu Jin thought it was even better. Cats appear in packs in places that are easily visible to people. If the rulers of the dimension conducted their affairs secretly, it would be more difficult. We moved to Manjangul Cave in Jeju. There, the employee asked the manager what was happening. He replied that the repair work had been postponed to an earlier date. The worker replied that he should have told us in advance, because there were still tourists there. The manager then proposed to no longer sell tickets and gradually remove the tourists inside. He told the employee to inform everyone. The worker asked about the box there, and he thinks that these are not the same workers who repaired the railing last time. The manager replied that the developer had changed. He could not disclose all the details and asked to cooperate with them while repair work is underway. It's already evening. The manager said not to let any people in. All the men stood on the pentagram, and the chairman-manager said that everything was ready and everyone should leave. Lee Sang-ho was ready to begin the ceremony to summon Mr. Yellow. At the same time, Ugin, having completed his business in Rome and received an invitation from England, heads to London. In one of the houses in the suburbs of London, an old man was listening to the radio. It said that it was now known that Kong Woo-jin of Ardal would take part in the military operation in London. The army, tired of a long war, upon learning the news of his joining, perked up. Immortal soldiers and he are at the scene of the event, awaiting the upcoming battle. It means that Ujin has arrived, the second candidate for the role of the one who will save their world. In the center of London, Woojin and Murdy have already collected a six-piece piece. They're really lucky. Tom Claxon, chairman of the Awakened Association in London, came up and said that Woojin's reputation was well-deserved. Tom also said that if Woojin had not come, it's scary to think what would have happened. Ugin replied that it was good for both of them because he gained experience points and received a piece of dimension. Tom asked if Ugin would sell this piece of the dimension to England. The hero was surprised that Tom knew about the piece of dimension. Tom said they haven't been announced to the world yet. The heroes were shocked. Tom said that a piece of dimension is a treasure that appears when the structure created by the Monster Lord is destroyed. This is the core of the dungeon. Although they have not yet been officially announced, James Toppler, an English dungeon explorer, had long foreseen their appearance. America, Japan, China, and Germany have already received these and are now engaged in research. Therefore, England also needs a model. Woojin was shocked that James Toppler foresaw the appearance of dimension pieces. He had heard this name somewhere. Once at the hotel, Woojin heard Toppler speak on TV about his hypothesis about the stones of return. He also said then that the dungeons are not a mine but bloodstones, that they steal are just bait. So, this is the old man Woojin is in the news. It turns out he is from England. He is the one who comes closest to the secret of the dungeons. It was time for Tom Claxon to say goodbye to the heroes, and he once again thanked them for saving London. Woojin asked to consider his proposal regarding the dimension pieces. Tom replied that he would convey the heroes' words to Parliament. Woojin will wait for an answer. The heroes have left. Later, Murdy asked Woojin if that doctor was really that important, since the hero personally asked him for a favor. The hero said that he was the closest to the secret of the dungeons, and nothing bad will happen if they meet him. The heroes came to Dr. Toppler's home. Toppler treated them to tea. Woojin was surprised that the man spoke Korean and asked if he was somehow connected with their country. The doctor replied that at his age, heroes would also teach everything they could. And then, suddenly, the doctor, in the Alphan language, tells Murdy to sit down, as the tea is getting cold. Woojin and Murdy are stunned. Ugin took out a dagger, put it to Toppler's throat, and asked how he knew Alphan's language and who he was. Could he be the ruler of the dimension? The doctor replied that no, he was just studying it. Then Woojin asked the doctor who he was. The doctor decided to switch to Korean. Dr. Toppler is someone who is not afraid of death. But what is even stranger is that he has no soul. Woojin asked the man why. A characteristic feature of necromancers is that they can see the souls of people, all animals, monsters, and even insects. And until now, there has not been a single one who does not have a soul. And Woojin does not feel it at the doctor. Toppler laughed and said that Woojin need not worry and he has the same goal with them. The hero said to stop talking nonsense and reveal your essence. The doctor replied that he was from another dimension. But even so, Woojin doesn't understand why he can't feel his soul. Toppler replied that he could tell them nothing more. They can even kill him if they want. The doctor said that the heroes must have come to ask him something. Woojin sighed, drank tea, and said that now they will talk and let the doctor better not hide anything. Toppler said that the heroes do not need to be wary of him, because they have the same goal with him. He means protecting all planets, not just Earth. Woojin asked about the name of the doctor's planet, to which he replied that he would tell about it later. Woojin doesn't care what planet he's from. If Toppler says they can save the Earth, then the doctor knows a way. Toppler asked if the heroes knew about the matter of the Earth. Woojin replied vaguely. Toppler said there was no point in talking about how it was created. The whole point is in its value. The core was formed from transit matter. This is a supernatural connection with each planet. The doctor spoke about the movement of dimensions. Toppler said that there must have been living beings that moved between dimensions due to an unstable connection, similar to how Ugin moved to Alphan 5 years ago. Woojin thought that the doctor had been watching him for so long, but Toppler just heard it on the news. The doctor said he wasn't expecting heroes, he was just waiting for someone who could help his planet. Wu Jin was annoyed and said that the conversation took too long. He demanded to tell us how to protect the Earth. The doctor replied that if the Tranet is a supernatural connection, then the dimensional territories are the connecting links between the planets. By cutting off this connection, you can increase protection. Murdy perked up and said the word God. It was true. Toppler replied that the god of the planet is a being similar to a barrier that blocks this connection. The Earth God will appear soon, he says. The doctor asked the heroes to protect his Tranet powers. Murdy asked if they could block the connection only if they protected God, because there was also a god on Alphen. But the result was sad. The doctor said it was true. No matter how great the barrier is, it will not be able to protect against all viruses. So someone must become a powerful vaccine to finally destroy all the viruses that have penetrated the barrier. Toppler also added that the necromancer Kang Wu Jin already knows the answer himself. Wu Jin perked up. The weapon that Janice is hunting for, which is capable of destroying all opponents, Thresh's execution. Toppler remembered that Wu Jin had said that he had no soul and said that he believed in them. Wu Jin didn't understand what the doctor was talking about. Toppler explained that Wu Jin has eyes that see the truth. The hero is closest to the one the doctor has been looking for all this time. Wu Jin was shocked, and then the doctor stood up and said that that was all he could tell the heroes and said goodbye. When he started to leave, Wu Jin was furious and wanted to stop him because he hadn't said everything yet. But when Wu Jin tried to grab Toppler, the hero's hand went through the man, and thus Dr. Toppler simply vanished into thin air. And suddenly the doctor's voice wished Wu Jin to find the truth at the end of his long journey. Wu Jin told Janice that it seemed like they would definitely need to execute Thresh. Janice replied that, of course. Thresh's execution is the final weapon that only a necromancer can wield. But first, they need to put everything together before moving on to the puzzle. Janice talked about other things in the kit. Ugin pointed to the portal and said to go find everything that Thresh left behind. Meanwhile, Ardal successfully negotiated an agreement with the Korean government and officially became a new independent state. Min-chan and Seung-hoon were driving in the car. Seung-hoon asked if Min-chan should now be called minister, and Min-chan asked Seung-hoon about when he managed to learn foreign languages. Seung-hoon replied that he didn't do anything amazing, and it was Prime Minister Jun who did all the hard work. Min-chan was pleased to hear his new position. Seung-hoon said that he heard that the chairman had finished work at the base in England and would therefore be back soon. Min-chang wanted to quickly report on today's achievement. Min-chang was not given a promotion, but the title of Prime Minister. Moreover, this is a huge new state that has a crazy influence on the whole world. Min-chang was confident that he was the best person for this position. Seung-hoon said that Min-chan did a good job anyway. The heroes drove up to their office and heard a security guard not letting a man in. The man tried to prove that Ugin himself called him here, and the security guard replied that he was not on the guest list. The man tried to explain that he was a famous awakened one from India. The guard indignantly said that he did not know any people from India, and suddenly the man, who turned out to be Blanca, waved to Seung-hoon. He said he would sit down with them to come over together. Seung-hoon was surprised by his arrival in Korea, and said that they could have sent someone to pick him up if he had contacted them in advance. Seung-hoon introduced Prime Minister Jun Min-chang to Blanca. Min-chan said to go inside to talk, and when Min-chan opened the door, Wu Jin was already sitting there. Wu Jin said that Blanca hesitated, but finally came. Blanca timidly replied that he did not hesitate, but was late because he had business to do. Wu Jin said that Blanca did not come from India and asked if he was planning to meet his brother again. Blanca began to make excuses, saying that this could not happen and that he himself wanted to come. Wu Jin said that it didn't matter and welcomed him to Ardal. Wu Jin also asked Seung-hoon and Min-chan about why they were both smiling as he had a bad feeling about it. And then Min-chang proudly held out the agreement that was signed today. Wu Jin shrugged it off and told him to just tell him the gist. Min-chang began to talk about how Korea recognized Ardal's national sovereignty and amended the constitution to allow dual citizenship. You no longer need to renounce your Korean citizenship when becoming a resident of Ardal. Min-chan was happy and said that it was all thanks to Wu Jin. He asked if he could now call Wu Jin a ruler. Wu Jin said to call him Your Majesty. Min-chan turned white. Wu Jin asked if everything was so, to which Min-chan replied that it was nothing and called the hero His Majesty. It was Wu Jin who made that joke. He said that after becoming an independent state, everything should be easier, so Min-chan can call him whatever he wants. Min-chan breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Jin said that this is not so important now and asked to call everyone to him for a serious conversation. Everyone ran into the office in surprise, and Wu Jin told everyone to sit down quickly. Sungu was surprised that Blanca was already here. When everyone sat down, Min-chan asked about Wu Jin's important conversation. The hero replied that it was about penetration into the outside world. Everyone was a little perplexed. Ugin said that until now they had tried to destroy the connection between the rulers of the dimensions, but this caused great damage to the earth. The enemies will endlessly form connections, so there will be nothing left of the cities. Min-chan didn't understand what to do then. Wu Jin continued to talk about how even if the battlefield is Earth, they have their own military camps, so maybe they shouldn't fight on Earth. Wu Jin said they can't just defend themselves, they must attack first. Sungu asked if they would then go to Alphen. Murdy was happy with the idea. Ugin replied that they would leave Alphen for last, and now they would go to the planet Jakku. It is a planet associated with Earth that has an alliance of yellow lizards called Rajakuya. Ugin proudly stated that by hunting them, they would increase their strength. The heroes arrived at Seoul Station. Everything was ready. They wanted to go in, but Wu Jin said they had to wait for one more person. Nobody understood what we were talking about. Wu Jin asked Seong-hoon if he contacted him. The guy replied yes. And then they call out to Ujin. This is his old friend Baek Jong-do. Sungu didn't understand why Chairman Baek was here. Baek said that they were now on the same team and only brother Wu Jin could come up with infiltration into an alien world. Wu Jin told Sungu that he called Baek because they don't have a tanker. They have a binder who is good at cornering monsters, a tanker with the ability to self-heal, and a healer who won't let you die. Now the full lineup. Sungu asked what he would do. Wu Jin has a special task for the guy. Is that crazy, Teacher Wu Jin? Sungu got scared and tried to tell Wu Jin that they didn't have a dealer and he could be one. But the hero had already contacted someone and told Sungu not to try to escape, because he had already agreed with Janice. Sungu will not be able to avoid this. He is already scared. The entire group entered the portal and found themselves in the Ardal dimension, which they had only heard about. Baek said it was really surprising. He thought that Ugin could only use dungeons, but it turns out that he is the ruler of an entire dimension. Suddenly, Bibi and Ye Min ran up to Wu Jin. Bibi said that they have many guests today. Ujin had just asked her to show the dimension lands to the guests. And then suddenly, Wu Jin said that there was one person here whom he should introduce. And it turned out to be their team's dealer, the vampire Du Jae Min. The guy was slightly shocked by what he heard. Bibi led the group on a tour and told them to keep up. Jae Min timidly asked if he could definitely join them, since he thought he might become a hindrance. Wu Jin replied that Jae Min is the best player from Earth, and they need to have a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Bibi suggested that the group try Ardal's special beer. Wu Jin asked the guy if he had mastered the skills he told him about. Jae Min replied that he had mastered everything. But training is different from real battles. This will be a good experience for Jae Min, because he is the one who has to protect his sister. The group ended up in Ugin's castle near the portal. The hero asked if everyone was ready. The group confidently replied that everyone was ready. Wu Jin began to command, saying that once they get through the dungeon, Sun Gu will train with Janice, and everyone else will conquer the remaining dungeons of the planet Jakku. Wu Jin will go separately, so if there is anything unusual, we will need to contact him through Jae Min. Everyone understood and accepted everything. The group arrived on the planet Jakku, the Column of Nasia dungeon. Wu Jin said that this is where they split up and Sun Gu goes with him. But suddenly, monsters appeared along with their leader. The leader welcomed them to the planet Jakku. Wu Jin asked who he was. It was Nagal, the ruler of the dimension who takes care of Mr. Chen, the head of the Black Hat Union. It turns out that Nagal was waiting for Wu Jin. Nagal heard about how the hero destroyed the yellow lizard. Mr. Chen was very happy, so he wants to meet Wu Jin. He has a high position for him. But before Nagal could finish speaking, Ugin cut off his head. Nagal asked what this meant. Ujin proudly said that this meant the beginning of the capture. Incredibly, Baek was impressed that Wu Jin became even stronger while they weren't seeing each other. The ordinary head of the dimension dealt with everyone alone. It is unknown how strong Ujin can still become. Hei Seo said that now they have to go. Baek asked how they would find a dungeon in such a limitless place. Did Hei Seo really know where the enemies were sitting? And then Hei Seo began to call someone, raising her hand. A purple bird flew to her. She will show the heroes the way. Wu Jin and Sun Gu were flying, and it seemed they had already seen one base. Wu Jin told Sun Gu to train with Janice while he was in the dungeon. Sun Gu was in a stupor because he was afraid of meeting Janice. Wu Jin asked him why he didn't get down, and Wu Jin had to push Sun Gu down to the base himself. Wu Jin said that for Sun Gu, every free minute is time to practice. Sun Gu must try to survive using all his skills. The guy was terrified he would soon reach the ground. What should he do? Janice laughed and said that Sun Gu was impudent for daring to ask to teach him. He decided to see how good Sun Gu was. Janice decided to torture the guy with the help of his fire magic. Wu Jin saw Janice's deeds in the sky. Looking at this, he remembers the first time he met Janice. Hong Sung-gu needs to stay alive, because if he can return, he will become an SS rank player. Wu Jin saw where they built a mechanical city. This is the camp of the ruler of the dimension Leah. Ugin summoned his army of thousands of skeletons and ordered them to attack. But suddenly, Ugin saw that the skeletons were being shot at from Leah's base. Wu Jin irritably asked someone if he didn't want to be a part of this. He ordered to turn into stone and clear the road. Despite the bullets that hit him, the huge golem destroyed the cannons one after another. Ugin also told all his knights to attack. They were ready to kill everyone and destroy everything. One of the Rati watched everything that was happening and Radek from behind the rock. He cried bitterly. So, the great warrior Rati became the enemy's little animal. Predator eats predator. Who knows, maybe God's prediction will come true. Ujin sent notifications that the base, which had no owner, had been conquered and he could either destroy it or occupy it. By the way, Wu Jin heard the name Leah somewhere. This is the one he injured back then. Apparently she still can't recover. Bibi began to ask the owner to give her this base, but Ugin replied that he had no interest in taking over other lands. Therefore he chose to destroy the base and watched it carefully. Wu Jin wondered what Leah's face would be like when she recovered and saw that her base was completely destroyed. By the way, he wonders how Ye Min is doing. So far there hasn't been anything special. Beck wonders if there is anything worthwhile on this planet. Heiso told Mr. Vampire to quickly drink the monster's blood and move on. Jae Min reluctantly agreed. Jae Min bit the monster and drank the blood. But something strange began to happen to the guy. But it seems everything has passed, and that's all now. It seems he's already used to it. And, hey, so the bird pointed the way. She began to lead everyone with her. The heroes walked, but suddenly huge beavers began to rush at them. Heiso began to use the skill of sharing consciousness with others. She told the other group members that there are 3 monsters ahead. Chairman Beck should go first and deal with one. Blanca will help with speed and strength, and Jae Min will take on the remaining 2. All the heroes began to deal with the monsters and did it successfully. But one Jae Min behaved too aggressively, biting the monsters. But ahead, he senior noticed another flock of monsters. She used her comm to tell Jae Min to retreat. But Jae Min did not listen and rushed at the monsters with great anger. Heiso tried her best to stop him, but Jae Min seemed to have lost control again. Jae Min attacked and killed the monsters furiously. The group realized that until he came to his senses, there was nothing left to do but watch his back. But a large number of monsters were also waiting for the heroes behind them. And it was necessary right now. Murdy reported that air monsters were also approaching. Heiso panicked and ordered everyone to leave. Bake went to pick up Jae Min and grabbed him by the neck. The guy tried to bite Beck, but his skin is not so weak that some low-level vampire would bite through it. Taking Jae Min by the collar, the heroes began to quickly run away. Meanwhile, Sun-gu was simply running away from Janice's attacks. Janice himself asked how long this would continue and said that the guy would die without knowing how to do anything. Sun-gu was incredibly angry and thought to himself about what Janice could teach him at such a pace. Because he said that he would make him the best fire mage, but he was just playing around, since he couldn't kill. Sun-gu decided to pull himself together, picked up the stick, and began to use magical fire. Janice laughed that now Sun-gu wanted to try. He told the guy to show his abilities, and then Sun-gu began to attack Janice himself. But Janice grabbed his stick and began to consume the fire. He said that fire does not choose enemies. Janice himself now directed his magic towards Sun-gu. The guy doesn't have time to give up. Sun-gu said he was crazy. Sun-gu needs to try to fend this off. The guy realized that he could not dodge this attack, and his body was at its limit. He would not be able to strengthen it. If he can't block and avoid this attack, then his only option is to use it. If Sun-gu fails, he will die. And then Sun-gu completely absorbed the energy. He was incredibly happy about this. The power overwhelmed him, and he seemed to understand the power of Janice. Janice told Sun-gu that he was able to learn the basics after all. Sun-gu began to thank Janice for the valuable lesson, because it seems that he specifically showed by his example how to absorb fire. But still, if something went wrong, the guy would die. But Janice was not going to stop because who said this was the end? Let Sun-gu thank you when the training is over. Suddenly, Raksha met Rabido in the vastness of the planet Jakku. Rabido asked Raksha how it went, but Raksha was worried about the shaman. Rabido didn't understand why he was in such a hurry and what happened. Raksha said to quickly inform the shaman that the savior has finally arrived. Nervous, Raksha ran into the house of the shaman Tsutsushi. She told him to calm down and asked what he saw that was so scared. Raksha began to say that the Rhea fortress was destroyed, and this was not the work of the Union, but all because of the new predator who destroyed Retik. The shaman was surprised whether the Pillar of Nijia really had a new owner. The shaman replied that Rhea is part of the Blackheads Union, and then he must be from the Yellow Lizards or Red Hammers Union. Raksha said no, because according to the spies he is also against those two alliances. Tsutsushi said that then the result is obvious. They will soon forget about him since he opposes 3 unions at once. Raksha indignantly said that the shaman was saying this because she had not seen him, and he defeated the great warrior Retik with his bare hands and completely destroyed Rhea. Raksha also added that perhaps he really is the man from the legend. The shaman thought about a predator that absorbs other predators. She asked Rakshi if he thought that the one he was talking about would save their planet. Raksha was completely sure of this. Raksha was glad that finally their planet would be helped, but Tsutsusha said that he was just pathetic, because that legend was just a lie to give hope. The real legend from the ancestors was that the day a predator appears, devouring other predators, the planet will come to an end. This is what the ancestor actually said. Tsutsushi added that all they can do is pray that he is the wrong person. Raksha couldn't believe it. Suddenly they heard a strange sound. This sound was a warning of an intrusion, and fires could be seen in the distance. The shaman asked what was happening. Rabito said that a large detachment had attacked them in the forest, and they had to leave quickly. Tsutsushi didn't understand what had suddenly happened. The Union is fighting against each other. Do they really not think at all about such small peoples as they are? But why? Raksha asked Rabito if by chance that squad was made up of skeletons, but Rabito was shocked that Raksha found out. These were skeleton monsters that he had never seen before, and then Raksha was definitely sure that this was the one who killed Retik. He's already gotten here. Ugin approached the gate, which was guarded by many Rati. He didn't know what this place was, and those Rati look weak. He won't get much experience from them. Raksha ran up to see who had arrived. He was horrified that it was him, Wu Jin. And the hero, in turn, ordered all his skeletons to sweep away everything here. Rabito said that they should buy as much time as possible, so that the people from the village could leave, so he ordered all the Rati to prepare for battle. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Ratik appeared, addressing the king on his knees. He asked Wujin to be generous and let them live. Wujin was surprised by the impudence that Ratik was asking for benefits for himself right in front of his master. Te-Rati were Ratik's fellow tribesmen, but Ugin asked what if he did not want to do this. Ratik began to explain that they were inhabitants of the planet who had nothing to do with the power of Tranit, and continued to beg Ugin for generosity. Wujin had not seen such devotion for a long time. He is interested in how each family member resists. He could have subdued them all, but suddenly, Ujin received a notification that the faithful knight Ratik was cordially asking him to save his fellow tribesmen, and if he answered his request, he would repay the hero with his loyalty. Wujin thought about it and decided that it would be so. He told everyone that they were coming back. Ratik swore allegiance to Ugin, and the cost of the subjugation skill was reduced to 1 point. And Rati were happy that they were alive and grateful to Retik for saving them. But suddenly, Ujin noticed something familiar on one of the towers, like some kind of flag or cloak. It was Thresh's ruined robe. Wujin couldn't just come back. The hero told Ratik to bring this thing and kill everyone who tries to interfere. Ratik wanted to obey the command, but Tsutsushi began to stop him in a panic. She said that this item is a divine cloak that protects their village and cannot just be given to some predator. But Retik pointed his weapon at the shaman and told her that if she valued her life, then she should not stop him. Therefore, Retik brought the long-awaited item to Ugin, and thus Ugin found one of the items from Thresh's set. It was Thresh's armor and guardian cloak, but the cloak was torn and could not show its effects. Domination 100. There is no longer a limit on the number of possessed souls, but other effects are closed. The shaman said that this is the god of destruction, and this is not something that some predator can take. Ujin was surprised that Tsutsushi knew about the god of destruction. The shaman said that the god of destruction is the deity of primordial chaos. Tsutsushi said that predators may roam like gods, but this thing is a real divine artifact. The moment the hero puts it on, his body will be dissolved by the curse. Ugin wondered if his body would dissolve if he was a dimension lord. Raksha asked what he should do, because if the sacred artifact was taken away, then they would have to live like wanderers. The shaman told him not to worry, because as soon as Ugin dressed him, he would be cursed and die. To spite everyone, Wujin put on a cloak and said that it may not look good now, but it still fit perfectly. The shaman was shocked that the curse did not work. Was Ugin really a legend? Wujin replied that it originally belonged to him, and now he is taking it back. Suddenly, the shaman felt ill. She said that the predator that devours predators, the harbinger of the god of destruction, has come. She wonders if the planet is already completely destined for destruction. It was 3 days later that Ugin and his team arrived on the planet Jakku. Beck asked the annoying measurement people about how long they were going to follow them. Murdy approached Beck from behind and began to treat him. He thanked her and said that if it weren't for her, he would have died long ago. But what was more important was whether Wu Jin was still alive. Jae-min replied that he contacted him, but it seems that he's quite far away, so it will take about half a day. Murdy said she had to somehow hold on until then. Jae-min thought to himself that it was all his fault because he was intoxicated by the feeling of becoming stronger and ended up ignoring the plan. Hae-so decided to cheer up the guy, saying that he doesn't need to blame himself because without him she wouldn't have been able to survive until this moment. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a whole army of orcs appeared. It's kind of crazy that they have so much strength left. There is nowhere to run now. Beck said sadly that he would probably die before he even got married. Hae-seo was surprised that Beck was lonely. Suddenly, the group saw some kind of fire in the sky approaching them. And then a strong explosion occurs, and all the orcs were destroyed. And this was Sun-gu's old friend. Jae-min asked what happened. The guy replied that Wu Jin sent him here. Hae-seo couldn't believe that Sun-gu had such unimaginable strength. She didn't understand what kind of training he had gone through to become so strong in 3 days. While Hae-seo's group barely survived thanks to Sun-gu's arrival, Wu Jin met another Dimension Lord. Wu Jin asked which side he was from, whether it was the Yellow Lizard. The Lord replied that he was from the Black Hat Alliance. Yeah, being a lizard, you don't have to be from the Yellow Lizard Alliance. Ugin said that it didn't matter anyway. But more importantly, he had to make sure, so he threw the cloak over the Lord. But to Ujin's surprise, nothing happened. He did not begin to die. The lizard said how dare the hero take such damned equipment without a code. Wu Jin asked what code means. The lizard replied that it is difficult to understand how someone who does not know what the code is takes this cloak and is still fine with it. Wu Jin demanded to know about the code, but the lizard began to scoff, saying that he would not be so obedient as to tell. Wu Jin began to say that the lizard would not die pleasantly in this case. But suddenly the lizard simply disappeared, saying that if the opportunity arises, they will meet with him next time. Yaziritsa simply self-destructed. Wu Jin thought about this code. The more you know, the more confusing things appear. Wu Jin called Janice. The hero remembered how he told him when he became part of his group that Wu Jin was special. Janice confirmed that the hero is special. Wu Jin asked if this meant that he would not die, but I asked this thing. Janice said that this is true, and Ugin is the being who escaped Thresh's curse. Before Rod took it, Thranit's pawns coveted it, and they all disappeared. Wu Jin asked if Janice meant that they died since they were still alive. Janice replied that they disappeared, not died. All Thresh items collected from Alphen are armor, and yet the moment you put it on, you disappear. Therefore, if they obtained Thresh's only offensive weapon, Thresh's execution, then Ugin could permanently destroy the dimensional lords who keep coming back to life no matter how many times Ugin kills them. Wu Jin happily said that the puzzle was finally starting to come together. Janice wanted to ask Wu Jin one question. He asked if it was okay to let that guy grow further in this place. This is about Sun-gu. Janice doesn't really like this, because his magical talent alone exceeds even Ugin's abilities. The hero was shocked that the guy was at such a level. Wu Jin is even jealous, since Janice himself recognized Sun-gu's talent. Wu Jin told him to do as he knows, because he is the one to teach Sun-gu. Janice replied that he would create the first living slave for the master. Sun-gu was overly excited, and Jae-min asked him why he was acting this way and if everything was okay. Sun-gu said that he just suddenly got goosebumps. Sun-gu had a strong premonition. This is the 4th day since he arrived on the planet Jakku. Wu Jin and Jae-min left Sun-gu and Hae-seo's group and went back to the Ardal spatial dimension. Wu Jin said that the territory defense period passed quickly, even if it was only 4 days. He instructed Jae-min, after receiving the territory, to be sure to provide a period of protection again. Then, Jae-min wanted to ask Wu Jin something. The guy said that he wanted to buy a couple of things and asked to borrow some points. He said that he has something that he is saving up for, but it is a little expensive. Wu Jin was surprised that what he gave was not enough for the guy. He asked what Jae-min needed money for. Jae-min replied that the item was the heart of the vampire lord. The guy apologized, saying that he was asking for too much. On the planet Jakku, Jae-min proved to be a liability to his teammates. To fill his role in the group, he must become much stronger than he is now, but as he expected, he cannot count on Wu Jin all the time. Wu Jin said to wait. He found this item, and it cost 200,000 points. This is quite a lot, but it is the expected price for the heart of a top-ranking vampire. So, Wu Jin bought it and gave it to Jae Min. The guy was incredibly grateful. Through the blood ritual of absorbing the heart, one can inherit status by becoming a vampire lord. The one who absorbed him does not remain just a blood-sucking monster, but gains the ability to have his own pawns under his command. Jae Min said that he will repay Wu Jin this time. The hero said not to say anything stupid, and that it would be enough if Jae Min could defeat at least one monster without dying. Wu Jin told the guy to test his abilities on the planet Jack Wu after the ritual, because he must adapt carefully before moving to another planet. Jae Min was surprised, but the hero assured him that it would not be long before he went to Alphen. Meanwhile, in Ardal, former telephone salesman and current foreign minister Seung-hoon is holding talks from around the world. He said that these guys have a lot of demands and he must show who is boss. Suddenly, his phone rang. He was informed that the group had arrived at the Prime Minister's office. Seung-hoon replied that he would be right away. In the meeting room, Seung-hoon greeted everyone and introduced himself as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. When Seung-hoon sat down, Min-chan wanted to fill him in on the matter, but Seung-hoon stopped him. He asked to be entrusted with these negotiations, but Min-chan was not entirely sure of his success. Seung-hoon told the Japanese representatives that he had reviewed all the information and requests that they had prepared. It matters regarding advance notices of the appearance of 6-star dungeons or higher, as well as joint strategies. Min-chan calmed down and thought that Seung-hoon was definitely good at negotiations. He prepared the material carefully and has skill in negotiations. The Great Britain team also arrived for negotiations. Seung-hong asked why the Japanese guild suddenly came without sending any material in advance. One of the men replied that the king of Ardala invited him to talk to the people from his homeland, which is why he came like this. The man also said that he wanted to buy dimension fragments directly. Seung-hoon asked how much he was going to pay them, and the man replied that Wu Jin requested an entire aircraft carrier. Min-chan and Seung-hoon turned white in shock. Sun Zun asked again if the man said everything correctly. Seung-hong quietly asked Min-chan about the dimension fragments. Were they really that expensive? Min-chan replied that this was the first time he had heard about them. The woman said that after careful consideration of the matter by the royal family and the government, it was concluded that the fragments of the dimension were indeed valuable. He also added that the requirement of the aircraft carrier itself is meaningless. Therefore, it is proposed that in the next 5 years, those who will be in the Eastern Sea will take over the defense of Ardal. The man asked how about this. Also, the man asked about Ardal and the government's entry into the 5-5 aircraft carrier cost operating agreement. Seung-hoon panicked and said that this is not something he can decide for himself and must meet with Wu Jin first. Suddenly, the hero himself came in and said that he had left the negotiations to Seung-hoon, and now he was acting absent-minded in what was going on. Wu Jin said to just give them the plane since they don't need people. A man from the delegation said that the maintenance and operation of an aircraft carrier requires thousands of people, and even if they hand it over to Ardal, they see that there will be insufficient personnel. The hero replied that he would take care of it himself and let them leave the aircraft carrier as it was. The man doesn't understand the point of just taking an aircraft carrier and doing something with it. Wu Jin asked why their side needed dimension fragments. The man replied that they needed the fragments for research, however. They did not yet know what they were. Wu Jin replied that they could just buy a dimensional gate that leads to another planet, and that way they could own their own dungeon. Everyone present was shocked. Wu Jin asked, what about this deal? It should be pretty cheap. Min Chang told Wu Jin that it makes sense to give such a valuable item in exchange for an aircraft carrier, which is not necessary for Ardal. Wu Jin replied that he just wanted to try an experiment. The hero said that they should just give them a piece of metal and why an aircraft carrier for this. Min Chan didn't understand anything. In addition, Wu Jin asked him if Min Chan continues to recruit new awakened ones. Min Chang replied that they are now accepting applications, but there are so many people that they need more time to review all the documents. Wu Jin said not to waste time on this and to bring them in 3 days. The hero himself personally selects people who can do things carefully. Min Chan also asked Wu Jin how he was going to handle the awakened assembly in 6 days. Maybe he wanted to visit in person. A month ago, after repelling the invasion of Uriel with Ardal, KH Group, and the Hammer Guild in Korea, a global assembly was planned to develop future strategies. Wu Jin thought that the awakened ones from all over the planet should know the truth and unite together, because the crisis that will come will be too difficult to cope with on their own. Ugin said that was great, and before they left for Alphen, he asked that invitations be sent out so that all guilds could attend. Wu Jin turned around and was about to leave. But he turned around and told Seung-hoon to stop beating around the bush and return to his duties as a secretary, since the hero had seen earlier that the man was not particularly good at negotiations and had no talent. Seung-hoon was as upset as possible by the hero's words. How could you buy a phone from a person who is bad at negotiations? Min-chan tried to calm him down. Seung-hong was in despair that he was demoted from the position of a minister to some kind of secretary like this. But suddenly, Seung-hoon realized that the secretary manages the entire staff of Ardal. And does this really mean that this is a promotion? At the same time, on the planet Jakku, the goblin told the lord of his charge to force the magicians to defend the fortress and set up barriers. Suddenly, King Mona, a dimension lord from the Red Hammer Coalition, appeared from the portal. He was furious that someone dared to attack his fortress. He asked what kind of alliance this was. The goblin replied that this was not an alliance, but a crazy man appeared on the planet Jakku, and, it seems, from the other side. The Lord realized that this was the one who claimed to have completely destroyed the Yellow Lizard Alliance. The Lord demanded that the most powerful magical defense of the fortress be activated as soon as possible. But the goblin mumbled that it had already been destroyed. The Lord asked how many soldiers remained. The goblin said that they were all still alive, however, the enemy's firepower was too strong that they could not even approach. Mona didn't understand to himself what it was. How is it that the final armor is destroyed, but most of the soldiers are alive? The Lord asked who was fighting on Earth then. The goblin replied that there are two imposters, and they are fighting each other. They fight each other on the Lord's territory. Mona was simply furious that two people dared to do this. He is ready to kill them. But before the Lord could finish shouting, an incredibly strong, fiery explosion occurred. It was Sungu who flew into the wall. They hit him right on target. But suddenly Sungu and the goblin looked up and saw that Monique no longer had a head. The goblin was horrified, and Sungu was surprised that it was a Dimension Lord. Sungu just felt like he had run into something. Janice flew up and asked the guy what he was doing here, and did he really want to be burned to the body along with this building? Sungu began to say that Janice promised him a 10-minute rest if he defeated the Dimension Lord, but Janice just laughed and said it was a shame. Suddenly, Wu Jin appeared behind Sungu. Ugin said that the guy is already quite good, especially since he defeated the Dimension Lord himself. Sungu replied that it was all thanks to Janice. Janice said that Sungu had learned the basics, and now the real game could begin. Sungu was simply shocked, because he thought that this was already a real battle. Wu Jin said to get started and do everything properly. Janice burned down the fortress, and Wu Jin was interested in how much Jae-min had already grown. Meanwhile, Jae-min was attacking the locals. One of them begged the guy to have pity on him, but Jae-min told him to drink his blood. If he drinks his blood, he will be reborn as Jae-min's servant. Hae-so told the others that they would take a break. Beck said it was a good idea, and they needed to get ready before the monsters swarmed again. Suddenly, Wu Jin appeared. When asked by Beck about when he appeared, the hero replied that not so long ago. He asked how the group was doing and whether everything was tolerable. Beck said this becomes a good incentive. He expands his capabilities and feels a gradual improvement in his abilities. Wu Jin suggested that he come with them. Beck politely declined, saying that outsiders should not join them. Beck has already gained a lot from this expedition, and now he must return to the guild and do what he must. He will only be around for the duration of this expedition. Wu Jin asked about where Jae-min went. Hae-seo replied that Jae-min had infiltrated the nearby fortress. Wu Jin was surprised that he went on his own, but Hae-so reassured him, saying that the guy just went for reconnaissance and everything should be fine. But Wu Jin objected and said that he didn't think Jae-min was just being there. And the group saw a whole swarm of bats, among which Jae-min himself was walking. Beck asked why the guy brought them all with him. Jae-min began to call all his servants. He said that large numbers are better than fighting yourself. Wu Jin was unsure about this idea. And suddenly, Jae-min's servants smelled Wu Jin's blood and began to attack him. Jae-min tried to stop them, but they didn't listen. Wu Jin simply threw them all away at once. Jae-min was angry and upset at the same time. Wu Jin told the guy that he seems to be trying to copy him, but nothing good comes of it. Wu Jin pointed at them and said that their bloodlust was more than just a simple hunger. He told Jae-min that if he couldn't restrain them with his influence, then his subordinates would be nothing more than monsters. It is not the number of subordinates that affects, but how you, as a lord, can control your subordinates. But Jae-min said that Wu Jin still has many of his subordinates. Wu Jin replied that no matter the number, zombies and skeletons are just consumables and said to take a look at his people. Even after spending 20 years on Alphen, he only collected 54 Death Knights. Jae-min must study. Jae-min timidly said that he understood everything. Woo Jin also told Jae-min to relieve the tension in his eyes. He asked whether youthful maximalism plays a part in him. Gradually, Jae-min began to grow as a vampire lord. And 3 days later in Earth time, the day of viewing the awakened candidates came. Woo Jin said everyone was quiet. Ugin told everyone that those who would be elected at this meeting would become both citizens and awakened ones of Ardal. The selection process has begun, and Woo Jin uses his search and analysis skills to review the candidates' skills and statistics. Woo Jin quickly analyzed everyone and said that the 23 people who pass the exam will follow the staff's instructions, and the rest can go home. But people started getting angry, saying that there was no point even without any test. They didn't understand how Yin could judge skills just at first glance. People really wanted to get to Ardal and asked the hero to give them a chance to show himself. Woo Jin decided, so be it, to give them a chance. He decided to set conditions since he doesn't have much time. He called his knight Assad and said that those who hold out with him for 30 seconds will move on. However, the price for this is life. People began to be indignant, since no one wanted to die if something happened. And suddenly in the crowd, one of the mysterious guys said that he would try. It turned out to be the famous Kim Kang-chul. The rest of the awakened ones did not understand what he was doing here. Before Woo Jin came, he was the best awakened person in South Korea. He rose to AA rank, but the circumstances were a mystery. But Kang-chul had never been united with anyone before this point, so it is a mystery why he decided to apply to Ardal. Woo Jin thought it was strange, because he was sure that not a single high-rank awakened had been detected. But now, for some reason, the detector shows that Kang-chul has an AA rank. Woo Jin replied that he knew how good Kang-chul was, but asked if he was going to join Ardal. Kang-chul said that what he wants is not joining Ardal, but he came to talk to the hero. Woo Jin replied that in that case, Kang-chul can come later because he doesn't have enough time to talk now. But Kang-chul continued to insist, saying that it would take a little time. Woo Jin started to get annoyed by this and told the guards to take Kang-chul out of here. Security surrounded the guy and told him to wait for an official invitation to meet with Ardal. But Kang-chul offered a deal. He would last 30 seconds against Assad, and in exchange for that, Woo Jin would talk to him. Woo Jin told Assad that Kang-chul seemed to be underestimating him. But Assad was confident and said that he would knock down Kang-chul in 30 seconds. So Kang-chul and Assad prepared for battle. Assad began to attack powerfully and Kang-chul to defend. Kang-chul blocked Assad's attacks with his bare hands. This was not like the body enhancement system Beck uses. Woo Jin wonders if the red shell around Kang-chul is his ability. Woo Jin had definitely not seen such people before. But still, Assad had already reached S-class, constantly raising the level. However, no matter how special Kang-chul's moves are, he is still only AA rank. And this difference in levels is quite difficult to catch up with. Kang-chul said that one of his servants had S-class power, and indeed, Dr. Toppler deserves attention. Woo Jin was shocked when he heard the doctor's name from Kang-chul. Suddenly, Kang-chul's level increased by 10. This is impossible. Woo Jin was surprised, and thus, having cut off Assad's hands, Kang-chul won the duel. Woo Jin stopped him from causing further harm to Assad. Woo Jin was shocked that Assad was neutralized simply by a special enhanced attack. Kang-chul asked the hero if he would talk to him now. Woo Jin was amazed by a man who not only knows Toppler, but also knows how to change skills. He decided to talk to him. This will be a fun conversation. Kang-chul asked what happened here. Woo Jin replied that there was a guy who ran away while they were busy having pleasant conversations. He was a special prisoner, so trying to use force would do no good. Woo Jin asked about the reason why Kang-chul came to him. Kang-chul replied that he came here on the testimony of Dr. Toppler. The guy said that the doctor sees in Ugin a strong candidate for saving the Earth. Also, the doctor said that Ugin must collect codes to save the Earth from Tranit. Woo Jin thought about it. That monster from the planet Jakku also mentioned something about codes. Woo Jin asked what exactly these codes were. Kang-chul replied that he had no idea. Dr. Toppler simply asked him to give Woo Jin a message. Woo Jin sighed and said that he needed to know what it was in order to find it. Either way, it's forced inspiration. The hero asked Kang-chul how he is related to Dr. Toppler and who the doctor is. Kang-chul replied that as Woo Jin knows, he is an independent awakened without any influence. However, it is sponsored by Lunar World. Woo Jin asked what it was. Kang-chul replied that it was an organization owned by Dr. Toppler. Woo Jin said that he had never heard of this organization and asked if it was a planet. Kang-chul replied that it is supposed to be so. Suddenly, a panicked Seung-hoon burst into the office and said that Woo Jin should come right now. The hero was at a loss. But it turned out that Wu Jin's sister, Su Ah, was in the hospital and exhausted. Wu Jin arrived at the hospital as quickly as possible. Mom was distressed and said that Su Ah was not waking up. Min Chan and Murdy were also there. Wu Jin encouraged his mother, saying that everything would be fine and no matter what it took, he would raise his sister to her feet. The hero told Min Chan to take his mother outside. Wu Jin asked Murdy about Su Ah's condition. Murdy replied that her body was fine. In this case, the hero was interested in why Su Ah didn't wake up then. Suddenly, Murdy asked Wu Jin if he remembered when Dr. Toppler said that God would be born on Earth. Every time she remembers this, she remembers that Toppler said that the heroes must find and protect the God who will soon be born on Earth. But still, Wu Jin didn't understand how this had anything to do with Su Ah. Murdy is not sure how this happened, but although faint, she definitely feels the presence of divine energy inside the girl's body. She must be meeting God in her long sleep now. Murdy said all they could do now was wait for her to be accepted by God. And when Su Ah opens her eyes, she will wake up as a goddess who can hear the voice of God. Sung Hoon was in the office with Kang Chul and shared his worries about Su Ah. Suddenly, Kang Chul asked Seung Hoon if something happens on Earth for no reason at all. Seung Hoon was at a loss. But Kang Chul continued by saying that even when they accept something as a coincidence, most often there is a reason behind it. Kang Chul started using magic. Seung Hoon was in a panic, but the guy quickly knocked him out. The cruel mechanisms of fate began to turn. Will Wu Jin be able to get out of them? Evening came, and Wu Jin came to the office and saw Seung Hoon lying on the floor. Min Chan and the hero started asking what happened. Seung Hoon started talking about how Kang Chul broke the restriction while he was talking nonsense, and after that, he doesn't remember anything. Seung Hoon also talked about Kang Chul's words about how nothing comes out of nowhere in the world. Wu Jin thought about it. So the guy meant that everything that happens has a cause and effect, even the fact that Su Ah was chosen to become a goddess. It seems that Wu Jin had a clue, but now he is lost again. Moonlight World is a group that supports Kim Kang Chul and an organization that Dr. Toppler is involved with. They claim to be on the same side as Wu Jin verbally, but they are quite cautious. They seem to be watching the hero from the shadows, continuing to keep their identity a secret. Wu Jin told Seung Hoon to leave and recover, and Min Chan to go after Kim Kang Chul. Wu Jin said to find a way by any means necessary, even if it means collaborating with someone from Korea or doing something else. It was 3 days before Ugin and his group were sent to Alphen. There are 12 days left to prepare for the expedition, according to Dungeon Time. Wu Jin entrusted the training of 23 new awakened women to Heiso. She told them that they would have a hellish 12-day training session aimed at achieving B rank. In addition to Heiseo's rigorous training, the skill books and enhancement stones generously provided by Ardal quickly accelerated their growth. And after successfully completing their training, they were collectively known as the Phantom Division and were organized under the command of General Heiso. And also, Janice's hellish preparations for the fortress had also reached their final stage. Now Janice says that Sungu already has something to look forward to. And Sungu has already fulfilled his dream of becoming a fire mage, but for some reason he was not happy. And now about Jaemin's situation. Following Wu Jin's advice, it seemed that he began to limit the abuse of his powers and began to control the power. Jaemin continued to bully the locals. Beck told him to stop fooling around and go quickly. Jaemin was too good, and apparently the dignity of the knight aristocrat was slightly lost. Looking at his city, Wu Jin said that it seems like everyone is more willing to trust others with things now. There is exactly 1 day left before leaving for Alphen. After the World Assembly of Guilds, the expedition to Alphen will begin. Meanwhile, Toppler was in his moon world. Some girl So-So brought him lunch. Lunch was as meager and strange as possible, to which Toppler said that he would not be able to eat even such porridge for long. This time he will ensure that he executes his plan without failure. The day of the World Assembly of Guilds has arrived. The heroes are in the port of Busan, South Korea. Looking at the aircraft carrier, Ha Min said that it was gorgeous. Ha Min was also told that this aircraft carrier is 280 meters long. Ha Min also asked the captain if he could handle him. The captain replied that there would be no problem with the aircraft carrier itself after the transfer, however, loading additional weapons, including ship-based aircraft and deployable pilots, would require a huge amount of money and time. Ha Min agreed. He wondered why Ujin needed this aircraft carrier at all, since they have a country with a small population. Suddenly, Ugin flew in on a dragon. Ha Min remembered that Wu Jin was supposed to have a general meeting with the guilds today, but the hero replied that he was just going to plant a tree and then immediately return. Ha Min is a little confused. Wu Jin asked about the man in uniform. He introduced himself and said that he was the new captain of the aircraft carrier, and his name was Park Gil-soo. Gil-soo is a formal naval colonel and has 6 months of experience on an aircraft carrier as an officer. Woo-jin liked that he was experienced and wanted to start working with him as soon as possible. Ha-min asked Woo-jin how he plans to manage this place now, since he has no planes or ships to escort him and lacks mounted weapons and manpower to manage it. In fact, now it is just a huge ship and nothing more. Woo-jin said that's the main thing. The main thing is that this is a huge moving ship. Ha-min was confused, but Woo-jin, on the contrary, was pleased. Ugin connected the 2 fragments of the dimension, and the creation of the base began. It's just like when the dragon built its nest on Namsan Tower. There are 24 hours left until the formation of Spatial Lord Kang Woo-jin's base is completed. At the moment, Seoul Station is surrounded by various dungeons and is very vulnerable. If you get robbed while you're in Ardal, it's all over because the portals back to Earth disappear. Yes, Seoul Station is moving to Alphen. At the same time, a general meeting was taking place in one of the hotels in Seoul. There, Min-chan thanked everyone for visiting and introduced himself to the guests. He said that he would briefly reveal the information about the fake ones that they discovered before the king arrived. The guild members were waiting outside. Hae-seo asked Seung-hoon if he had received any messages from Woo-jin. Seung-hoon just got a call, and Woo-jin said that he would come from Busan directly to the portal at Seoul Station. Hae-seo hoped that he would not be late. They also went to their places. Min-chan began to talk about why monsters appear. To begin with, those present must understand the Trinet, the interplanetary network. This allows materials to be transferred regardless of distance. Nothing is known yet about its origin. However, one thing is certain. The monsters that appear in dungeons are creatures from outer space. The Earth is already connected to outer space through the Trinet, and if full synchronization is completed in the future, stronger spatial lords and monsters will invade Earth. When that time comes, the Bloodstone business will not be the only problem. The survival of humanity will be at risk. One of the awakened ones stood up and asked what they should do, because the dungeons seemed to be protected by a barrier and could not be destroyed. Min-chan replied that this was true, and the dungeons really couldn't be destroyed, but they might be able to cut off the connection with Trinet. The man asked if there was a way, and then the long-awaited guest appeared, Ugin, who said that of course there is a way, and that is why he is going to Alphen, an ancient weapon hidden on the planet Alphen, Thresh's execution. If you find it and fill it out, you can forcibly disable the Trinet connection. Ugin also said that the reason everyone is gathered here is to ask all the guilds in the world to unite and protect the planet while Ugin is away. People began to discuss that such a weapon actually existed. One of the guys from the audience mockingly asked Ugin whether he was really going to Alphen to protect the Earth. The guy asked if Ardal still has a monopoly on information about dimension fragments, which allows him to own the dungeon. In his opinion, protecting the Earth is just a coincidence. In fact, it is not the intention to monopolize the huge profits from the Alphen dungeon. Ugin replied that there can be no talk of any profit while humanity is under threat of extinction. What he wants is simply to protect his family and the planet they live on. If the guy doesn't believe it, he can go to Alphen with Ugin. The hero said that the guy could go ahead and take a look, and he would follow him. The guy was a little scared. Woo-jin asked Min-chan to turn on the screen. San-ho showed up there, and Woo-jin began to say that this man, a representative of the Hwarang Guild, deliberately caused a dungeon breach at the instigation of the Spatial Lord. Because of this guy, monsters that couldn't come out normally in 30 days after restarting the dungeon came out in 1 day. As a result, Seoul and Darby suffered enormous damage. After this, the same method was used in dungeon busts that were happening simultaneously all over the world. But there were also a lot of crazy people besides that. An American criminal organization has successfully created an artificial dungeon. In the future, when synchronization ends and the apocalypse begins, there will be more and more traitors. Those who try to join the dimensional lords like Lee Sang-ho are traitors who sell the Earth to save their lives. And these people are talking about profit. If this doesn't happen, then there are no such people among those present. Woo-jin is sure that everyone should understand well that he said everything clearly. He will ask for the last time. Tomorrow morning, the warriors Ardala and Ugin will return to Alphen, and they will certainly return back after finding a way to save the Earth. Until this moment, the awakened must join forces and protect the planet. All this time, Murdy was with Su-ah. Finally, there was only Leno left for her before they went to Alphen. She wondered whether the Allied forces could hold their own against the Trinet Corps commanders. Suddenly, incredible energy began to float in the air. Su-ah began to float in the air. This was the coming of God. Woo-jin immediately arrived at the hospital. He asked if everything was okay since Su'a had no reaction, even though God had awakened. Murdy replied that, fortunately, the synchronization is stable. They just need to wait until they get a reaction from the girl. Wu Jin asked Su'a, or rather the god inside her, about his name. He wanted him to introduce himself. God replied that he was wondering what name the grain that had just been born on the planet might have. Wu Jin was puzzled by this answer. He asked whether there had been no god on the planet before. The god inside Su'a replied that although this is the first time they are meeting, they have known each other for a very long time. After a whole paragraph in the story, they meet again in this way. Wu Jin didn't understand what he was talking about and asked him to explain it to him in clear words. God replied that the essence gave birth to manifestations, and people only recognize this phenomenon. The endless reparations of the history of lies are again coming to an end. A story of lies? God asked Ugin if he would be salted to end this endless cycle. He will watch him. Suddenly, Su'a woke up and recognized her brother. The girl said that she had a dream. Wu Jin told her not to say anything and just rest. Fortunately, Su'a accepted God well, and there were no problems. But if something went wrong, her body and mind could be damaged. After all, Su'a is the seat of God. It's too much to be a coincidence. Wu Jin told Min-chan to move all employees, their families, and equipment to the carrier as planned. Also, the hero asked Min-chan to keep an eye on Su'a while he was away. Even if he loses everything, the girl must be protected. A man wanted to see what progress had been made in public disclosure, but was told that entry was prohibited. He began to say that 10 years had passed since he had been working here, and couldn't he even look in a little bit? Suddenly, director Lee Sang-ho arrived and asked what was the matter. The man explained to him that he just wanted to look at the progress of the structure, but the watchman wouldn't let him in. Sang-ho asked why the man wanted to know this. He replied that it was not surprising to be curious about this, since he had been here for 10 years, but had never done such renovations. Suddenly, Lee Sang-ho sighed and said that he would show everything. They started walking around the construction site. The man said that they can communicate well since Sang-ho is the director. He said that he was sure of good intentions, but still, it was a valuable natural monument. The man also added that this may be his anger, but he is also worried that the monument may be damaged. Sang-ho said that he understands him well. Suddenly, the man heard some growling and alarmedly asked the director about it. But Sang-ho pretended that he didn't understand anything. The man said they might have been bats. The mice killed the poor man. Sang-ho switched to his real appearance and said that there is no point in someone coming to a place where they can't even defend themselves. Sang-ho arrived to his Lord Yellow and began to worship him, expressing his respect. The Lord asked about Ugin. Sang-ho said that they are building a base on a huge moving ship. Once completed, it is expected that the base will be moved somewhere else. Yellow said they were probably trying to free themselves from the dungeons. It's a headache. Sang-ho also said that they are going to go on an expedition to Alphen with the awakened ones from Ardal. The Lord understood everything, so Wu Jin tries to find the hidden code. Sang-ho was at a loss. Yellow said that everything is going as it should. While Ugin is not on Earth, he must find the Earth God and kill him. Meanwhile, Ugin and his team were already near Alphen. It had been a long time since he had inhaled the aroma of this place. Sungu asked if this was Alphen, since the place looked too run down. Wu Jin replied that the place couldn't look normal after a war that lasted 200 years. The hero asked Murdy where they were. She said they were in the western part of the Ra'ata Plateau. If they go northwest from here, they will reach Ardal. If you go north, you can find the land of the Allied forces. But Murdy doesn't know what it will be now. But Wu Jin said there was no need to worry after forcing him to go that far. Ugin said that they must go to the lands of the Allied forces. We moved to the Southern Alphen League. There people were running away from a huge number of evil mantises. The hero Tauren, a monk who worships the tempter god Skia, told everyone to get up and run away. He told the people to leave the canyon to join the heroes. Suddenly, a praying mantis was waiting for Tauren from behind. When the monster began to attack him, he took up the weapon and overpowered it. They were really tough. As Tauren and the boy ran, they saw a strange crowd ahead. Why are they still standing here? And then Tauren realized that the retreat road was already blocked. The boy, in a panic, called Tauren and showed that Kadi was a whole flock of mantises. The monk began to call on his god Skia. But then someone started shooting the praying mantises. The counts and the elven lord have arrived. The people are saved. The eyes said that all the people looked exhausted. It will be difficult to move in the current state. The monk asked Graham about his attack on Goshusha's base, as well as about the others. Graham, one of the heroes and the best fire mage, responded that the strategy was a failure. The surviving colleagues are now scattered and trying to save nearby residents. Elven Lord Etasha, one of the heroines of the unification, said that when the situation is like this, all that remains is to take the remaining survivors and go to a new place. They have no choice but to leave this place. Torin thought that since they failed to destroy Goshush's base, is there any other way? Suddenly the heroes heard a scream. It turned out to be Ferris. Their location has been revealed. Everyone was in a panic. Ferris is a giant air monster, reaching 500 meters in length. Its huge body is a threat in itself, but even more dangerous is the fact that it functions as a transport ship for monsters. The mantises that were on Ferris began to fly towards the heroes. Graham told Turin that they must leave immediately. Itasha also said that they should at least retreat, and they won't be able to save everyone. If they flee while protecting the inhabitants, the heroes will also be destroyed. This is what stopped Taurine. One boy approached the monk and asked if they would die. And then Taurin told Graham and Itasha that the two of them could go, but he would stay and protect the people as best he could. They said that they couldn't lose Monk Skia like that, and that their common goal was actually to survive and protect Alphen. But the monk objected, saying that his goal was not to save their lives now, but to protect these children. Even if death awaits him in the end, it means that Skia has prepared such a fate for him. Graham came to his senses and said that he was sorry for thinking only about his survival under the threat of great danger. He also added that he cannot call himself a hero if he turns a blind eye to his fellow countrymen and simply runs away. He offered to fight together until the end. They asked Itasha's opinion. She said that since the Blood Oath, people have also been her countrymen. She too will join them. Taurine was pleasantly surprised. Graham said that they had been talking too long and it was time to fight the enemy. Wujin also saw Ferris. This was his first time seeing something so big. It will be fun to catch something after a long time. Therefore, he began to attack Ferris. Graham, Itasha, and Taurine saw a powerful explosion in the sky. They also felt some kind of vibration. They decided to take a good look around. And then Itasha noticed an army of skeletons and death knights. She didn't understand why the Immortals' army was here. Graham said that the army of death, which had not been seen for some time, had appeared. This is truly a dilemma. Taurine said it couldn't just be a miracle. Itasha said it was more of an opportunity. They must get out of here while the army of death and Goshush's minions fight among themselves. Suddenly, they heard a terribly familiar voice. It was Wu Jin with Murdy. He said that he had not seen the heroes of the Union for a long time. Taurine was perplexed that of all times he met with the Immortals right now. And he also did not understand why the missing saint was with him. Taurine angrily asked Ugin if he had kidnapped the saint. Murdy replied that there was no kidnapping and apologized for being late. She said that she had brought reinforcements from Earth to protect Alphen. Graham asked what she meant. Murdy said that the Immortal decided to help them restore Alphen. Taurine could not understand why the Taken One was telling such an obvious lie that the Immortal Slaughterer would help Alphen. Is the Immortal really with the saint? Taurine was furious and thought that Ugin not only kidnapped the saint, but also turned her into an undead. Is Ugin trying to absorb Alphen using her? Murdy began to stop him, saying that he understood everything wrong and she was alive, and the Immortal really wanted to help them. But Wu Jin said there was no need to bother with explanations. But Taurine was incredibly angry and continued to attack Ugin, saying that as long as he was separated from his army of death, there was a great opportunity to destroy him. Ugin decided that since words would not solve this, he must act by force and attacked Taurine in response. Graham also got angry and said that Wu Jin was just an immortal bastard. He was ready to attack him. Graham used his teleportation skill to get behind the hero, and then his firepower. He intended to kill him, but Ugin repelled all attacks with his mastery of the bow. Itasha saw how strong Ugin was and did not understand what was happening. No matter how strong the Immortal was, he was also a necromancer, as she remembered. How can he deal with the heroes with just a few words? Itasha pointed her dagger at Wu Jin, and he asked her if she wanted to fight too, or if she thought he would stop just because she said so. Itachi couldn't stand it and threw the dagger. The hero told Merli to heal the wounded, and they would try to explain everything clearly to them when they were in shape. Ugin asked if the monsters were Gashushu's minions. His fortress must be nearby. Wu Jin decided to help. The hero arrived at the fortress of the spatial lord Goshushu, the place where lightning shoots. The smitten lord said that the shameless one had arrived. Wu Jin asked him why he was acting so friendly. The lord replied that he was building borders and was not going to invade Ugin's territory as before. The hero asked what he should do if he wants to take this entire planet for himself. And suddenly the lord asked Ugin whether Alphen's codes were his goal. Ugin asked about what codes are, because someone talked about some kind of codes on the planet Jakku. The lord understood, apparently. Ugin wants to help the inhabitants of the planet, not knowing about the code. The hero asked to tell him more about the codes, but the Lord did not want to do this. Therefore, Ujin quickly dealt with him, since he wants to force the hero to ask 20 times. Wujin couldn't understand what these codes were, since everyone was keeping it so secret. Sungu and Jaemin approached Wujin. Wujin asked them if they cleared the bottom floor as well. They answered yes, and asked if Ujin had cleared all the paths from below. Wujin said that these monsters are at the entry level. Since they have completely cleared this place, we can move on. Murdy treated the heroes. Taurine recognized this divine energy of the goddess Arya. He also said that if she simply followed the immortal, she would of course lose her abilities. All the heroes apologized to the saint for misunderstanding her. She thanked them and said that she was grateful for their faith in her. Even after this, Ugin came and asked Taurine if his head had cooled a little. He asked the hero why he left them alive. Taurine was referring to why Ugin is helping the alliance. And the hero replied that their interests simply converge. The heroes were seriously surprised by this. Wujin said that their common enemy is known as Tranit. The boy asked Murdy if this guy was a hero. She replied that she wasn't sure, but it was certain that he was the one who would take big risks to save them. Itasha said that she still doesn't trust him. Murdy thought about the prediction and what it meant. She said that there was no need to worry about the immortal even after hearing the prediction, but perhaps saving Alphen might not lead to his death. The day came when the Gushush army was defeated by Kang Ujin. We find ourselves in a village where refugees have gathered. Khonshu, the young king of Khonshu Kingdom, said that he couldn't believe it. No matter what it costs to eliminate Trinet, the devil who manipulates the dead is with them. In the hands of this evil spirit, millions of their Honshu soldiers became ghosts who were not allowed to die. Khan said angrily that an alliance with a man like this was impossible. The orc leader Kurga, on whether Ugin's real intentions are something else. Even if he is sincere, if the situation changes, he will betray the king even tomorrow. The king of the dwarfs, Raoul, said that this was true and that it was like leaving fish to the cat. Murdy came into the tent and said there was one thing they needed to know. She said that the immortal is not a devil, not a person possessed by evil, but an ordinary person, no different from them. Everyone said that this couldn't happen, and apparently Arya's joke had gone too far. Murdy replied that it was not a joke. She arrived on Earth at the direction of the goddess. There she saw Wujin's true inside, which was misunderstood. On Earth he was incredibly angry and cruel, but it was all about his family and colleagues and defending the weak. First of all, the goddess Arya revealed that he is the savior. Therefore they must believe in him and stick together. Khan said that this is nonsense and Arya cannot make predictions like this. Suddenly Wujin came in and asked what they were doing behind his back. He thought they were swearing at him. He said that was why they suddenly pretended to be friends after the battle. He said it was just an alliance. Everyone has their own grievances. Heroes aren't the only ones who want this. Wujin is also ready to bury his grievances. They just need to think about Trinet. Ugin also said that they can attack him, and if he turns him into an enemy after Trinet, then the end of Alphen will be obvious. Khans was outraged, but thought about it, looked at the others and said that he understood and they would form this alliance. In that case, they need to prepare a strategy to protect Alphen. The first is the construction of a fortress to protect Alphen. Sungu and Jaemin prepared a huge amount of food for the villagers. They were very grateful to the Earthlings. They also invited Wujin to eat with them since the meeting was over, but Wujin refused and told the guys to make friends with the heroes. And Ujin, in turn, left and said that he was going to finish the job and would return soon. Ugin arrived at Mount Soros, south of Alphen. This is the place the guys from the association were talking about. Kurga showed this mountain on the map. With the exception of the main mountain, the surrounding area is clear. It's easy to expose yourself to enemies here. There are wide open spaces around the mountain. Khan said it might be easy to defend because the terrain is high, but if you think about supplies, it's a place where it's easy to be isolated when attacked. And Ujin needs to choose a good place to protect himself, and Khans suggested a deep canyon and showed it on the map. Ugin answered no, and said that they did not need to build a shelter, but an expanded fortress for a counterattack. A good place for this would be Soros Mountain. But Kurga told the immortal that there were bigger problems than just location. It turns out that Mount Soros is already under Trinet control. This is also one of the 72 great monarchs. Wujin wondered who it was, but he never expected to see familiar faces. And it turns out that it was Uriel. Uriel said that it is difficult to understand why to participate in such an expendable fight between the dimensional lords due to some resentment. Uriel said that their spatial lord is immortal, and there is no reason in battle to kill each other because of some personal feelings. Wujin decided to try to talk about codes. He asked Uriel what if they were going to get Alphen's codes. Uriel thought that perhaps Ugin's ultimate goal was to dominate Alphen, but in that case, the approach was wrong. The Alphen code does not yet have a spatial lord. Perhaps Alphen must be hidden somewhere deep inside. Uriel asked about hunting planetary creatures in search of him instead of fighting among the dimensional lords. Udin thought, and it seems to him that the code is something that gives power over the planet. This is weird. Why then did Toppler advise collecting code to rule several planets? There must be some other purpose for the codes other than planetary control. Uriel said that beings like them in the upper echelons prove their worth through dominance. Ugin just woke up as a lord. Wujin said he's not interested in domination, but that could be a different story. Uriel was quite surprised. Uriel realized that Wujin was talking about a hidden code. He came to Alphen to chase the real thing. Wujin asked if there really is such a thing as a hidden code. Uriel replied that, of course. Each code has different privileges. Alphen's hidden code is transmitted only as a legend. Suddenly, Uriel realized that the hero did not know anything about the code. Wujin said he wouldn't have discussed this with him if he had known. Uriel was furious that Wujin dared to mock him. Wujin said that if he had used teleportation magic, he could have found out and dug it all out. But it's a pity that Bibi didn't come. And Bibi has her own tasks to deal with. On the aircraft carrier, Bibi was drawing something and Su'a became interested. After she moved here, she also tried to draw a new Ardal sign. She tried really hard. But Bibi was worried about something. She didn't know how to decorate the place. She decorated the castle well, but she had never seen anything like this aircraft carrier. Su'a wanted to help and Bibi asked her if she knew what aircraft carriers do. Su'a said that he knows the plane. She thinks aircraft carrier means airplane, it's just that the words are a little more complicated. Bibi considered this logical and decided that an aircraft carrier was a flying ship. She began to thank Su'a and Bibi now knows what to do. Bibi began to look for something and Min-chan watched this carefully. Bibi was inspired and concentrated, and suddenly, she found someone to repair the aircraft carrier. It was Nosam, who arrived at Bibi's request. Nosam is a dwarf technician from the Black Mines tribe, expert in magical mechanical devices and construction. Min-chan was panicked that Bibi wanted to repair something. She said that how would the Ardala base work if it just floats in the sea? She needs a proper renovation. Min-chan was at a loss. He asked if a flying aircraft carrier was possible. Nosam said that people do not know anything about dwarfs. Nosam said that there was nothing that the dwarves could not fix with their technology. Min-chan didn't know what to do, because the aircraft carrier was not broken immediately after its acquisition, and suddenly 4 portals appeared on the deck. Bibi said that the master must have made a base in Alphen. This means that everything worked out for Wujin, and this made Min-chan and Bibi happy. Then, Min-chan said that they would prepare the next team. Meanwhile, Mount Saurus, which had defeated Uriel, welcomed its new master. Taurine asked why an immortal should own the world tree. Ujin said that there is no need to attach importance to this, because it is just a symbol of the fortress. Murdy said that this is how the first base formed by the alliance between the Union and Ardal was created. She suggested painting the banner of the Immortal, the Federation, and Ardal. Wujin liked the idea and told them to carry the flags to show that the Alphen unification was blossoming. The flag of Alphen was set up and Ugin wanted the same with the flag of Ardal. But Ujin was confused by what he saw. The once formidable symbol of Ardal, who was terrifying, is now just a cat. Wujin realized that Bibi had registered her cat as a symbol. Apparently Bibi manages the base well, and she and Nosam worked tirelessly. The heroes completed the formation of the alliance with Alphen and provided the base with everything, including protection. Now Ugin needs to collect Thresh's full set of things. Ugin asked Murdy whether the first priest, Lysias, was still alive. For some reason, Murdy began to mumble. Wujin demanded to speak. Murdy said sadly that this high priest Lysias confronted the immortal army 5 years ago. Wujin remembered that he killed him. He's been crossed so many times that he can't even remember them all. Murdy also didn't know if there were any heirs, because she hadn't been to Alphen for a long time, but someone still had to take power. Suddenly, Itasha announced that the first priest who inherited the holy relics of Lycia was located in Linta City in northern Alphen. Ugin saw that Itasha was aware of the whereabouts of the first priest. Itasha asked why Ugin needed a priest. The hero said that he really needed his help to save Alphen. Wujin told Murdy to stay here and defend the base with the others while he went to look for the first priest. He also said that Itasha was going to Linta City with him. Itasha was in shock and did not know why she should accompany Ujin. But the hero put pressure on her, asking if she wanted to save Alphen and if she wanted to help. They quickly set off. Meanwhile, Murdy informed the Alliance that the Immortal had gone in search of the first priest of Lycia. The heroes began to talk among themselves about the fact that Ugin, perhaps, was again trying to steal the holy relics of the god of Lycia, and whether his desire to collect holy relics was still the same. Murdy objected and said that it was not like that at all. Now that they have officially formed an alliance with the Federation, this will no longer happen before. Taurine began to remember himself when he was 16. Lycia was exhausted and Taurine ran to him to help. Lysias told Taurin to prepare from that day on for the position of first priest in his place. Taurin was furious and asked what this meant, because Lycia was alive and how he could do this. But Lysias said that the holy relic was stolen by an immortal. Namely, Wujin stole Skia's shoes. From that moment on, Taurin was incredibly angry with the hero. He wanted to be sure to repay him for the humiliation that his master suffered. This happened, and after 3 years, he inherited the position of the first priest and received a new holy relic from Skia. However, all the associated relics of the 5 gods were destroyed, and now, after all this, they have formed an alliance with the Immortal. The promise of revenge on the Immortal became meaningless. Taurine told everyone to calm down. He said that he did not know why the Immortal wanted to visit the first priest, but one who took all the sacred relics of their ancestors, he would not necessarily desire sacred objects again. Besides, as Murdy said, they are now in the same alliance. Ujin and Itasha arrived at the place, Lintu City. There was a city under the lake. Itasha said that Lintu City is the last city of the Union, hidden under the lake. Even the Lord of the Trinet dimension cannot invade. Only Lycia's chosen ones can enter. Itasha said that she also cannot go to the hidden city since she is not allowed, but the surveillance ship on Linta Island should be able to see them. Suddenly, Itasha noticed that now there would be 49 people with whom they would communicate. But Ujin didn't listen to anything or anyone and started walking. Itasha tried to stop him. Wujin asked how many years she was going to wait. Let him just cast the water-breathing spell and go. Itasha tried to warn that they would not return alive if they entered the territory without permission. But Wujin didn't listen to anyone and still touched the water, and there was a huge splash. Itasha said that this is the end. Since ancient times, 17 dragons have been guarding Lake Linta, and now they are out. Wujin said that these dragons look different from the ones he knows. And then Itasha said in horror that the dragon's breath was coming. The dragons try to kill the heroes with their terrifying breath. This breath left a huge dent in the ground, and Ujin took Itasha by the collar and they flew away. She was shocked that they managed to survive. Wujin said that even a Dimension Lord would have difficulty entering. He never thought that such creatures were revealed under the lake. Itasha said in a panic that they needed to leave as quickly as possible, because the water dragons were about to come out. But Ujin was calm as always. He asked if the water dragons could fly and reach them, to which Itasha answered yes. He mockingly said that since they would fly, they could simply be called dragons. Itasha asked Ujin to get ready, and then, suddenly, that same terrifying dragon appeared on their way. And with every second, there were more and more of them. But Ugin managed to maneuver away from them. He said that with this level of power, these dragons must give the strongest of the water creatures. The hero thought about turning them into his death knights. The dragon's breath was released into them again. Sungu and Murdy stood at the base. He said that it had been almost a day since Wujin left, so the base should be completed soon. But Murdy was worried. She said that perhaps Wujin is not as justified in trusting the goddess as he seems. Sun Gu began to calm the saint down, saying that this is Wujin and there will be no problems there because he is very strong. He is confident that the boss will somehow save both Alphen and Earth. Sun Gu trusts Wujin even more than God. Murdy was amazed at this level of trust in Wujin. She knew that Wujin was just an ordinary person, and Sun Gu liked to embellish everything. Meanwhile, Ujin and Itasha had already been saved, and she began to come to her senses. She began to ask about what happened, because she was sure that there was a dragon's breath there. Wujin replied that he blocked him. Because of the shock wave, it was carried right up to the edge of the forest. Ugin said that dragons must have been guarding Lake Linta since ancient times, since blocking one attack consumes a huge number of souls. Itasha started screaming that she had warned her and that she should just wait for the people from Linta to arrive. But Wujin didn't listen and told her that if she was ready, they could move out. Itasha realized that the hero wanted to try his luck with the water dragons again and said that it was reckless. Wujin said that if you don't try, you won't know. Although 17 dragons is quite stressful, Ugin is not himself, so they went to the same place. But Ugin had already called his death knights. Janice said that it had been a while since he had hunted a dragon, and he didn't mind calling it friend. Ugin said that summoning the dragon would not take too long. It would be a good idea to prepare your friends in advance. Another Ugin knight said that they would get 17 friends at a time. This stupid guy probably won't bother remembering all the names. Itasha sees how the elite conscripts of the immortal are terrifying. She doesn't believe that he will actually catch ancient water dragons. Suddenly, Ugin saw that one dragon was coming towards him, but not at all aggressively. Suddenly, a guy approached Ugin on a dragon and asked if he was immortal. It turned out to be the assistant to the first priest of Lycia. He went out without Wujin even calling him. The priest said that if he could protect Linta with just one sacrifice, then he should definitely do it. The assistant said that the loss of a divine relic is the same as death for the first priest. He handed Ugin Lycia's gloves and asked him to accept them. The priest knew everything. Lycia's gloves are the gloves of the deity Lycia. They have a mystical power that gives birth to all degenerate seed and allows the fruit to be harvested. Ugin received gloves, which are the main component of Thresh's set. Skia Ugin got his boots from that girl Leah. He received the cloak in the village of Rati. If you take away the remaining divine relics of Arya and Harris, then Ugin will regain his former power. It's been a day since Wujin left. Kurga said that as Ugin said, they built a fortress in Soros, but the anxiety does not leave him. Perhaps the forces of Tranit have already heard about Soros. Khans said that at such a time when the immortal is absent, if the forces immediately attack them, they will be defenseless. Tauren said that they absolutely lack the manpower and equipment to build protective equipment. He wondered what Wujin's plan was. Just then, they saw Ugin and Itasha in the sky. He was on time, and one of the heroes suggested finding a solution together. Sungu and Murdy met Wujin. The hero told them that everything went well and he also received the relic. Khans was furious and asked what was the point of collecting relics, which went against the alliance. Wujin understood that they needed him and they weren't going anywhere. Itasha said that Lycia himself ordered that the relic be given to the immortal. Ugin then asked his assistant how the priest knew that he would come for the relic. The assistant spoke Lycia's words. If the hero gives up the treasure, his wishes will be fulfilled. It turns out that Lycia himself said that the immortal is Alphen's savior. Kurga and Tauren asked if Ugin would then also take Skia's treasure. Wujin replied that he already had it, but Ugin asked why he didn't see Arya's divine object then. Murdy remembered that after the immortal took the relics of his predecessors, she wanted to see the main priest and went to the main temple. However, the land where the main temple is located was already among the enemy camp. Wujin was angry that Murdy was still an inferior saint who did not receive the relic. Wujin said that everything is fine, and he will find her for Murdy. Suddenly, a notification came that the creation of the database was completed. A gate was created to the spatial dimension of Ardala, to the first exit of Sol Station, to the aircraft carrier, and to travel to the village of Rot. They have successfully created the gate. Preparations for the creation of Thresh's set are also going well, so now their allied duties can be carried out. Suddenly, walls and a road began to be built. Ugin did all this, and the rest of the Union members were shocked. So, Ugin built buildings, infrastructure, and so the village was built. At this point, the work is almost complete. Of the 900,000 points, 220,000 were used. The Union members fell to their knees and began to bow to Wujin. He didn't understand what they were doing. Khans began to say that he saw the miracle of God of creation and that Ugin was not immortal, but God. The guy also apologized for doubting him. Wujin ordered them to quickly stand up. Wujin replied that he is not God or anything like that. This is simply an ability he can use as a dimension lord, limited by the fortress. Suddenly, Ugin saw that his points were halved. He couldn't understand how it happened because he didn't spend it. Suddenly, a portal appeared, from which Haiso, Blanca, and the others came out. Wujin said that they came quickly and asked if anything happened on Earth. Haiso said that there were no breakthroughs, and it was basically quiet. They waited on the aircraft carrier and arrived as soon as the gates opened. If the Earth is safe, then the points are then used in the measurement. Did Dimension Lord Kiba really say that the situation was so urgent that he had to use a large number of points? Haeseo said that something is broken on the aircraft carrier, and it is being repaired on a large scale. She doesn't know what it is, but Prime Minister Jun was alarmed. Other than that, nothing bad. But Wujin replied that he checked, and everything was fine, without any problems. He asked Haeseo who told her this, and this was Bibi. Apparently Wujin knows who used the glasses. Ugin told the heroes that he would go to Earth for a while and let them clear out the monsters around. Arriving here, the joyful Bibi led Wujin along, and there he saw that the aircraft carrier was now flying. Nosam is not a person, so it was difficult to simply fix it, and BB simply attached a floating stone so that the aircraft carrier began to fly. But BB still has a lot more to show Wu Jin. BB led Wu Jin to the Situation Room. Since the original earthly objects cannot be controlled with magic, BB replaced them all. BB also attached a magic cannon that can shoot in all directions. In addition to the attack, BB even cast a barrier spell surrounding the aircraft carrier. It launches automatically when it detects an enemy attack. And besides this, BB said that they are also developing new weapons. Wu Jin said that there is no point in spending extra money, but BB is still great, because the place where his family is the most important of all. He told her to keep it up from now on. Suddenly a message appeared that there had been a breakthrough at Daejeong Station. Wu Jin said that this is not a problem but a great opportunity. He wants to test the aircraft carrier's new features. BB was ready to show everyone the power of BB Castle properly. A huge number of monsters were coming to the city, including crabs and turtles. One of the guys wanted to get into the rescue vehicle, but couldn't and twisted his leg. And then a huge crab appears behind him. Rati, fortunately, helped him. And the city was attacked by a huge fire turtle. He said that people are interesting creatures with such a level of fiery power and technology in a world without magic. And then, with his breath, he began to destroy everything in his path. He is the owner of the Baratu space, descendant of the decadent dragon. Although he has lost his wings, he has a gigantic body that is larger than a dragon and extremely strong. He has enormous defense against magical and physical attacks. Wu Jin and BB started attacking him from the sky from an aircraft carrier, but it had no effect. He decided that he needed the dragon's breath to destroy its shell. BB became incredibly angry that Baratu was laughing at her invention and began to use the full power of her magic. BB told all passengers to defend themselves and prepare for blows. Baratu tried to attack back, but his strength was not enough to break through the barrier of BB Castle. Now it was their turn to attack. She uses BB's breath to attack. Baratu continued to mock and did not believe that anyone could defeat him. The attack was so powerful that Barata was simply sawed in half. Even Wu Jin was shocked by it all. He admitted that BB's invention was a wonderful thing. But suddenly they heard a strange sound, and all the lights went out. BB said that she accidentally used all the energy sources, including the spare ones. And now the aircraft carrier simply began to fall. They needed to do something urgently. Ugin received a notification that magic could be naturally recharged or replaced by the Lord's magical power. Ujin, of course, chose a replacement, and thank God the aircraft carrier was saved from falling. But it was close. Wu Jin was angry and BB promised to be more careful next time. Min Chan and the captain almost died. Wu Jin can talk about the situation on deck without even looking at it. Suddenly Rati appeared on the screen and said that all the members of their tribe had returned. Wu Jin asked about the people on deck. Rati said they brought in people who were unable to evacuate due to injuries. Only the Earth God's miracle could help them, so BB brought Su-Ah to them. San-Ho couldn't find out who the new god of the earth was. But Lord Yellow threatened him, so he had to do it no matter what. His assistant showed him that Kang Wu-Jin's aircraft carrier had recently appeared during the Daejeong breakthrough. It seems that the wounded on it are receiving treatment, but the situation is still not normal. But Sang-Ho was watching the news, and there that same guy was talking about an incredible sight, how a girl prayed, and even a man who had lost his arm was regenerated. It said that she was a true angel on earth. Sang-Ho couldn't believe his eyes that she was such an angel girl who regenerated her whole arm. Sang-Ho was glad that he had finally found what he was looking for, the Earth God. Now he will be able to follow Yellow's instructions. BB Castle stood in Aradal City near Seoul Station. BB Castle, which made a name for itself at Daejeong Station, attracted a lot of people's attention. They filmed and did not believe that there was a flying ship that hovered in the sky and defeated all the monsters in Daejeong. The fusion of the magic of another world and modern technology has created great curiosity among people. The impressive force displayed at Daejeong Station seemed to offer hope for overcoming the current crisis. However, there was also a difficult prospect. Ardal held a press conference. There, the man was talking about how the Prime Minister had mentioned today that they would respond to the dungeon breach by deploying an aircraft carrier. Currently, it is seen that most of Ardal's personnel have migrated to the aircraft carrier. Some suspect that Ardal, by deploying the aircraft carrier, is trying to leave Seoul and achieve survival on his own. It's like a modern version of Noah's Ark. Min Chang was asked what he thought about this. He replied that this suspicion was not worthy of an answer. Min Chang said that BB Castle is not an ark, but a strategic fortress. Ardal will lead the battle at the breakout site using BB Castle. The man asked if this meant protecting all of Korea. Min Chang said that he might have caused a little misunderstanding. Their Ardal will rush to where help is needed to conquer monsters, but the goal is not only Korea, but the whole world. People began to discuss that Ardal would be traveling abroad and what would happen if a large dungeon broke out while Ardal was away. One of the men began to ask if this was not too dangerous a statement, since King Kangwoo Jin also went to Alphen, and if he goes abroad, he is interested in what will happen to Korea then. They think that in this case, South Korean citizens may be in danger. Min Chan expected this reaction after all. He decided to clarify everything. Min Chang said South Korea should abandon the complacent idea of relying solely on Ardal. The country must protect itself, and they are only here to help. He confidently stated that Ardal's goal was not only to protect Korea, but also the entire Earth. Later, all the news was filled with a recent press conference. Seong-hoon brought Min Chan some coffee to give him some rest and relaxation. Min Chang said that it is difficult when people do not understand Ardal's sincerity because they are doing their best to save the Earth in every possible way. But Seong-hoon replied that it was not that important. He recalled that Woo Jin once said that a world without a country, where even morality would collapse, was on the horizon. Min Chan asked if Seong-hoon was okay. Min Chang said that humanity is collapsing in the face of impending disasters. Seong-hoon said that there was no need for them to talk about protecting humanity, and advised them to concentrate on fulfilling their duties, like Woo Jin. It was as if Min Chan was doused with cold water and thanked Seong-hoon. Otherwise, he was burdened with a huge sense of responsibility without even realizing it. As Sung-gu said, they should just trust and follow their boss, Woo Jin. Meanwhile, Woo Jin and Murdy were heading to Arya's temple. Woo Jin's ears were itching, and he decided that someone was talking about him. Murdy suggested taking a break. Woo Jin at first refused, since they had a long journey ahead. But then, looking at the tired Murdy, he decided to still feel sorry for her. They stopped in the forest. Ugin told his servant to scout the area for any dungeons or bases, and Woo Jin himself bought a table with food at the store and offered Murdy a quick snack. Murdy said that even outside the fortress, the immortal still exhibits the power of creation. Woo Jin noted that this is not a creation, but a purchase. Come to think of it, Murdy probably doesn't know about his achievement store passive skill. Murdy asked if a person who can reproduce the miracles of the gods is considered God. Woo Jin asked about what God is according to Murdy. The one who creates bread or a building at the snap of a finger, or who predicts will be with exceptional insight, like Arya. Woo Jin replied that he was not God or anything like that. Perhaps the beings they know as gods are also slightly peculiar beings slightly different from them. Murdy was shocked by such disrespect. But Woo Jin said to think about it seriously. Soon Murdy will come face to face with the goddess he serves. 2 days have passed since Woo Jin and Murdy went in search of Arya's relic. We moved to Soros, the walled city. Jae-min walked around the fortified city and noticed that it was surprisingly quiet there. Although they have cleared everything of monsters near Soros, it is still difficult. Are they lazy and waiting for Woo Jin to come back? Jae-min is already looking forward to returning to Earth. He doesn't understand how Woo Jin lived here for 20 years all alone. Suddenly, a panicked Sun-gu appeared and told Jae-min that the union members were urgently looking for them. Khans thanked everyone for coming right now, despite the urgent request. The reason for the urgent meeting is that there has been a change in the enemy's movement recently, and they need to come up with measures against it. Jae-min asked if something happened. Tavern replied that according to intelligence reports, a large number of monsters are gathering on the southern narrow plateau. The problem is that not only does the Alliance control the plateau, but also the forces of Sirak, Fatu, and Leia are joining forces. Sun-gu asked who they were and whether they were strong. Khans replied that each of them is a terrible opponent. Even Vunon, the commander of the 36th Legion, is a being on a different level than the typical dimensional lord. Ithaca said that this was strange, because recently the spatial lords had been acting quite independently, but now they suddenly decided to join forces. Khans said there seems to be only one reason that can be thought of. A new source of power has recently appeared on Alphen. Everyone began to understand what was going on. Everyone understood everything correctly. From their point of view, their most troublesome enemy, the Immortal, had returned, forcing them to join forces. Raoul said that it would be difficult to defend the castle without the Immortal, and they must find a new shelter. Grapham agreed, because from the very beginning Soros was too weak to defend himself from his enemies. They need to move their base as they are in danger of being isolated. Sun-gu shouted that they couldn't do this and leave their base so easily. Itasha agreed with him, saying that they could not leave the World Tree. The counts replied to the elf that calling it a World Tree is a bit of a misnomer. since it is simply a symbol created by Ugin. Itasha confidently said that this is definitely a world tree and she will not refuse it. Raoul sighed and said that there was no other way. Wu Non is a high-level commander in charge of 36 locations. Maybe if it were immortal, but they can't wrap their heads around them. Itasha said that it would be nice if Wu Jin was here. Jae-min said he could contact him. Everyone was immediately happy because they didn't know that Jae-min had such an ability. Now they might have a chance if the immortal returns. Jae-min will contact him. He has become one of Wu Jin's vassals. The guy started contacting him, calling him, but for some reason Wu Jin didn't answer. Jae-min was a little upset. It was strange that Jae-min couldn't contact him. This is the first time this has happened. Taurine asked if there was any other way. Jae-min hopefully said that he would try again a little later. Khan's cleared his throat and asked everyone to listen to him. This is a difficult time for everyone. Khan said the decision was made largely by Wu Jin, but they all agreed to set up a base here at Soros. This is a base they made knowing this could happen. They cannot afford to simply get scared and run away due to slight movements of the enemy. Itasha said Khan's was right. While they are preparing the fort and gathering nearby allied factions, it cannot be said that they cannot defend themselves. In addition, Ardal is their ally. If they can't even defend this place before Ujin arrives, then there's no point in the alliance. Raoul said that we need to wait for the moment when Wu Jin returns. He looked at everyone and said that we need to try. Khan's was pleased and said that he would accept this as universal agreement. From this point on, they will begin to plan a defensive strategy. Meanwhile, Wu Jin and Murdy were in some dark area with sticky, oil-like earth. Ugin said that the whole earth is rotten. This place is the land of the goddess Arya, the land of the dead. Ujin was annoyed and did not understand why Arya built a temple in such a place. Murdy replied that the goddess had never been against asceticism, and that is why she placed herself in this type. Wu Jin told her not to make things up. Murdy started saying that she didn't come up with it, but it was passed on. Wu Jin replied that just because words have meaning, that doesn't make them true. He told her to think about the subject of the gods one last time, but apparently she didn't take it seriously. And suddenly Ugin noticed some kind of black block. They finally arrived at the place, at the temple of Arya. He was surprised that this flying machine was a temple to Arya. Since Wu Jin was surprised, he asked Murdy if they were in the right place. But she also didn't know since it was her first time here. Suddenly the ship's doors opened. Apparently this means they can come in. Wu Jin said that they will find out everything when they go inside. They entered and saw a large, spacious room. Wu Jin wanted to check out what this place was like. But suddenly Ugin noticed that his magic was gone. He began to call for his death knights, but no one responded. It was unpleasant, and Murdy's energy only intensified. Apparently, holy energy from Arya herself is allowed here, so the heroes were convinced that this was definitely a temple. Wu Jin asked Murdy if she could find the location of the holy relic. She felt him underneath them. Wu Jin thought that in this case, there must be a way down through the spaceship. Then Wu Jin decided that Murdy would go do what she had to do, and they would meet after receiving the holy relic. But Merritt asked what Ugin would do. He replied that he had something to take care of himself. Wu Jin started to take the elevator up. This scientific civilization is something you can't even imagine on Alphen. If this is the case, then the goddess of technology seems more suitable than the goddess of clairvoyance. Wu Jin went up to the 30th floor and saw a room with a lot of computers. He began to approach and look at the information on the screens, but there were letters not from the planet Alphina. Is Arya trying to make fun of him? Wu Jin got angry and just wanted to break everything. And suddenly, behind his back, that same goddess Arya appeared. She said that they had not seen each other for a long time. It's been exactly 20 years since she suddenly appeared in his dream. And now she is in the form of a hologram on a spaceship. He asked who she really was. 20 years ago, Wu Jin traveled through a dimensional rift and ended up literally nowhere. He started calling out to see if anyone was there. He was sure then that he was going to school. And then Arya greeted him, saying that he had arrived on time. She called him the promised savior Kang Wu Jin. It was the goddess Arya who met him and gave him some abilities and knowledge to survive on Alphen. With her help, the hero was able to adapt to the harsh life on Alphen. But now she looks completely different. He said that she acts like a goddess and may actually be a clairvoyant artificial intelligence. She replied that it was possible and asked if it was really important to know whether she was a goddess or not. The most important question is whether she knows the answers to Wu Jin's questions or not. Anyway, Wu Jin said it was none of his business whether she was a goddess or not. He began to threaten her, saying that she must answer questions well so that he does not destroy this temple into small pieces. She agreed, and asked what the hero wanted to know. Of course, he was interested in everything about the code, as well as how to obtain it. Arya began to say that usually the code is the right to live on this planet. Anyone who lives in this galaxy has one. Wu Jin already has a code called Earth. Ugin was surprised that everyone and the Lords of Space were making all this fuss about something like this. Arya replied that it was. The thing they are looking for is the Master Code. It is something that is hidden deep within every planet. It gives the right to control the planet. The spatial lord who possesses this Master Code has absolute power in the vastness of this planet. Arya asked if Wu Jin was interested in becoming a spatial lord. But he's not interested. What he wants is to stop them messing with the Earth. He asked if there was any way. She replied that it might be a little tricky, but there is a way. This is the deletion code, the hidden code. It is sealed by the dimensional lords due to the unreasonable power it gives. With its help, you can break the connection with Trine. Wu Jin asked if this is the so-called thrash execution, to which Arya answered yes. There are also 5 keys to activate the delete code on Alphen. Ugin realized that she was talking about the divine relics of the 5 gods of Alphen, and this is true. But the last key is not on Alphen, but on Earth. Wu Jin was very surprised by this. Arya said that she has no other information since she is the god who watches over Alphen. It was a big clue to find out that the final key to execution was on Earth. Arya added that many competitors began to be wary of Wu Jin. Wu Jin was not bothered by this, and said that he was used to all this attention. However, Arya said that she didn't mean it that way. Right now, his Soros base has been targeted and is in danger. But Wu Jin was not embarrassed by this either, and said that he could simply return using the portal. However, Arya objected, saying that Wu Jin does not have the Alphen code. She said that the reason why he was able to open return portals anywhere on Earth is because he began to own the Earth's code. This means he won't be able to use the return portal on Alphen. This is a pretty big problem. Wu Jin asked if the revelation Murdy mentioned was about this situation. Arya replied that it was true, and Ugin should quickly look for these holy relics. Ugin said that if the goddess was going to tell him, then it had to be done in great detail. Suddenly, Murdy enters the room. Looking at her, Arya said that Murdy must have successfully obtained the holy relic. Ugin said goodbye to the goddess, and said that he must return quickly. He warned Murdy that the base was in danger, and they needed to move out quickly. Murdy was mesmerized by the silhouette of the goddess, and Arya herself will pray for Kang Wu Jin's success. We are moving to the Soros base. The enemy army already numbers more than 100,000. The number is growing faster than the Union expected. They were even sadder at the thought that they couldn't even contact the Immortal in such a situation. Suddenly, Wu Jin himself contacted Jae-min. Everyone immediately tensed up and began to wait for his words. Wu Jin asked about the situation in Soros. Jae-min alarmedly began to say that the enemies were gathering on a narrow plateau, and Wu Jin needed to return immediately. Wu Jin said that he can't go back now because he can't use the portal due to some problems. He also added that he would try to return as soon as possible, but it would take at least a week. And Jae-min and the Alliance must hold on for now no matter what. The Union was shocked that they would have to hold out for a whole week. Meanwhile, while Murdy and the Immortal were on their way, she asked about how bad the situation was. Wu Jin told her that the situation is difficult. Hundreds of thousands of monsters are gathering on a narrow plateau. Murdy couldn't believe it. Murdy asked how close the plateau was to Soros, to which Wu Jin replied that non-flying monsters could reach it in a week. The schedule is a little tight, but even if Wu Jin is a little late, Sun Gu is there, and he should be able to hold them back a little. Suddenly, Ugin brakes sharply, and they see a huge number of monsters near the plateau in front of them. The monsters won't let them go so easily, even when they have a long way to go. The monsters began to walk straight towards the heroes. Apparently they were already waiting for them. Ugin ordered Dennis to clear the way. He was ready to turn into ashes everyone who stood in his lord's way. However, Janice didn't understand how, but his firepower was not the same as usual. Ugin realized that it was divine power. Due to Murdy's awakened divine power, his abilities were reduced by half. Murdy can now defend herself on her own when she has the holy artifact. Ugin said that he would clear the path to Soros from all monsters and let Murdy slowly follow him. She understood everything. Ugin told his Death Knights to go straight to Soros's base. Janice and the others' strength returned. Now they were ready to clear out these small insects from their lord's path. The power of his minions returned. As he thought, the reason was Murdy. And while his subordinates were coping with small monsters, he decided to move on to their commander. Some lords started saying that 200 years have passed since they started looking for the 5 Alphan codes. Even so, they like to look for codes slowly, because it is great fun for those who live forever. The reward of dominating the larger dimensions and getting high positions is just a bonus, according to him. The Lord said that they were just enjoying the game until he, the immortal, appeared. Wu Jin asked if destroying planets was a game. It seems the answer is to remove them all from the world. And the first, him, the puppeteer Ilak, the 44th Great Lord of Tranit. Ilak started laughing. Wu Jin said that he was crazy, and asked why they separated. Ilak said that Wu Jin's ease was ridiculous and he had prepared well. Wu Jin said that no matter what training Ilak did, it wouldn't work on him. The Lord said that Wu Jin is quite self-centered and he is not aware of the situation. Ilak said that he was heading towards Ugin's base with other surrounding lords, and Selrak organized a special alliance of forces to attack his dungeon. Wu Jin realized that he plans to shut down all the portals that lead to Earth. Wu Jin asked if Ilak really wanted to catch him so desperately. Ilak replied that the immortal was truly a thorn in his side, and asked why Ugin was trying to awaken the useless god of destruction. Wu Jin realized that Ilak was talking about execution of Thresh. He acts like God, but is afraid that he will be removed. Ilak replied that it was definitely scary, but it wouldn't happen because Wu Jin would die today. Ilak began to attack Ugin. Ilak said that this magic is the culmination of his magical research over hundreds of years. Any of Wu Jin's minions who enter here will disappear in an instant. Ilak began to taunt Wu Jin that he was desperate because he was powerless and couldn't do anything on his own. Wu Jin pretended to be in despair. Ilak told his knights to bring Ugin's head. Ilak was glad that he managed to defeat the immortal, whom no lord was able to eliminate. And after that, he will be a unique creation among all the great lords. Ugin thought that Ilak was arrogant for a reason, and this was just some kind of anti-recruitment magic. And then Ugin in one motion cuts off the head of the knight of Ilak. The lord is in complete shock and fear. The walls of Soros were preparing for the invasion of hundreds of thousands of enemy fighters. Songgu asked Tauren where the enemy's position was. He replied that they had moved away from the narrow plateau and were heading towards the Soros base. If this continues, they will arrive at the target in 6 days. Sungu said that it was quite close and he should move up and try to delay the enemy's advance as best he could until his brother Wu Jin returned. Tauren was shocked that Sungu was going to detain 100,000 soldiers by himself. He did not believe that this was impossible, and if he did it, he would be under the gun of the entire concentration of enemy fire. Sungu replied that he should try it somehow. If he is thrown here, he will not be able to return home, and this is worse than 100,000 monsters. Tauren thought that this was true, because the home of the warrior of the Holy Spear was the Earth. It wouldn't matter if he escaped through the portal to Earth right now, but they would fight for their alpha to the end. Tauren thanked the guy for his courage and mercy. He also said that there would be a lot of preparations for the battle, which surprised Sungu. Tauren advised Sungu to visit Raoul, the king of the dwarfs. He is sure that this will help him a lot. Sungu obeyed and went to Raoul. He replied that he was checking the artillery, since if there were any defects it would be a big problem. Raoul said that besides this there is something else that is not incredibly huge. Because they must repel an army of 100,000. Even kitchen knives should be used. Raoul said that he also wanted to show Sungu something, and he came just in time. He said to follow him because he found an interesting thing. The heroes came to Soros's magical research facility. Sungu asked what it was. Raoul said that he found a magical amplifier in this installation, built by an immortal. He made some modifications to it to further increase the level of magic. Raoul said that if you stood there and fired with increased power, it would be a great weapon. Sungu liked this idea. Raoul said to just stand in the middle and start using your normal fire magic. Sungu didn't know how much the magic would be increased, so he decided to try it on a small fireball. And suddenly, when Sungu tried, an incredibly strong, fiery explosion occurred. Sungu was scared and asked what it was and how much it had increased. Raoul laughed and said that there was no race that could compete with the dwarven magic of engineering. He said it definitely increases the power by 9 times. Sungu was very impressed because this is incredible, an increase of 9 times. The only thing that confused Sungu was that this structure was stationary and not very mobile. Sungu asked Raoul if he could make it smaller so that he could carry it with him. Raoul replied that this was a magic wand and asked why Sungu still didn't have it. Exactly! Sungu only now realized that he did not have a magic wand. How could he not have thought of this before? Sungu tearfully asked Raoul to give him a staff that would be perfect for him. He replied that if you have all the materials, it will not be difficult. But Raoul said that Sun Gu would not be able to reproduce that level of power with the wand. At best, he will be able to fire the power 3 times. But Song Gu replied that 3 times is also wonderful. He asked to make the rod as small as possible. Sun Gu was confident that this would be enough to delay the enemy until Wu Jin returned. The 46th Lord of Tranit, Vunan, was simply relaxing with his servants. Suddenly, Queen Hapi, Shirao, flew to him and said irritably that now there was no time to lie around, because Ilok's magic had completely disappeared. Wunan replied that he asked Ilok to detain the guy as long as possible. Ilok must be seeking revenge on the immortal. Shirao started screaming, saying that if this continues, they will have to face the immortal. What will happen if he, before they destroy the portal, goes to Earth to complete the execution? Wunan calmly said that everything is fine, and Wu Jin will not be able to go to Earth now. Shirao didn't understand what Wunan meant. Wunong revealed that Wu Jin doesn't have the full set of items needed to complete the execution set. Shirao asked how he knew about this. Apparently she had never seen Wu Jin at his best. Wunan began to say that if Ugin had a full army of immortals, he would have already returned to Soros. And the fact that it takes him so long is proof that the immortal is not yet sufficiently prepared. Shirao was relieved. Wunan said the situation has been going well for them so far. All they have to do is stop Wu Jin from completing his execution and destroying the portal, and in the end, he will be imprisoned by Alphen and forced to watch the destruction of the Earth. Ugin understood that the Dimension Lords were targeting him. He thought about what to do. At the moment, his level is 88. He decided to probably reach the maximum level sooner than expected. There are only 2 levels left to summon a new companion, the original Dragon Yonin. There are 4 days left until Wu Jin returns. A battalion of monsters was approaching Soros. Sun Gu was annoyed by the number of monsters. Their number was almost the same as in Ugin's army. Sun Gu thinks about how many of them he can stop. He decided to try the effect of the new weapon he received. He used a large-scale explosion. The monsters were burned to the ground. Even Ming was defeated, and said that Sun Gu actually hit the jackpot when he received this thing. But monsters move regardless of whether their allies die or not. No matter how much damage the heroes cause, they will not be able to stop them. Jae-min thought there must be another way. Sun Gu panicked and said that the monsters keep coming no matter how many times they kill them. Even when the heroes attack them, they still ignore them and move on. Suddenly, an excited Jae-min ran up to Sun Gu. Sun Gu thought that he had come to say that the Spatial Lord had also appeared, but no. Jae-min came to say that he didn't think their current attacks could stop the monsters. They need to try a different method. Sun Gu was intrigued. Even Ming said that instead of attacking directly, they should destroy the surrounding area. So, they will destroy the path where the monsters are walking so that they cannot cross easily. Sun Gu was delighted and said that this was a great idea and it should be effective. He also said that Jae-min is educated and it shows right away. But the irony is that it was Sun Gu who went to college, not him. They decided to start by looking for places to destroy. While Sun Gu and Jae-min blocked the enemy's advance, Kang Wu-jin's immortal army broke through the monsters' interference and headed towards Soros. There was 1 day left until Wu Jin returned. Monsters also continued to attack the hero. They were persistent. Wu Jin dealt with them deftly. He said that if they ran straight for the rest of the day, they shouldn't be late. Suddenly, some lord met Ugin and greeted him. He asked the hero if he had received his gift. Ugin replied that he received it and was waiting for the lord to appear. 2 days ago, Ugin learned that the Temple of Rot dungeon, which connects the world of Alphen with the spatial realm of Ardal, had been cleared. This means that apparently Kiba, who was appointed as the garrison commander, held out even after consuming the lord's points, but ultimately lost. And his opponent was the 27th of the 72 lords of Thranet, Selak. Selak asked why Ugin is so angry, and is it because he has to watch his home planet be destroyed without the opportunity to return back? Selak sees that Ugin really wants to protect his planet. Therefore, Selak invited Ugin to become the god of the planet himself. Wu Jin was surprised. Selak said everything was correct. On the day his home planet was synchronized, he was the first to kill God. He received the code and became God himself. And now the people of his hometown live in exceptional abundance. The sacrifice is short, but the peace is eternal. Therefore, Selak suggested that Ugin stop chasing the trail of the forgotten god of destruction and become a god himself. According to him, the Master Code will soon become the god of the planet. To get this code, you need to kill this god. But the god of the earth is Sua, Wu Jin's sister. Selak thought to himself that since Ugin was thinking, then everything should go smoothly. But Ugin abruptly took the sword and attacked Selak. However, the Lord blocked the attack. Selak saw that the story about Ugin receiving the power of a warrior was true, but he did not understand what he was doing. Does Ugin really not want to protect his home planet? The immortal replied that there was no need for long conversations. He said Selak would pay for making him feel like crap. Selak got angry and realized that dialogue would not work. He said that Wujin's courage in pursuing a useless ideal would ultimately lead him to lose his home. And then, Selak ordered his servants to hunt the immortal. They were all hiding in the sky. Even if Wujin hurries, it will be too late, and he will be in trouble. He silently prayed that Sun Gu would survive as long as he could, and he would do his best to come back soon. While Kang Udin fought the spatial lords who stood in his way, the army of monsters eventually arrived at Soros faster than Ugin. Sun Gu didn't know how long they could last without Wujin, but he had no choice but to do his best and fight to the end. Sun Gu took his staff and started shooting rain of fire at the monsters. Also, Raoul's strengthening helped him. Tori never realized that Sun Gu could be so good. Even with the booster, this is still an incredible area of effect spell. Torin now had hope that they could hold out until Ugin returned. He ordered everyone to drive away the monsters from now on. Torin activated an all-out attack. The archers began shooting the monsters from the wall. Everything seemed to be going fine. The archers and Sun Gu were coping with the monsters, but their reaction, as Graham noted, was somehow strange. Even monsters that were mortally wounded are advancing. It can't be! Graham shouted that it was a rage spell, and they were trying to push them back. All defenders were given the command to stop them so that they would not climb the wall. The archers and all members of the Union shot the monsters, but they still climbed the wall. It was idiots who trampled their own comrades to climb the wall. Sun Gu continued to use his magic. Graham told Torin that if they continued like this, they would soon be defeated. Therefore, he suggested that before it was too late to break through someplace and escape. Torin could not believe that he would have to flee immediately after he promised to protect Soros. Everyone's strength was already running low. Suddenly, Jae-min arrived and said that it was too early to give up. Wujin informed him that he would be here in 10 minutes, and they needed to hold out a little longer. Torin was delighted and told Graham about this and offered to gather all his strength and hold on a little longer, but Graham was in despair and said that 10 minutes would be enough for Soros to be completely destroyed. And then they saw some flying monsters in the sky, and they turned out to be the dragons Patu and Raya. They have already arrived at the enemy camp. Jae-min remembered that these are the same dragons that almost turned Seoul into a wasteland, and now there are 2 of them. Jae-min told Sun Gu that they have a big problem. Ugin should be here soon, but he didn't understand why the dragons had come here. But Sun Gu was quite calm, and asked Graham if he could block the dragon's breath with a protective barrier. Graham replied that this was impossible, because not only he, but also any magician would not be able to block the dragon's breath. Then Sun Gu decided that he would be the first person who could do this. He had no choice. The others were shocked and afraid for Sun Gu. If Wujin arrives early, it will be good. But if this does not happen, Sun Gu must go on the attack. When Ugin dealt with the monsters, he was waiting for Selak, but saw Wunon in front of him. He said that the immortal had come a long way. Wunon also added that dealing with Ilak and Selak would also not be easy, and Ugin apparently fought with incomplete strength. Wujin replied that he would let Wunon feel it himself, and told him to go at him. Wujin seems impatient. Wunong asked if Wujin was worried about his comrades. He thought that an immortal was a heartless being without blood or tears, but he never expected to see him like this. Wunon told Ugin to surrender, as Patu and Leia were already heading to Ugin's base. The hero internally panicked when he realized that Wunon was talking about those 2 lizards. Wunon said that within 10 minutes they should already reach the fortress, and the dragons will destroy it into dust, leaving no trace. Wunon said that Ugin looked worried, and he needed to leave urgently, but they would meet with him and the Legion of Minotaurs. He wondered what would happen first. Ugin would defeat him, and the Legion of Minotaurs would defeat him, or his fortress would be destroyed. Wujin replied that it was a dilemma. He never thought that Wunon would come such a long way to destroy it. The hero asked why he deserved such gratitude. This surprised Winona and Shirao very much. Wujin thanked them for being able to protect everyone. Wunon did not understand what he was talking about and saw the magic of summoning the meteor of the Plague Lord Janus. Janus said they would be the last to donate for his friend. But Wunon did not understand how this could happen, because even if he is the Lord of the Plague, he still needs time to prepare such an attack. Did Ujin arrive first and wait for him and Shirao to arrive? Wunon was horrified. Wujin replied that he couldn't pass by the food table without eating. Of course, randomly, he only lacked 5% of experience points. And now, with the meteorite attack, he had reached level 90. Ugin used a callback, and the meteorite destroyed all of Wunon's servants. Ugin mockingly said that all the forces that Wunon had brought from such a distance were burned to the ground. Wunon replied that he was sure that Ugin had set everyone up in advance and prepared the meteorite attack, but even so, he had no chance to save the fortress. Wunon said with confidence that Wujin must defeat them first, and they will not give up so easily. But Wujin said no because he wouldn't be the one they would fight. And then the hero began calling Yen Yung. The incredible black power transformed into a huge ancient dragon. Wujin asked if they had seen such a thing before, because before that, his strength was not at its maximum level. Wunon was shocked that the immortal fought against him while not at the peak of his powers. And then Yen Yung asked Wujin if he was the one who called him. The hero replied that he was his master, but the dragon did not recognize him. The bone dragon Yen Yung is the most powerful ancient dragon that lived for over 10,000 years. Although the dragon remembered the entire history of Alphen, he died and fell under the curse of oblivion. Now that he is immortal, he is the strongest and last summoned of Ugin. In other words, he has dementia. Even if he is summoned again, this forgetful dragon will remain the same. They don't even recognize the owner's face. Wujin told him to just quickly ask his usual question. Yen Yung asked what his master's wish was, and Wujin replied that he wanted the dragon to kill those two creatures. The wish was accepted, and Yen Yung is ready to attack. Wunon was in shock and panic. Ujin flew away and said that she would check the base first and let Wunon hold out against the mighty ancient dragon. Wunon started shouting that the hero was simply running away. Yen Yung began to attack Wunong and Shirao. Magic did not work on the dragon, and Wunon was surprised. And suddenly he noticed that Yen Yung grabbed Shirao. Wunon began to attack back, telling the dragon to spit her out. But when he began to attack, his sword, which usually kills any dragon, broke with the first blow. Wunon is in despair. And then Yen Yung grabs him too. Wunon said it was like some kind of children's game. It was strange for Wunon that he didn't even feel any pain. And then he realizes that the dragon has grabbed him in its huge paw. He tried to break free, but then Yen Yung begins to squeeze Wunon with such force that he simply crushes him. Meanwhile, Ujin flew towards his goal. Finally, he sees the mountains of sadness. Fortunately, the base appears to be intact. Janice told the hero to confirm the airspace over the base. The dragons arrived first. So far, they are not taking active steps. But suddenly, Janice fell silent. One of the dragons began to release its breath. This is a bad sign. People at the base began to panic. Jaemin worriedly asked Sun Gu what they should do, because they couldn't just wait for Wu Jin. While Sun Gu was thinking, Wu Jin and Janice began to fly towards the dragons at incredible speed. Wu Jin suggested blinking above their heads. This is a short-distance teleportation spell. Janice replied that it was a good idea, but it was not yet possible. They need to fly closer so that the dragon is within reach. Ugin hopes that the dragon will gather power for as long as possible. They tried to fly as close as possible, but the dragon was already ready to release its breath. And then they blinked, and Ugin found himself on the dragon. Wu Jin was able to kill him, but he managed to lose his breath. Wu Jin, in an incredible panic, told Janice to defend the base, but the breath was getting closer and closer. And then Ujin saw that someone had managed to block this breathing. He was incredibly amazed, because there could be no one on the Alliance side who was capable of doing this. And it was poor Sun Gu, who with his last strength blocked the dragon's breath with his fire magic. Sun Gu felt incredibly hot, and felt as if his body was about to melt. As expected, it was impossible to block the breath himself, but if he didn't do it now, all the people in the base would be victims. He decided to hold his breath at all costs, and then everyone saw that the breath simply disappeared. This is an incredible miracle. Sun Gu is a hero. And then Sun Gu, exhausted, began to fall. Wu Jin picked him up and carried him towards the base, and Ugin ordered Janice to take care of another dragon, Patu. He got over it quickly. Meanwhile, Wu Jin brought the wounded Sun Gu to the base. Wu Jin said that they have to save him, so he will stay here to deal with matters, and let Jaemin go to Earth first with the others. But Jaemin replied that he couldn't just leave them. Ugin said that the spatial lords point to the Earth god to rule it. Ugin said that he would return to Earth once he had fulfilled his original purpose of coming to Alphen. Until then, Jaemin must protect Su-Ah no matter what. And Sun Gu was in prostration. He was hot. He didn't understand what the hell happened. He thought he had blocked his breathing, but the heat refused to go away. But suddenly Sun Gu felt that he was getting better. He began to hear someone's voice. Someone was calling him. It was Ujin. Sun Gu regained consciousness. Wu Jin said that Sun Gu went through a lot and thanked him for saving the base. Sun Gu was relieved that he did this. Sun Gu asked Wu Jin if he would die, but the hero said that she would not allow this to happen. He decided to get down to business right away while Sun Gu was conscious. And Ugin takes out the dragon's heart. This is a precious material that will save Song Gu from the dragon's curse. The guy was grateful. It reminds him of his very first meeting with Wu Jin. But Wu Jin said not to rejoice ahead of time, since the curse that Sun Gu is now under cannot be healed only by the heart of a dragon. And then Wu Jin rips the guy's jacket off. Yi Wu Jin places the heart on Sun Gu's chest. Wu Jin says that the most important thing is the will to live, and a strong spirit that does not succumb to the dragon's curse. If this will is not enough, the dragon's breath will burn the rest of Song Gu's soul. Sun Gu needs to gather her courage. Wu Jin began the ritual. Sun Gu must endure the entire dragon curse and be reborn as the dragon Hong Sun Gu. 20 days have passed since Spatial Lord Wunon's forces were stopped. The Alliance and the ghostly forces of Ardal defeated the remaining orcs, and all the destroyed wall structures were restored. At the same time, Kang Wu Jin was by Sun Gu's side, helping him with the dragon ritual, completely isolated from the outside world. And also, Murdy was already approaching the base with some man. Murdy has come a long and difficult way. They will arrive at Soros within 2 hours. Murdy said that she was fine and they should hurry as there must be injured people at the base. Now they can see Soros. The man said that the heroes will be very happy when they find out that Murdy is safe. The World Tree is a symbol of the alliance between the Alphen Union and Ardal. But why then did the goddess give such a strange prediction? And Arya told her that the time had come to make a decision to save Alphen. Murdy asked what she meant. Arya told her to burn the World Tree on Mount Soros for the sake of their long-awaited desire, saving Alphen. Murdy returned to the base to the heroes. Torin and Graham were glad that the saint was safe and sound, because she had come a long way. Murdy wished she could be with them during such a crisis at the base, but the situation was urgent, so she sent the immortal first, and followed him later herself. Torin heard about the situation and thanked them both for being able to quickly save the base. They are indebted to them. But Torin also told Murdy that Sun Gu was a victim. She wondered what happened to him. Torin said that the holy warrior jumped to block the dragon's breath, but could not escape the dragon's curse. And in the end, his body burned, and only this flame remained. Graham said that Wu Jin appears to be performing a ritual to revive him. The barrier has been maintained for 20 days. The holy warrior took on the dragon's breath to defend the base. But Torin said not to worry too much, since the immortal has divine energy, and since he makes such a great effort, the holy warrior will definitely be resurrected. The newly blossoming hope of the Alliance. How can you destroy with your own hands the world tree of the base, saved by the sacrifice of a sacred warrior? Moreover, this base is the last gate connecting Alphen and the Ardal spatial dimension. By losing this place, the immortal will lose the way to return to Earth. Murdy began to hesitate about what to do. And suddenly Ujin appeared behind her and asked what she was doing here. Murdy jumped in fright. Wu Jin asked if she did something wrong because she was somehow very surprised. Murdy began to say that this was all for the sacred warrior, and asked why Wu Jin was without him. It was very strange. Wu Jin said that if something happened, she should say it right now. Murdy started saying that nothing happened. Wu Jin said that the ritual was more or less completed, and the rest was now up to Sun Gu. He's probably going crazy digesting a dragon's heart right now. This means that Sun Gu will be resurrected. Murdy felt relieved as she had a big burden on her heart that they had saved themselves at the expense of Sun Gu. Now that Ugin is done with the sacred warrior, he should probably go. Murdy asked where he was going. Wu Jin said that he must find the last relic. While he's not around, Murdy must take care of protecting the base. Wu Jin trusts Murdy. Itasha and Ujin set off. Itasha asked why she was following him again if there were other heroes besides her. Wu Jin replied that she seemed the most unoccupied. The elf said that they must pass by the mountains that they see in the distance. An elf with keen eyes is the best guide. Ugin told Itasha to hold on tight as they raced at full speed towards the Harris Temple. We find ourselves in the eternal times of Harris. Almost completely forgotten in modern times, the ancient deity is said to have been present at Alphen's birth. Only literally a few priests know about its existence, and they traveled across the continent, opening their doors only to those they considered worthy successors. And the location of the main temple of this secret deity is the northern continent, an eternally frozen land. The heroes arrived just there. It was incredibly cold there, absolutely no place to live. The Temple of Arya is one thing, but the Temple of Harris is on a completely different level. Itasha said that the Harris Temple is in the coldest and deepest part of the northern continent, so it makes sense. but they're almost there. They approached the temple and saw a door. It looked like an entrance, but there was no doorknob or keyhole. Itasha said that the Harris Temple is the most special of all. She suggested waiting for someone, like at Lake Linta, but Wu Jin lightly pressed the door and it shattered into small pieces. Itasha panicked because they could break her. Wu Jin said that he doesn't care how special this temple is, and he will still go there. When they entered, they saw many computers sounding alarms about an intrusion. The deity was asked if he wanted to turn on the defense system and eliminate those who invaded. But he told them to shut up, and there was no need for unnecessary things. All this happens as it happened in history. Itasha tried to call upon the power of light to illuminate the darkness, but for some reason it did not respond. It seems that divine energy is limited inside the temple. The same thing happened in the temple of Arya, but this is not the only thing similar. There is advanced scientific technology here, far beyond the level of technology that Alphen is at. Could Alphen come from an extraterrestrial civilization? Wu Jin said that when he meets Harris, he will understand a little. The heroes continued to walk, but Itasha found it strange that although they entered loudly, no one appeared. Wu Jin didn't know the answer. The transfer of the role of chief priest may have been discontinued long ago. Suddenly he noticed that something had finally begun to appear. When he entered the room, he saw a pool table and refrigerators. Harris seems to truly care about his priest's well-being. Wu Jin opened the refrigerator and saw several cans of cola there. It's so absurd that she doesn't even want to laugh. Itasha was surprised and asked about this red thing. She thinks that since it was in the temple's treasure chest, it must be a valuable thing. Wu Jin suggested that she drink a little, because since it was, as she said, holy water should give it. He decided to mock Itasha. She was very excited. Wu Jin also noticed a lot of lockers. Perhaps they belonged to a priest. But he went to take a closer look and saw different names. Maybe these are the crew's lockers. However, Wu Jin saw Kong's name there too. Then everything becomes clear here. The gods of Alphen have a connection with the earth. Itasha took a sip of cola and immediately spat it out. She said that it was boiling inside her and that it was not holy water, but poison. She began to beg Wu Jin to give her an antidote. The hero sighed and said that if she waited a little, everything would return to normal. But Itasha said that her insides were burning and she needed healing magic. Suddenly Itasha, in a panic, noticed that something was moving on the ceiling. It was a camera. Apparently they were watching them all this time. What a scoundrel. Wu Jin said to the camera that if he doesn't want to play hide-and-seek, he should show himself right now. If a guest comes, you need to greet him. Wu Jin began to threaten that if Harris didn't show up right now, he would start destroying everything. And suddenly a door opened in front of the heroes. Wu Jin said Harris should have done this earlier. The heroes entered there and saw a hologram of Harris. Itasha started shouting that there were people sealed in flasks and they had to save them. But Wu Jin told her to just stand there. He approached the hologram and asked if he was Harris. It replied that this was true, and that he was the god of time who protected Alphen's long history. Wu Jin asked where all his priests were and why he was here alone. Or rather, they should be called crew members. Harris said that none of Wu Jin's terms were appropriate, but said that there are no people here because they never existed. But Wu Jin replied that this was nonsense, because he saw the names written on the lockers in the hall. Harris responded that people are often deceived by what they see and are unable to see the truth. Wu Jin sighed and said irritably that his head was in the clouds, just like Arya. Then he decided to ask Harris what the ancient civilization of Alphen had to do with Earth. But Harris said that he had nothing to tell me on this matter, since he was only a recorder of history and had no right to read it. Wu Jin didn't like this answer and threw the staff right in Harris's face. Wu Jin asked if Harris really thought that Wu Jin was a weak player and said that he could kill him. But Harris replied that even if the immortal did this, he would still not be able to reach Harris's physical location. Ugin told Harris to forget and simply demanded to bring his relic. Harry said that he could give it away, but the time had not yet come for this. He asked to wait until the time comes. Wu Jin was surprised and said that Harris was talking complete nonsense. Wu Jin asked what Harris meant. Harris told him to wait. They will bring the relic when the time comes. Heiso communicated with a member of Ardal's ghost squad. The guy said that quite a lot of time had passed since their arrival, but there was still no reinforcement. There were many guilds interested in the expedition to Alphen. Did they really all give up? Heiso replied that this is likely, since this is an expedition to another planet, and it is not easy to be hasty. Suddenly they noticed someone in the distance and got very scared. And it turned out to be Murdy with a torch in her hands. Heiso asked what brought the saint here. Murdy said she came here to talk to the tree and asked her to leave for a while. For Yahi. So it seemed strange to communicate with the World Tree, the being in charge of the base. Well, since this tree has a special meaning for the inhabitants of Alphen, then anything can happen. Heiso left and said she would come back later. Murdy approached the tree and began to remember Arya's prediction that she should burn it. The goddess's predictions cannot be doubted, and she must have her own reasons for this. But is this really the right thing to do? If there is no World Tree, the connection between Alphen and Earth will be destroyed forever, and then the Earth may be doomed. First of all, it would be a betrayal of the sacrifice of the sacred warrior and the trust placed in the immortals, Murdy thought, and began to apologize to the goddess for her lack of faith. And suddenly, Murdy's divine energy began to dissipate. This must be the consequence of failure to fulfill the prediction. Now Murdy is no longer a saint of Arya. Suddenly a portal appeared near the tree. Is someone really trying to get to the planet? Suddenly some strange people came out of the portal. They talked about how Alphen is not very different from Earth at first glance. Murdy asked them about who they were and how they passed through the Immortals' portal. They said that they were from the Leo Guild and were glad to meet the saint in person. Guildmaster Na Kyung-young said that they were reinforcements from Earth to rescue Alphen. And in the Harris Temple, alarm began due to an unknown object that appeared. Wu Jin didn't understand what it was all about. And then Harris said that the time had come and told Ugin to accept the last of the 5 relics, Harris's belt. 2 days have passed since the Lion Guild joined the Alphen Alliance. Kim Jun-young, the lead member of the Ghost Squad, was discussing with another that reinforcements had recently arrived. Jun-young had already met them and introduced them to Captain Jo Hai-seo earlier. The guy asked if there was anything unusual. Junang didn't understand what the guy meant, and the guy said that there was something that was bothering him. What worried him was what he saw this morning during reconnaissance, and he saw how members of the Lev Guild considered something as a detector, namely minerals and the volume of oil reserves on Alphen. They discussed how the development of Alphen could bring huge profits. They also said that the master was right. And suddenly, a guy from the Ghost Squad approached them and asked what they were doing here. Those men were very worried. They began to make excuses, saying that they were just exploring the area here because they must first understand the terrain before fighting the enemies. A member of the Ghost Department said that, in fact, they could provide them with data upon request, and why would they personally deal with it? The men said anxiously that they were following orders from above. Junang began to wonder if they were examining the area with suspicious equipment. Are they really thinking about something behind their back? Jun-young said that he will inform all the other members to begin surveillance and tell Hai-seo directly about it. Jen-yong looked down on the Soros city base. She said this was a good start to his conquest of Alphen. Jen-yong took out a fragment of the dimension and decided to act for real. Near the tree, he received a notification that he had found a base, the owner of which was far away, and he was asked to either destroy or occupy it. We travel back a few days to when Jen-yong was still on Earth. He scolded his guild workers for not doing well enough in the second half of the year. One of the workers said that recently, the volume of bloodstones in the dungeons has sharply decreased. This may be because the synchronization speed between dungeons and Earth has increased. Another said that fortunately the situation in the upper dungeons is much better, but this is already tightly controlled by the KN and Hammer guilds. Jen-yong was furious and said that he did not want to hear excuses and demanded that he find a way to increase income. Suddenly his assistant said that the person he was contacting had recently arrived. Jen-young asked if he brought this. The assistant replied that the man said that he would allow me to look at it immediately after meeting him. And then Jen-yong came in and sat down at the table with a masked man. He thanked him for coming all the way here and asked if he was his contact or avatar. And then the man takes off his mask and it turns out to be the familiar Lee Sang-ho. Jen-young was in shock and couldn't believe his eyes because Sang-ho seemed to have been killed by Kang Woo-jin. Sang-ho said that there was nothing to be surprised about because he was simply resurrected by the power of his master. Jen-yon was perplexed by these words because this could mean that the spatial lord that Sang-ho follows can even revive the dead. Sang-ho laid out the promised measurement fragment and measurement confirmation on the table. With them, as Sang-ho said, the two of them can get what they want. These 2 stones are the key to becoming a spatial lord. Jen-young asked Sang-ho what he wanted. Lee Sang-ho told the man to use these stones to take one of Kang Woo-jin's bases on Alphen. Jen-yong began to say that this is impossible, because who knows what Ardal will do to them in response to betrayal. Sang-ho said that the man does not understand the whole essence of the situation a little. Sang-ho said that the spatial lord is a godlike being, and at least in his own territory he has godlike powers. Moreover, they are beings who have eternal life. Jen-young began to think about this proposal. Let's return to today. After being able to live forever, it seems ridiculous that Zhen Yong was worried about the guild's income. Therefore, he chose to capture the base. Thanks to this, he will escape from humanity and become the god of this land. 3 years have passed since the arrival of the Lion Guild on Earth. Gen Yen met Tauren and asked if he happened to know about the second withdrawal of troops from Earth. He plans to use this as a template for department composition in the future. Zhen Yong replied that he knew that some brave guilds would participate. He suggested waiting a few more days and gathering more awakened people before forming a branch. Tauren thought and replied that since they had defeated all the monsters around Soros and had some leisure time, they would prepare the composition after the immortal returned. Zhen Yong said that sounds great. It's a pity for Zhen Yong, but there is no chance of a second exit from Earth. The moment he captures the base, the first thing he will do is close the portal. There were 24 hours left before the base was captured, but Zhen Yong was annoyed that this Hai Seo was staring at him from the very beginning. He thought she might have suspected something. He needs more time, but has no choice. Haso called him over. Zhen Yong asked as if nothing had happened if she wanted to ask him something. She said that she had heard some reports from her subordinates that the Lion Guild was engaged in suspicious activities. She asked if they had another reason why they came to Alphen. If he couldn't explain everything properly now, they would send them back to Earth. Zhen Yong began to say that he did not know what Haiso was told about, but they came here to protect Alphen along with the Alliance. And suddenly he said that this role, instead of Ardal, would be taken by the Lev Guild. Haiso was furious and said that the scumbag showed his true colors, but when she wanted to approach, she realized that her leg was not moving. Zhen Yong said that he had already stepped on her shadow. Haiseo may be an A-rank awakened, but she can't escape his restriction skill's shadow step. And then Zhen Yong received a notification that the takeover was completed and he became the new owner of the Soros base. He is now a spatial lord. He was happy that he was now as immortal as Kang Wu Jin. Taurine noticed a strange green light and could not understand what it was. Zhen Yong was surprised that he didn't have any changes in appearance. Haso started asking him about this light and what he did. Zhen Yong laughed and said that it was about time. He said to look at the divine miracle that will give to this land. Elo asked Sun Ho about how it went. He replied that, on his orders, measures had been taken. An immortal who has lost his fortress will not be able to return to Earth for some time. Elo praised him and asked about what happened to the Earth deity and whether Sun Ho had found him. Sang Ho proudly said that he suspected his location and would give a report after a more thorough investigation. Elo responded that the immediate priority was to block the immortal's intervention, because he should offer his assistance in his place. San Ho said in surprise that he did not know about the Lord's grand plan and did not understand what it meant, but asked if Yellow wanted to replace the immortal. Yellow laughed and said that Sang Ho was a stupid creature. Soon the Earth will be completely synchronized. The Lords of Space, with their power limits raised, will not miss this opportunity. Numerous lords will descend, and the Earthlings will be in despair from their overwhelming power. Until Ielo intervenes, it will remain so. It is true that the Earth is now in its most critical situation. Ielo will become their savior and rule over them. Meanwhile, Junin and another squad member were watching the base and did not understand what was happening. A horde of monsters pours out from the center of the base. The monsters stopped moving. It appears that all the resisting coalition heroes have been captured. They lost their base with no chance of response. He thought about suspicious activities, but was unable to react so quickly. Junung came to Blanca and the rest of the squad. Blanca asked if Junyong knew Hei Sio's whereabouts, but unfortunately he did not find her. Blanca worries that something might have happened to Hei Seo. If she were alive, she could contact them through telepathy. Junung said that she may have been limited by a special method that blocks her magic. They will observe the situation a little more and then plan a rescue operation. Suddenly, Wu Jin appeared behind them and asked what they were doing here. Blanca started hugging him, saying that they missed him. Wu Jin threw it away and asked who did this to them. Wu Jin already knew that they had lost the base and demanded the name of this person. Junin said that it was Na Zhen Yong from the Lion Guild who arrived as reinforcements. When Ugin received word that they had lost the fortress, he thought that it was one of the great lords of Tranet who had done so. Wu Jin said that it was unimaginable that someone would dare to stab him in the back without fear. He told Blanca and Juneng to follow him along with the others. They are going to take back the fortress right now. Wu Jin was belligerent, and Zhen Yong enjoyed the life of a lord. He now understood why Kang Wu Jin was so strong, not only summoning troops from overcrowded points in the territory, but also the ability to expand your abilities. Zhen Yong felt a power that he couldn't rank, boiling inside. He wants to go all out right now. Suddenly, an alarmed guard ran up to him and said that Kong Wu-jin had arrived and he was fighting monsters in the castle right now. It was just in time because Jen Young wanted to test his strength. He was ready to meet with the old king and personally convince him to complete the takeover of the throne. But when he went outside, he saw that the army of monsters he had summoned had been destroyed in minutes. He was in complete shock. And then Junin and Wu Jin met the one who plunged a dagger into Wu Jin's back, and now Jen Yong is in trouble.